Welcome, everyone. A new week ahead of us in the NFL. It's week 11, so put aside the pains of Thursday. Mark Andrews going out. Who cares? Joe Burrow out for the year. Whatever. Screw that guy. We got new guys to play with today, new games to talk about, and actually some fun ones to hit on that could make you some money today. Of course, I'm Chris Spags, joined as always now by the man who's recovering, coming off the COVID list this week for the first time, Mr. Matt Belman. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Better now that I'm here with you. That Thursday night game, wow. And then we're coming off a couple days before that to Deshaun Watson, which I'm sure we'll get into the Browns today. So, yeah, it's been a war of attrition in the NFL so far. Nothing new, but it always seems like that year, whatever year we're in, is the worst year.
Yeah, I think this one you could definitely make the case where we're at now. What, 8 out of 32 starting quarterbacks have gone down. So about 25% of the league that we thought would be there, especially if you're like me, you're a best ball drafter, you're preparing for the stuff from basically January, looking at rookies. The toll definitely racks up. So if you're going through it, if you're struggling with this season, if you're frustrated by how this has gone, dust yourself off, get back on the horse today. That's all we can ever do. And it's going to be easy to get back on the horse today with our friends over at Owner's Box who are presenting the show, but we'll talk more about them in a moment. But of course, if you're not playing Owner's Box, you should. Sometimes a lot of sites like Owner's Box, people don't play on them enough. As a result, there's things like overlay, things like reduced rake, things like also just softer lineups out there. You're not playing against the sharks of the world on Owner's Box. So take advantage of them. Of course, check the link in the description down below. We'll talk more about Owner's Box coming in a moment. But of course, let's lead us off a little bit with an intro. And Matt, I think there are some kind of takes that you can talk about here that are going to be overarching for the entire slate. Of course, we have the Tony Pollard question once again facing a soft Carolina defense. We also have stacks like Houston and Arizona that are going to be pretty popular, though maybe not as popular as a few others that we'll hit on over the course of the show. Is there any sort of overarching thing you're seeing from the lineups and the stuff that you've done so far prep-wise?
Well, for me, and I'm glad you asked that question because I've heard you on a couple MBO shows recently. Great job, by the way. It's so different from NBA, every NFL slate, just because all the games are crammed into one day. Most of the games are crammed into one day on Sundays. So there's always so many good spots. There are some spots better than others, but today is no different. There are a bunch of places to go, I think. You can spend up at quarterback. I think you can spend down at quarterback. Same goes for the other positions for sure. Miami's back on the slate, which adds a nice little wrinkle to it. It's a fun slate to me. I think there are plenty of ways to skin this cat.
Yeah, definitely a lot of unique ways to get there. Of course, the Sims tool is going to be a great way to do that as well. The promo code Millie deal still going on there if you want to take advantage of that one. But of course, we'll hit on that one as we go. But let's talk about the running backs as we always do here on the First Look show. Start off with them. And there is a chalk play of all chalk plays this week. And it kind of throws me for a loop because this is a guy that for the most part, again, best ball has been my world for basically the entire year of 2023. And Devin Singletary was a guy I thought had a pretty good opportunity coming into this new situation with Houston, new coaches, new offensive coordinator as well. Bobby Slowick come from that San Francisco 49ers pedigree. And Devin Singletary was a guy I thought, hey, maybe he could seize a role here. Dameon Pierce wasn't the most efficient last year, certainly had some good things in terms of the avoided tackle rate, but was a guy that seemed like was a surgeon or, was on the rise for the most part heading into this year. But Devin Singletary was a guy that I thought could maybe seize a role. He doesn't. Now all of a sudden, Matt, he goes for 150 yards last week. He's the chalk play of the week. His prop lines to some markets out there, higher than guys like Christian McCaffrey, higher than a lot of running backs we know and trust. And Singletary projected to be over 25% owned in a pretty high scoring or potentially high scoring matchup against Houston. Are you riding the Singletary train this week? Against Arizona. Are you riding the Singletary train one more week here with him, again, looking like the chalkiest running back and perhaps the chalkiest play on the slate?
That's scary for sure. Whenever you talk about a guy like Devin Singletary as being like the most popular player on the slate, it always gives you cause for pause. That said, last week, he was the single highest end bell cow of the entire week, taking 60 of 74 snaps, 30 of 30 carries, 2 of 3 targets. Like, for perspective on that, only 12 other running backs have seen at least 60 snaps, and only 3 other running backs have seen at least 30 carries in any game this season. So when you're talking about numbers like that, it makes sense why he's getting so much love. They're a 6-point favorite at home against a pretty weak Arizona team. So everything on paper lines up for him to be good. For me, there is massive opportunity cost in Singletary in any running back you roster, and that's the case today. If you're rostering Singletary, you're not rostering 3 other running backs, probably 2 other running backs at least. So you have to put that into the equation. But that said, like on paper, the ownership makes sense to me just because of the work he's maybe not going to get for the rest of the season, but probably going to get today.
In the matchup against Arizona, as well as one that on the year has been pretty soft. Again, I swear by a lot of the metrics that I look at from Sports Info Solutions, EPA metrics, expected points added stuff, because it tells you basically how a team is performing relative to the average. Are they contributing to more points? Are they contributing to less? In Arizona on the year, giving up a 0.07 EPA per dropback, 0.09 EPA per pass, a negative 0.01 EPA per rush, which is actually pretty good. And rushing plays inherently a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, a little more minus EV in terms of what you're doing to actually add points to the table. But there's still a team that you can attack on that front. They also don't stuff the run well, 15% stuffed run rate, 10% tackle for loss rate. So if you are looking for like kind of the platonic ideal matchup for Singletary, it's one against a team that's going to allow you to move the ball downfield pretty well. And number two, against a team that's also just not going to stop the run, not going to get in the backfield that much, and allow Singletary to get some easy misses as a result. So in terms of the chalk, the chalkiness of Singletary, it's definitely tough to go with 25% ownership or running back. We know the Sims pushes toward this stuff, Matt. And I know for me, I got about 40% Singletary before the show. Is there a mark for you for Singletary that would be too high, or I guess too low?
I don't have a mark off the top of my head. And it's funny, I'm thinking about this like in NBA terms also. In NBA terms, 25% is not popular really at all. You're getting to be maybe so if you're starting about talking about 30 plus, but 25 isn't really a bother for me. And it's not really a bother for me here. The reason that I'm hesitant on Singletary, or would be hesitant, if you will, is just the opportunity cost. Everything on paper lines up for Singletary to be a really, really good play here. We know who he is, so he's unlikely to break the slate and give you a score that you're like, oh my God, I cannot catch without Singletary. But at his price point, he's one of those really good filler pieces where it's more about the lineup you can get around him, and that makes a lot of sense. The other part of this is we don't have a ton of really cheap receivers that are getting a lot of love, so there aren't guys around 3K that people feel comfortable rostering. So that's bumping up Singletary's ownership, and it makes sense.
So the other guy who's near this price point that does project for some chalky ownership, and I see the chat talking about him a little bit so far, Brian Robinson, Race Fan 22 in the chat saying B-Rob, smash spot, no Gibson either. Robinson, we have seen some high outlier days recently, including last week. Basically, was one of the highest scoring running backs in the slate, much like Singletary. This week, though, Brian Robinson priced up at 5,800, so a little bit of a jump there because he's going against the Giants. And of course, we know the Giants on offense not going to contribute a lot there. And as a result, you definitely see the Commanders side of the ball trying to run out the clock a little bit more with Brian Robinson, just because you have to expect that this is not a spot where Sam Howell has to drop back deep into the fourth quarter to get the results that he needs against a guy like Tommy DeVito. So in terms of a pivot point here, we do have one running back who is in between these guys in ownership. But Brian Robinson for you, Matt, are you going to Brian Robinson this week? And I guess, would you prefer him at about 10% projected less ownership than Singletary? I'm not sure if I actually buy that, but talk about Brian Robinson.
I don't buy that either. I think they come in pretty similarly owned. And at that case, give me the savings on Singletary. I like them about the same, though. Nothing really stands out to me about liking one over the other. Robinson's game last week was a little bit fluky in that he caught that ball down the sideline and ended up scoring there. Didn't have a great rushing day. He's in a great spot today. Huge favorites against a really weak Giants team. Washington's offense isn't like Dallas's, though, so I don't think we're going to see them just move the ball and score every drive like we did the Cowboys. That said, the Giants are really bad right now, and it's mostly that their offense is putting their defense in awful positions. So I understand the Robinson love. If you ask me right now who I was more likely to get away from, I think it would be Robinson, just because I think the ownership is closer than our projections are telling right now, and I just like that savings for Singletary more.
Yeah, I think that makes some amount of sense. $500 difference point between Brian Robinson being the more expensive back and Devin Singletary. Again, if you are saying there's going to be 10% less ownership for Robinson, I get why you go there. But again, I really do believe that Robinson in this spot going against a Giants team that every casual player out there knows is not going to put the biggest resistance, and also a Giants team that on the year has given up a lot of production to QB stacks, running backs, everybody who's gone against them for the most part has got a lot of production against them. And it makes sense because the Commanders are a 10-point favorite. Not a lot of games this year are going to see the Commanders as a 10-point favorite, but that is the case in this spot at home. So Brian Robinson, Singletary, that is one duo here that you could probably see in a lot of tournaments today. That's going to be a way that people afford the higher price stacks, maybe Miami doubles, maybe Niners stacks, whatever the case may be. So those two guys well represented, and I think nothing a nickel and dime about them as plays other than the fact that they could be The guys that sneak up in terms of ownership that we've seen a few times this year. I don't know that they get to that 40%, 50% levels that we've seen recently, but 30% I think is not out of range for Singletary and Robinson based upon the enthusiasm for these guys. There is one player in between them though, Matt, and we'll talk about that guy in a moment here. But guys, smash the like button if you can. Of course, we're up bright and early today. Matt and I have both been sick this week with various things, so we're rallying as best we can to give you guys that good info and, of course, all the stochastic data that we talk about on here. So please smash that like button down below, and if for some reason you're not subscribed, do that as well, because Stochastic marches on, of course, every day with great content, including today where the deeper dive comes up right after us with Loughy and Ben Rasa, and you get the Live Before Lock show with Eric and Matt Gajewski coming up later today as well. So good stuff at every corner here on Stochastic. You don't even have to click a button to stay here on the stream for the rest of the day and wilt into your couch. It's all we can ever ask you to do. Christian McCaffrey, though, second top projected owned running back overall on the slate. And he's a guy, Matt, that goes complete opposite direction, where normally on slates like this one, where you see chalk going to Singletary, chalk going to Robinson, one thing I'll like to do is pay up at running back and just say, I'll take Christian McCaffrey's 20, 25 touches and call it a day. You can't really do that and get unique today, Matt, because we have about 20% ownership expected to go to Christian McCaffrey in a game where they are just a gigantic favorite. The line, as of this morning, and let me check that, it was up to 14 earlier. Now 13 points flat for the Niners as a favorite against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, of course, I think been beating a lot of expectations on the year, but certainly a team that can run into some struggles. Niners defense looked resurgent last week. Are you going to Christian McCaffrey at really steep price point? You are getting off the beaten path of chalky duos of Singletary and Robinson, but 9,300 could be pretty tough to pay if you want to play guys like Tyreek on the thumbnail.
It's just a completely different play than what you were talking about, where like on a lot of slates you'll see with him priced this high that people will just be flocking to the lower end guys and he'll be under-owned. Clearly, we're not seeing that today. However, he's still, arguably the best play on the slate just from like a points perspective, in a great spot. Well, he's not in a great spot against the Tampa run deep, but he's in a great spot on paper, and that San Fran's a huge favorite. He's going to catch a bunch of balls. He scores pretty much every week. I know last week was the first week he hadn't in a while. I like McCaffrey a lot. I mean, no one's going to sit here and say they don't like McCaffrey. I do like another guy kind of in that pay up to be contrarian mold. That's Austin Eckler, who isn't getting the ownership, who I think has a ton of upside as well. So McCaffrey is a solid cog in the machine type play, but no, you're not using him today getting different. So I think that it's just a little bit different. That said, he's a great building block. If you can make it work, I do think I prefer Tyreek Hill, but it's damn close.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense for me as well with McCaffrey. I mean, the one thing we know is that Tampa Bay defense is not the same one as it's been in past years, where you don't even want to touch a running back against them.
Right.
But even when that was the case a couple of years ago with Carolina, I remember one game in particular, nobody wanted to play McCaffrey. McCaffrey ends up getting there by 10 plus targets in that game, gets some passing touchdowns involved to help himself prop up the day. I don't know that's necessarily going to be the case against the Niners. It's certainly a little bit of motivation going against McCaffrey, just getting in the end zone every game now. That the record has not going to be set by him. He tied it, and that's it. So that's one that comes off the table. And last week, you did see the Niners be a little more effective spreading the ball around. Guys like Debo getting a touchdown, Ayuk getting a touchdown, Kittle getting a touchdown. That's the way that I think the Niners have the most success moving forward. But McCaffrey, a perfectly valid play, but I'm with Matt as well that normally this is the way you get different. This is not the way to get different on this week. You're just going to be with a different batch of chalky ownership. So with McCaffrey being there, I think that he's still a perfectly fine play if you want to get there. But the kind of play that doesn't represent what he normally does, where he's a little more contrarian. Tony Pollard, we have to talk about him here because this is another spot where if you're a Tony Pollard backer, you've certainly been burned by him week after week so far. This spot against Carolina, another good one on paper, though, because Carolina does not defend the run very well. Negative 0.01 EPA per rush, but in the red zone, negative 0.24 EPA per red zone rush is the worst mark in the league. So if you get in the red zone as a running back, you're definitely able to punch it in. Of course, we've said that a few times, that Tony Pollard matchup's only to watch CeeDee Lamb go for 200 yards. CeeDee Lamb on a run of efficiency that you don't see very often. But Pollard, number 4 overall running back relative to ownership, going to be projected for about 15%-ish, a little bit less than that, both on Stochastic and around the industry. Are you willing to go back this week, Matt? Because I do think there's a logic going to Pollard. I actually think wouldn't be shocked if Pollard came in closer to 10%, just because I've seen the burials of Tony Pollard everywhere across the industry this week. People don't want to go there. He's got 2 good matchups in a row coming up here once again. So I'm okay with Pollard. Rico Dowdle also questionable in this one, so maybe that helps him out a little bit. But Pollard's been running bad, Matt. Are you going to run bad with him?
I'm with you, man. Like, this is a case of people just not wanting to go there and being a little bit too result-oriented in my mind. Like, you look at the game last week, he wasn't very good, but he played 90% of the snaps until Dak got removed. So that's really encouraging to see. he almost scored at least once. I know he got stuffed like at the goal line. So, an inch or two here or there, and we're telling a completely different story today. I'm always hesitant with these running backs on teams that are huge road favorites, but Dallas has done a really good job of beating the teams they're supposed to beat this year, except for Arizona. So they are in a great spot against a really, really weak Carolina team. Not sure they're going to be able to do a ton offensively to keep their defense off the field, which puts Pollard in a better spot. There's some coach speak here. I know CeeDee Lamb, as you mentioned, talked a lot this week about how they want to get their boy TP involved. So listen, I'm not really buying that. I'm certainly not using him because of that, but you're now getting him at a fair price point. The ownership, the field just isn't wanting to go there with so many other options. And to be honest, like, I think his upside is significantly higher than the Brian Robinson, Devin Singletaries of the world. Those guys' floors are probably, better and you feel safer with them, but we're not too far removed from Pollard being, one of the most dynamic backs in the league. I'm with you. I think it's totally fair to take a shot on him today.
Despite whatever flaws there have been with Pollard recently, and look, he hasn't been the same guy, frankly, since the back half of last year, where the workload, I think, kind of caught up with him. The efficiency metrics started to drop off a little bit. Of course, everybody kind of closed their eyes and ignored that one heading into the offseason because they were so excited to see Tony Pollard be in this role. The good news is the workload for Tony Pollard's been there. 4.9 red zone touches a game, 2.3 of which are inside the 10-yard line per game. Like, that's a workload that's as good as any running back in the league, including Christian McCaffrey. So in terms of at least the red zone work. So in this spot, I think Tony Pollard is a guy that's worth at least being with the field on. I know I'm going to be at least with the field. I might go a little bit above it just because of the fact that I think Pollard, again, people think it's an ugly play, and you're always going to profit best from DFS. These guys that do burn people week after week. If you go back there and you get it right, and Tony Pollard puts up 30 today, you're just not going to find as many people there as there would have been 2 weeks ago when he looked like the belle of the ball who was going to get off the schneid. People are now not believing in it. So him, Christian Watson, two guys you can martingale to your heart's content this week and try to get right. And we'll see if it happens for either of them. Rounding up the top five, though, is James Conner, $5,700 price tag on him. So he's closer to that Singletary Robinson tier of guys. And James Conner, 13.8 expected ownership going his way. Get an Arizona matchup against Houston that looks like the most live game to be a shootout this week, both in terms of how people are playing it, as well as the alternate markets as well, where there's a lot of high totals that are certainly indicating that the market's hedging against what the actual market over under is. But how are you feeling about James Conner here, Matt? Because I feel like, to me, this Arizona offense, if it's going to work the best, probably flowing a lot more through Kyler Murray. We saw that big play that he broke the end of that last game. Of course, the overhead view, if you missed that one on social media, worth checking out, broke the big play to get them in field goal range to win that game. Kyler, a big play, but James Conner's getting the work on the year. Are you going to James Conner? Because to me, I would say, like, I get why people are going there. I do think he's kind of a tier behind Singletary and Robinson, and I would trust those guys a lot more for both floor and ceiling, but I get the Robinson play for sure. I mean, the Conner play for sure. Are you with Conner?
I'm kind of seeing this exactly how you are. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe anyone's playing Conner. But I do think the other guys we mentioned are better plays for different reasons. So Conner, just talking on some good stuff with him, he did play 65% of the snaps last week. He handled 16 of 19 carries. Kyler didn't throw a ball to the backfield, and also 0 of 0 targets. Encouraging to see his first game back. He was really, really good in the back half of the year last year. So I understand, like you said, why people want to go there. He is a bell cowish back, going to get a lot of work. This is a game they are underdogs in, but I don't think anyone would be surprised if Arizona hung in this game. And if they do, it's probably because Conner and Kyler had a good day. That said, like, he just doesn't stand out to me. He's cheap, so I get that, under 6K, but I'm with you. If I'm going under 6K, give me Robinson and Singletary over him. And then in his price range, like, I'd rather get up to Aaron Jones. I'd rather drop down to Jerome Ford. There's just too many guys I like in that range for me to plant my flag there personally.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yeah, the projections too for Conner, I think a little bit less impressive. 13.5 projection, closer to 14 around the industry. It's an okay number on him. Like, certainly I think he'll get him in a batch of 150, absolutely. But for Conner, to me, just not the priority play some of these other guys are. And I think he's kind of coming up because he is a little bit more contrarian. The workload will be there for him. But to me, the Arizona offense, if it is going to do what it needs to do to hang in this game against Houston, it's not just running James Conner up the tackles and getting him the work that he needs to get. I don't think that's how they get there personally, but your mileage may vary, of course. If you're a Conner believer, certainly can get going there. To round out running running back, Matt, I know you mentioned one guy, Austin Eckler, who was not out or was not in the top 5. We also have Josh Jacobs, Travis Etienne, Aaron Jones, Breece Hall picking up some ownership. Jahmyr Gibbs, who last week got the 1 touchdown on the 1-yard line. Reports came out afterwards that David Montgomery let him get that one because it was supposed to be Montgomery getting called in after Gibbs broke the big play, but Montgomery said take it. So it's not really a shifting of the goal line role, but Gibbs certainly looked explosive enough to earn himself a meaningful role moving forward. But anybody you want to cape for a little bit here? I know Eckler, you mentioned Jerome Ford, people like out there. You make a case for Montgomery even in a good matchup as well. But who else do you want to mention here for the people?
I'm going to talk about Eckler and Ford real quick. So Eckler's expensive. I get it. You have to make him a priority to get there, especially with guys like Robinson and Singletary, $3K less than him. That said, only McCaffrey probably has Eckler's upside, especially with what he can do in the passing game. This is still the same old Eckler we've seen. 14 to 19 carries in every game so far this year he's played. 7 or more targets in 3 straight games, which is huge. And for me personally, the reason I'm keying in on Eckler, I think a lot of people are going to go to, Jalen Guyton, Donald Parham as value pieces from a Chargers offense now missing. They're missing Palmer. They're obviously already missing Mike Williams. They're depleted. I think it's Eckler. I think he's the guy that's going to see a ton of work here. And it's a great spot. Green Bay struggled last week against Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. This is not a great defense. I think this is an upside Eckler week. At least I'm willing to take a shot that it is. And then Jerome Ford, almost the opposite of that. Cheaper than Singletary, cheaper than Robinson. Pittsburgh's a team that I think is really, really overrated. They've been outgained in every game so far this year. Green Bay moved the ball on them pretty well last week. Ford had by far his best game as a Brown as Cleveland came back to beat Baltimore. He's just too cheap. If you look at like flow charts and things like that for this week, Pittsburgh's awful against the run, and Ford is in a really, really good spot. They look like they're wanting to give him more work. So again, I think that Singletary is safer. I think Robinson is probably safer because those guys are clear bell cows, and Ford is maybe that next level below with Kareem Hunt still getting a lot of the goal line work. But that doesn't mean Ford doesn't have just as high an upside, especially with DTR potentially dropping it off. So those are 2 guys I just wanted to call out that aren't getting the same ownership that those other guys are.
Yeah, I worry a little bit about DTR with Ford just because of the fact that he frankly did not look ready for prime time the first start that he had. Certainly a player, though, in college was mobile enough. Yes, the mobility maybe cuts down the check down upside for these guys a little bit, but Ford, we know, can break big plays, is certainly involved enough, has about double the snaps of Kareem Hunt week to week, including last week. So I definitely can make a case for Ford. One guy I'll just highlight as well, Aaron Jones, I think kind of an interesting spot as well, going against a Chargers team that's not very good. I do think Green Bay is going to have a little more success moving the ball. Jordan Love, the eye test, I think, growing stronger by the week if you watch him, where certainly some flaws in his game, but he handled Pittsburgh pretty well, blitzing at a high rate last week. Do you think Jordan Love maybe making some strides could benefit a guy like Aaron Jones as well, who we really haven't seen have a slate-breaking week at any point this year? But him being, about 10% ownership, a little bit less than that, I do think that Aaron Jones could be a strong play to get to this week. It's just not a lot of people on him. But of course,
I actually like that game. Sorry to cut you off, but I like that game environment. Like you mentioned Aaron Jones a couple minutes ago. You mentioned Christian Watson, 2 guys I like a lot in tournaments. And then, you obviously got the Chargers side with Eckler, et cetera. So I think this game has sneaky shootout potential.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think it's certainly one. The totals are not quite near where you need to be. Only 23.8 implied points for the Chargers. 20.8 for Green Bay, but that means people just won't be on it quite as much. So for me, I've kind of been expecting the Jordan Love game to come back at some point, and facing a Chargers defense that gives up 392 yards per game could be the kind of get right spot this offense needs. And as a result, I'm willing to take any of these guys, but I think Jones and Watson definitely 2 for me that I'm willing to get to a little bit more. And guys, I asked for some likes a moment ago, but we are, we're doing okay right now. 1,200 people watching live, but only 12 likes right now. So guys, please smash the like button right now. Did I say 11, 12? That's not a number. 112 is what the number would be. If we had 11, 12, we'd be crushing right now, but don't make us look bad in front of Loughy and Ben. If we come on here, there's only 150 likes. Loughy will be like, those guys didn't do a good job hitting the like button. And frankly, we don't need that Loughy fodder. Loughy's got enough fodder out there to hit on through the course of a show. So smash the like button here, help us out. And of course, show your love here for Stochastic. Stochastic always here for you, putting on the 4-hour live before lock shows for you to make sure you get the best info and the most updated info as we go along. Next position we are going to hit on is going to be the wide receivers. Of course, we're trying to create the picture for the overall stacks where we actually get to the QBs, get to the defenses. Not that anybody cares about defenses. The chalk wide receiver of the week going to be Tank Dell. And it is worth pointing out that Tank Dell now up to more routes per game than Nico Collins. Tank Dell up to more snaps per game than Nico Collins. Nico coming off the injury, though, more contrarian play. But Tank this week, 5,900. You're going to see a lot of teams built, I would imagine. Singletary, Brian Robinson, Dell as the base, maybe CJ Stroud throwing in at QB because you are already going to have 2 Houston Texans in there. But where are you with Tank Dell this week, Matt? Because Tank Dell has been going off in a major way. He's got a really soft spot going against the Cardinals in this one. But Tank, very chalky, and we do know there are guys that could take some production away. We do have, of course, Robert Woods in the mix. We do have Nico Collins coming back. Noah Brown, we'll see if he's going to be active today. Did have a knee injury, keeping him out of practice for portions of this week, but he could certainly affect things. We do have Dalton Schultz as well. So there are ways for the Texans not to score or to score that are not involving Tank Dell. So where are you landing with the chalk receiver at a reasonable price tag this week, Matt?
2 sides of the coin here. One, I think that his ownership is actually going to be much higher than this 21%, especially when you get into like single entry, higher dollar stuff. I think that he's going to be the first piece a lot of people put in their lineups, and it makes sense. He is way too cheap for his current production. Over the past 2 weeks, he's ranked top 2 among all pass catchers in expected fantasy points. Over that span, he's posted a 40% first read target. That's 4th highest in the league. Like, he is just playing like an 8K receiver, not like a 5,900 receiver. This is a guy I was huge on coming into the year, was awesome in college. The rapport that him and CJ have is real. You're right. It's not a guarantee that he's going to keep producing like this. And, you do have some other weapons back today that could potentially eat into his workload. That said, he's just too cheap. I look at him compared to the running backs we talked about. I think he's the best play of all of them.
Yeah, I definitely can make that jump as well. I worry about the ownership here with Tank just because, again, there are live pivots. And I know for me, I'll certainly build some Stroud stacks that don't include Tank just to try to capture the upside of this offense, because it is really hard to imagine the Texans not getting off in a big way, given the fact that they are passing above expectation last 2 weeks. And now they're facing a Cardinals team that just offers nothing defensively to stop them. But for Tank, he's the most obvious play for sure. So play him. I think play him with the field, but don't be surprised if you even play him with the field and you end up seeing him about 30% owned, I think would be where I land with that one. But a guy is a little more expensive that we could talk about. Again, the thumbnail man facing the Raiders today. The Dolphins, very high implied total for them, was hovering around 30 for most of the week. As of before the show, it's closing at a 29.8 implied points for this game. Tyreek, of course, we know goes off in pretty much every matchup, and now he is facing a Raiders team defensively not offering up very much. Actually, better EPA than I would have thought. Negative 0.06 EPA per dropback, negative 0.07 EPA per pass, but it doesn't really matter against the Dolphins, who are going to represent the highest powered offense probably that the Raiders have faced all year. With Tyreek, though, at that price tag, Matt, are you willing to go there given the fact that we know the ceiling is there, but you can also make a very cheap line this week of receivers and probably feel like you're getting similar upside?
Yeah, I'm certainly willing to go there. I don't think he's like a must play because no one's a must play, but he looks like, one of, if not the best overall play on the slate if you can make it work. Now, you're going to have to make some concessions in other areas. Like, you're not going to be able to play him and McCaffrey and, other expensive players unless you spend down everywhere else. So you have to know that going in. But I said it earlier when we talked about McCaffrey. Like, I think my preference there is Hill coming off the bye. I know they lost to Kansas City the week before the bye. They might have lost the week before that too. I can't remember. I think you see the best that this offense has to offer. And Hill is just a guy that continuously wrecks slates. Fading him is always, fade him at your own peril, if you will. Like, it's never an easy fade. And like I said, the opportunity cost is real using 9-3 on a receiver, but I think it's even more real not playing him. So yeah, Tyreek Hill looks great here. If you can make it work, I think you build around him.
Yeah, Tyreek on the year going to be facing a Raiders team that does play a good amount of zone. 4.3 yards per out run against zone, 37% target share as well, target per out run rate, excuse me. So for Tyreek, hard to argue the spot. Certainly you can definitely chop up the Dolphins in different ways, but I would say for Tyreek, the thing that I would try to do to get different would be pairing him with Tua a little bit more, pairing him with one of the running backs, Mostert or Achane. Achane back in this week. And actually, we did skip over Achane real fast. Are you going to get any Achane exposure? Price tag's pretty tough coming off the injury, but we know the explosive upside. And I do feel like there's probably somebody in chat that's wondering, hey, they didn't mention Achane. So as we're talking about Tyreek, any thoughts on the running backs for Miami as well?
Yeah, sure. I think if you're multi-entering, you definitely want to get a little HN. You don't want to like take him out of your pool. We've seen his upside is just too high to do that. That said, he's far from a guy I'd be wanting to build around just because of the price tag, the fact that he did miss some time, etc. I do like the passing game more here. Just one more point on Tyreek Hill, because I was going to say this and forgot. It's almost like we've seen with Jokic recently. Yeah, he's really expensive, but he's still one of, if not the best overall value play on the slate. Hill's exceeded 25 fantasy points in 6 of 9 games and 31 in 4 of 9. He averages about 27 DraftKings points per week, 12% more than the next closest wide receiver, who's only $100 less. So I think DK and FanDuel probably are struggling a little bit into where to price Hill. And he's just a great value, even at that increased price point. So yeah, he's one of my favorite plays on the slate.
Yeah, so there you go. So the Dolphins offense, I definitely want to get some pieces of it. I'm willing to mix in some H-Han. Didn't get a lot sim-wise of H-Han and Mostert, but will kind of force my way there a little bit more to be with the field. And I am currently with the field on Tyreek and also with the field on Jalen Waddle. So no big stands for me based on the sims before the show. But we'll see what we end up doing. Of course, hand building a little bit later on today. We're playing around with it later today. The number 3 overall receiver, maybe a bit of a surprise, but maybe not given the fact, again, that Kyler did look spry and about as good as he's looked. And I would say probably even compared to last year in his last game that he played. But Marquise Brown coming in number 3, 15% ownership expected for him. Brown, let me see where his snap count was, but Marquise Brown certainly was a chalk play last week. Didn't do a whole lot to get there for anybody, but Marquise Brown going to be a chalk play once again. Last week, he did get 65 snaps in that game. So playing 65 snaps with resurgent Kyler certainly can get you there. But Matt, are you going to get there for Marquise Brown, given that it feels like this is kind of the chalk configuration that we're talking about here, where Singletary, Robinson, Brown, Tank, like everybody's going to put this together and make a game stack out of it. I think it's a little obvious, but I guess if you put all the pieces together, you can kind of decrease the ownership product. Are you going to Marquise Brown?
Like, I get it. He's too cheap. He's 5,300. Kyler is back. He looked decent last week. There's no Michael Wilson today. I'm pretty sure I saw that come through. So that helps Brown here. I'm worried about the ownership, though, because I was thinking exactly what you just said. Seems like these pieces are just a little bit too easy to fill in with each other, because you've got Tank Dell, you've got Marquise Brown, you've got Rondale Moore, you've got Devin Singletary. Like, all these pieces I think are going to be just too highly owned. So that doesn't mean I think they're bad plays. I do think that there's other spots we can go to in tournaments to capitalize on that ownership, though, because again, I do think that Houston has proven themselves to be a really, really good passing offense. We don't know what Arizona is, and it's not like Houston's a team that we can be comfortable with and saying is going to do it every single week, like a Kansas City of yesteryear. You know, this is still a really young football team. So I have some worries and some concerns with this ownership.
Yeah, I would say certainly, again, when you have a stack this obvious, try to find a way to get different there, even if it is tacking on a Dalton Schultz. So I guess we'll see what tight end ownership is in a moment. That might not be the easiest option, but definitely if you're going to play Tank, Marquise, all these other guys at running back that we talked about, the cheap running backs, just know that you're pushing yourself to kind of a chalky base. And then maybe the way to get different is to tack on another stack on top of that. So you're not taking the core parts, but it is going to be very obvious people rolling in with Houston, Arizona stuff relative to the price tags, whether it be Marquise Brown, whether it be Rondale Moore, the chat's talking about. And frankly, I don't know for sure that Moore benefits in a huge way, because Wilson and Moore kind of different players. Wilson's got a lot of his targets outside. Moore going to be more of a gimmicky slot guy who I think they've kind of really established him in this role once again this year, despite the new coaching change. So for this spot, be wary of what you're putting in there, but certainly there's a chalk quadrant of players that are going to be defining a lot of things this weekend. It includes Marquise Brown.
We're not even going out on a limb here at all. Like, you look at the ownership projections for every position. Stroud is second at quarterback. We talked about the running backs. It's Singletary. Wide receiver, it's Tank Dell and Marquise Brown are top 3. Trey McBride's the tight end. So it's not even like we're going out on a limb here. This is what it is.
Yeah, and I think really that's what highlights to me too. It's like play, your low-owned stack with it. Play your Jordan Love stack. I don't want to always be touting Jordan Love, but play the equivalent of that. Play the guy that's going to be less owned with those guys from Houston and Arizona, because if you are leaning into it too hard, and if you're not full game stacking the game more than other people, I do think that you're going to be caught in a logjam of a lot of folks. And I do think we've also just seen these lineups win recently as well. And now they have the chalk, and now the projections work out, the salaries work out. So a lot of things coming together for this to be like the biggest crush of ownership in the entire field.
Mm-hmm.
Cooper Kupp and Christian Kirk round out the top 5 highest owned plays. Rondale Moore just on the outside at that $3,300 salary. Kupp should have Matthew Stafford back in today. The Seahawks matchup could be one that leads to some points. Definitely not a bad implied total in this game with the Seahawks, or excuse me, with Seattle at, let's see, 22.5 implied points for the Seahawks, 24.5 for the Rams. Both teams can skew a little more defensively sometimes, though. The pass matchup should be pretty pristine on the Seattle side, maybe less so going against the Seattle defense. But are you getting to Cooper Kupp at all? I feel like he's a play that, for me, I am not seeing coming up a ton sim-wise. I'm with the field on him 15%, so I guess that's enough. But I'm not crazy about Kupp, and I'm actually surprised to see him be this highly owned for me as well.
Same. It's the price point for me. He's just too close to the guys in front of him, even Tyreek Hill, who he's 1,200 less than. He does get a big boost with Stafford back, but I'm not going out of my way to pick on Seattle. Like, Seattle's got good corners, 2 young corners. So, again, I don't think they're going to stop Cooper Kupp, but I don't think it's like a great spot for him on paper. And again, you can't roster everyone. He's a guy that I wouldn't be getting to a ton of right now. If lineups were submitted in the next 5 minutes, that's not the case. So things might change, but I doubt they will. I just like the guys around his price range, even though they're a little bit more expensive, more.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one. Sim-wise, he does come up, though, so certainly a better play than we're probably going to give him credit for. But for me, I feel the same way. Cooper Kupp, we have Puka still there taking enough targets away. Cooper Kupp certainly hasn't shown a ceiling lately, so I actually might be surprised if he does end up 14, 15% owned, just because, we do know people out there tend to be box score chasers. But in this matchup, I kind of tend to think that this Seahawks-Ram matchup goes a little bit closer to under than over, personally, at least when I was seeing in the alternate betting markets that I do track with my startup probably. So that's something that I've seen. But, again, your mileage may vary. If you love Kupp, I get it. Kupp stack certainly going to be a reasonable play this week relative to the Sims as well. And Christian Kirk, is he a guy you're getting much of? Jacksonville certainly facing a Tennessee defense that has been a bit of a pass funnel on the year. Kirk's been the most involved receiver. I would argue it's a little bit better matchup for Calvin Ridley outside. But Ridley, we know that's been a bit of a down play for the most part on the year. But Kirk projected to be highly owned, Matt. So are you going to be getting yourself Christian Kirk?
It is a better matchup for Ridley. We've seen this with Jacksonville all season. I like Kirk. I think he's too cheap. He's productive. He's far from like a must play for me here. He's a guy that's more solid than spectacular. He's got big play upside, but doesn't seem to get in the box a lot. Again, that could change this week. He's fine for me, but he's not a guy I'm like, oh my God, I need to roster Christian Kirk today. I think Tank Dell is the better play at basically the same price point. And if I were playing one of them, it would be Dell. Now, there are ownership concerns there. If you just want to get away from Houston, I get it. Christian Kirk still looks really good at that price point. He just doesn't look better to me than like McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, guys, DeAndre Hopkins. I view all these guys about the same.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one too. Kirk, I get the logic there. Has shown a little bit of upside recently, certainly for Jacksonville. You would hope after they've basically bottomed out last week, things would look better. I'm personally not the biggest Jacksonville believer in the world. I do think this matchup is a good one, but Trevor Lawrence, I think, regressing. Doug Peterson teams, we do see sometimes lose a little bit of efficacy as he stays there longer. I kind of think that's what we're running into here. But also Zay Jones being banged up, not in the lineup. Maybe he's a more important part of this offense than we realized. Certainly some things here where people, I think, keep wanting to buy in on Jacksonville. And I get it this week, but if Kirk's going to be chalky, and also Lawrence going to be owned about 10% as well by the field, I don't personally want to be with a chalky Jag stack, hoping that this is the week they finally break through. But obviously, you do get some with the Sims, so it's not a bad play, but definitely one that just feels better data-wise than it does in terms of like me wanting to put my money on it unnecessarily. Some other guys that we could talk about quickly: Amon-Ra St. Brown, Keenan Allen. I do think if that Green Bay game with the Chargers does go off, Keenan Allen certainly a guy that could benefit against a Green Bay defense that is also not that good. Again, Amon-Ra St. Brown, a Chicago environment where Justin Fields back in, should be some more points scored in that game, and there were some positive alternate markets out there as well, saying that game could hit 50 points. So I think that game is kind of an interesting one to look at. But for you, Matt, Amon-Ra, I guess any of these guys at all in this range. We talked about Ridley briefly. CeeDee Lamb, another guy who's a pivot point as well for this Dallas offense that we've seen put it down and pass above expectation. Any of these guys you want to cape for in a meaningful way, because there are a lot of them that we can highlight.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. That's always the case with wide receiver. Today is no different. I think Jalen Waddle looks really interesting, especially if you aren't playing Hill. he's a little bit too expensive for his median projection, but certainly not for his upside, especially if you're using him instead of Hill and say he scores at least 2 touchdowns. Obviously, you're probably going to need him. Jalen Guyton getting love at 3,300 makes sense. The Chargers are just depleted, and he's a guy that has familiarity with Herbert, so no surprise that he's getting some ownership.
Guyton's officially out, by the way, I believe. Not officially, but trending towards being out.
Interesting. Okay, so
I'm sure the ownership will remove him momentarily, but I would imagine another boost for Quentin Johnston and I guess DeAndre Carter. No, DeAndre Carter's not even on the team. I don't even know who would be the guy.
Darius Davis.
Yeah, Darius Davis. Yeah, but he's just gimmick routes. So I think it's mostly Quentin Johnston.
That's why I'm higher on Eckler too. It's because they don't have full trust in Quentin Johnston either. I'm not one of these people that's willing to call him a bust yet. He was really productive in college at TCU. I know a lot has been made of where he's been drafted. He hasn't been too productive. He hasn't looked great so far, but I'm still willing to take some shots on Quentin Johnston, knowing that he's got an elite quarterback throwing him the ball. You mentioned Christian Watson earlier, who I like in tournaments. And then one guy I'm just going to throw out there. Obviously not a guy I would play in cash games. This is only for your deep GPPs, milli makers. Cedric Tillman finally got on the field last week for Cleveland. They traded Donovan Peoples-Jones. This is a guy that has a ton of familiarity with DTR. They played in high school together. So again, I'm not using him because they played in high school together. Obviously, this isn't DFS from 2010, but he's 3K. He's seeing the field more. He's their number 3 wide receiver. I am not a believer in this Pittsburgh offense, and I actually think DTR could show some things today. So just remember the name, Cedric Tillman.
Yeah, I like Tillman coming in. I mean, he was a great outer receiver at Tennessee. I think he showed kind of more real-life football skills than Jalen Hyatt did, where Hyatt was kind of running video game routes, whereas Tillman was actually going up to get the ball. So I can get there. And you did get Moore right last week for one of the first guys to get Elijah Moore right, and I think the eternity that he's played football. So the Browns whisperer here, Matt Belman, going to give you guys all the hot takes. Are you a Browns fan?
Huge Browns fan.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm from Cleveland. Yeah, so I'm a huge Browns fan. And on that Hyatt versus Tillman note, the Browns like Tillman a lot more than Hyatt coming out. Again, doesn't mean anything for today, but there's a reason they traded DPJ and they want to give this kid more reps.
Also, the chat of saying that it was officially confirmed, I guess, confirmed right before as we were starting the show. Tom Pelissero saying that Guyton's officially out. So I think he was trending towards being out when I saw this morning. He's officially out now. So the ownership will reflect that, I'm sure, in a moment, given that Guyton was projected to have about 11% ownership. And you got to think relative to salaries, Rondale Moore probably comes up a little bit more because of that. Rondale 3,300, Guyton at 3,300 as well. And I will also make the case quickly for Christian Watson. We're going to talk about the QBs coming up in a moment. For Christian Watson, again, buying when there's blood in the streets. This, for me, is officially, as somebody that loved Christian Watson, I think even more than the industry did throughout the course of a year, this is my shit or get off the pot week for Christian Watson. If he doesn't go off this week, I'm not going to be there again. For me, though, this matchup against the Chargers, bad pass defense, a lot of opportunity for them to get downfield. Chargers on the year giving a 0.6 EPA on throws of 20-plus air yards. We have the squeaky wheel narrative going with both Christian Watson and his parents complaining. I guess parents more so complaining on social media. Jordan Love saying he needs to get Watson going, does trust him in all of that. So this is the Watson week. And if it's not, then whatever, it's every other Watson week. But this is around when he broke out last year, so we'll go with that one. But of course, guys, we got to give a quick plug to our sponsors. Or do you want to do a Watson cape?
Yeah, I have one. I have a couple things to say on Watson. He leads the league in end zone targets per game and ranks 8th in deep targets per game. Like, I know people don't want to play him, but his price is so low. I think he's in elite tournament play today.
If people ask about Dobbs too, yes, Dobbs is the more logical play. I get it. He actually puts up points here and there. Jaden Reed too, whatever. But the squeaky wheel, guys, it's Christian Watson. So let us have this week. But yes, every Packers play is valid. The matchup is good for all of them. It's just that Watson, as Matt mentioned, the usage has been there for him. He just hasn't done anything with it. So the hope is that eventually he does it again. He's still an athletic guy, still a big-bodied guy. And if anything, they now know more than ever that you need to get him one good touch to get him going. And the markets as well, over 2.5 catches I did see was trending towards the positive side as well, over 57% probability as of yesterday. So I think there are good things for Christian Watson to come, or hopefully better things at the very least, and better things for you as well. If you play on Owner's Box, of course, Owner's Box, one of the new leaders in the space who helps you put on the show every single week. So please support Owner's Box, but also support yourself, because on your first deposit over there with a minimum of $10, you'll be eligible to earn a bonus amount equal to the amount deposited, such as a $250 deposit gets you a $250 bonus. So it's a sweet deal on there to get yourself going. going. The maximum bonus amount's $500. So you can get yourself a $500 deposit match right away by playing on Owner's Box. That's what they want to do. That's what these new sites have to do to get people like you in the mix. And again, you're behooving yourself to go over there because number one, you're going to be playing against less sharp people. Number two, very high likelihood of overlay. That is something that helps you out as well, even if it doesn't overlay, which means, of course, the site putting in more money than the players are putting in. It'll also give you a reduced rate because of the fact they're just not able to fill these tournaments right now. And that's part of the marketing strategy to get people like you in. So take advantage of Owner's Box, and even better, the deal gets sweeter because you also get one $5 Lightning lineups entry with an additional $5 contest ticket on the house when you sign up now. The promo codes go right to your email when you hit the link in the description. Go take advantage of it. The Lightning lineups actually are one of those fun innovations that we sometimes talk about lately in DFS, where DraftKings and FanDuel, they don't want to do anything new. They don't want to have their programmers do more work. Owner's Box actually does create new things for you. With the Lightning lineups, you're choosing between a lineup. Basically, the more you keep going through and choosing between multiples of lineups, the higher your payout gets. So a different format on there. If you're a lazy person, if you just want to put some lineups in, that is one way to do it on Owner's Box. They want you to support yourself and to support the site. So you must be 18 years of age or older, or the minimum age in your jurisdiction. That's a fun promo there. But go check out Owner's Box. And of course, if you don't want to play in Owner's Box, then just call 1-800-GAMBLER because it's over for you now. Just play on Owner's Box and of course, use that number.
I love that tagline. If you're a lazy person, we want you.
Yeah, I like the Lightning lineups. Like, I do think that there are fun things out there. I know people love Underdog, and I love Underdog too, but Lightning lineups is like the most unique product out there because you're just scrolling through and you're able to choose between them. It's like Tinder for lineups, which I think is a kind of fun thing, would actually win money off of it instead of just herpes.
And I know we probably missed those days, so it gives you a little chance to reconnect.
Exactly. Reconnect with your lineups and get on Owner's Box and check it out. Of course, check the link in the description down below. So we do have to hit on, of course, the glorious tight ends. Let's hit on defenses last or second to last here. Tight ends, never a fun place to talk about. Trey McBride, though, looking like the chalk. 24% ownership going to him. Evan Ingram at number 2, 18%. Dalton Schultz, another part of that Houston, Arizona log jam that we talked about, people building a lot of lineups together. Got to imagine Dalton Schultz be a part of that. 17% ownership going his way. If you had to choose one chalk tight end here, Matt, where we have this very obvious group of three, McBride, Ingram, and Schultz, which one would you go to, and why would it be, I guess, Trey McBride?
It's McBride for sure. For me too. It just is. Been high on him since he came out of Colorado State. Still priced really affordably. I think he's actually too cheap for the role he has in this offense with Kyler. He was trending up before Kyler came back and has only continued that last week. Great spot today against Houston. I think the other two are fine. I'm with you on Jacksonville, though. Like, I'm just not as high on the Jags here as it seems the masses are. So Ingram would be a clear third for me there. I like McBride over Schultz. I think you could easily take the other side, and I would have no arguments there. And then the other guy I think worth mentioning here, getting not quite as much ownership, is Dalton Kincaid, who just looks like a target monster in this Bills offense.
You're going against the Jets, does funnel things a little bit more towards the slot. I mean, we'll see what happens with Diggs. Diggs, certainly another guy with some squeaky wheel stuff going on out there. But even if Diggs gets targeted, you're kind of looking at a Devontae Adams style game that he had against the Jets, where, you're getting the targets, but you're less efficient with them. For Kincaid, like, it is actually a soft matchup going against, the slot there. So that's something with Kincaid that I don't mind. And Cole Kmet as well. I'll quickly say he's number 4 owned, so it's not a big surprise here, but Kmet field stacks, Kmet more field stacks. Like, I think those are ones that look pretty interesting to me going against a Detroit team that is pretty good defensively. But I think the Bears have shown that with Fields out in the field, they are willing to get it downfield, and we'll see how that works out if that's still the case after having the run they've had with Tyson Bagent, if they're going to allow Justin Fields to do what he was doing before the injury. But I do think for them, Kmet, I get the ownership going his way, and definitely a nice group of tight ends here up top. But is there anybody after these guys that you're willing to go to? I feel like Jake Ferguson, always a play to consider at the very least when you see chalky ownership going to the Dallas other players. Ferguson getting about 2 red zone targets a game, I would highlight that. Sam Laporta, we know there's upside as well. Any of the guys who aren't top 5, somebody that you actually want to plant a flag for?
Hate to do it, but I got to. David Njoku. So I'm higher on the Browns offense today than most are. I think that you're going to see a much better performance from DTR. I don't think this Pittsburgh defense is any good. And Njoku has established himself as the number 2 weapon in this offense. Again, he's a guy that's more solid than spectacular. Had a monster game last week, though. Was dragging Ravens down the field on their game-winning drive. Really encouraging to see. And it's worth noting that his best game like prior to last week, I believe, came in DTR start. So he had struggled for the first few weeks of the season and then had a good game when DTR started. I think you see that again today. DTR is going to look his way a lot as kind of a short intermediate target. And he's a guy that can make plays, after the catch. So Njoku is a guy I'm willing to take a shot on at 3,900. I don't think he looks nearly as good as the other guys we talked about, but that's why he's only getting 3% ownership.
Yeah, I could see the logic too. And that's something, that's always been a thing with backup tight ends that I try to, remind people of when I'm doing content, but also remind myself of. Backup QBs, a lot of the reasons that they are often backup QBs is that they can't get the ball outside as well, can't hit the boundary receivers quite as well. So you've seen that countless times where the Clayton Tunes of the world target a tight end, the guys, the Josh Dobbs of the world, no disrespect, obviously he's on a hot run right now, but he is a guy that's been targeting tight ends pretty heavily because he just doesn't have the juice to get it outside quite as well. So DTR, if he has any success, could definitely be coming the way of Njoku, could be coming the way of Elijah Moore. Those guys are a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, can make some easy passes, I think, are certainly in play. If we do see DTR have the success that Matt's personally putting his reputation on the line for, you are now officially aligned with the Browns publicly. And if they go wrong, everybody's going to come to you and blame you.
I definitely think the Browns win today. I'm not sure how they perform for DFS purposes. Like, I clearly have some fandom in here, even thinking that DTR is going to play decent after what he showed last time out. Most fifth-round rookies suck. I'm encouraged based on what we knew about him in college, the fact that he has, according to all reports, looked a lot better in practice. But yeah, I'm definitely a fanboy here and hoping and wishing.
I mean, look, he's due for positive regression, if nothing else, the 54% catchable ball rate.
That was an awful spot for him, though. Like, finding out a half hour or 2 hours before the game that you're going to start against the Ravens. Like, I'm not saying that he would have been good anyways. And, maybe I have delusions of grandeur thinking he's going to be good today. I'm just willing to throw out that first start out the window.
No, I think it's reasonable. And again, he's mobile enough that I think it makes sense to try to consider that and maybe some possibility of getting the run. Pittsburgh does defend QB runs pretty well in the air towards the higher end of the league. Positive EPA, 0.04 EPA, but that is in bright red on my sheet. So it's not the best spot. But again, 4,500, take your flyers. I played Tommy DeVito last week in a couple of lineups just in the mini max. So I was like, let's see how this does. And actually, Tommy DeVito allowed me to get CeeDee Lamb and Keenan Allen in the lineup. And actually, that was one of the higher scoring ones I had. So if, God forbid, if Dorian Thompson-Robinson does anything today, maybe he can be a guy that actually helps you build a winning lineup. Let's skip over defenses because we are low on time. Deeper dive coming up at 10 a.m. on the East Coast. QBs, let's hit on them really fast. Highest owned QB play, expect to be Brock Purdy. Not that far behind CJ Stroud. Not that far behind him, Kyler Murray. We are seeing 3 QBs over 10%. Those are the 3. If you had to choose one of the 3, Matt, Purdy, Stroud, Kyler Murray, which one would you favor the most?
I think it's Purdy because of his price point. And this is the first position we've seen that someone else other than a guy from Arizona or Houston's coming in atop the projected ownership. Both the guys on Houston and Arizona are right below him, so it doesn't really matter much. Give me Purdy here. He's in a great spot. You said, you mentioned earlier, San Fran's a huge favorite here. He's been spreading the ball around a lot. It's not the best matchup on paper for San Francisco's run game. Clearly not what Tampa used to be, but still it is a much better spot for Purdy. I think he looks the best there, but I think you can nitpick that. Like, all 3 of them look good and why they're getting ownership. Stroud has been one of the best quarterbacks in real life and fantasy this season. Kyler Murray, we know, has lethal rushing upside, along with really high, just normal quarterback upside. So I understand why those 3 guys are getting most of the ownership. And I really can't pick any holes in them, to be honest.
Yeah, with Purdy too, it is a nice matchup going against Tampa Bay on the year. Tampa Bay, positive EPA, 0.14 EPA on throws of under 20 air yards, positive EPA on throws of plus 20 air yards as well, 0.42. So basically anywhere you attack them, you are going to find production. And I do think for Tampa Bay, they're just the defense, the pass game has been one that's been rife to be attacked over the recent weeks. And you saw CJ Stroud get there. I think if the Niners play like they did last week, Purdy actually could have a nice day. I actually like Stroud the most out of this trio. I just feel like he's going to get incredibly highly owned. And that's the shitty part of it. Like, Stroud's been playing like a monster. Again, passing above expectation. No Noah Brown this week also means that the targets get concentrated a little bit more. And Noah Brown has had a ton of air yards as well as actual production on the year. So that is something that should help out for stacking Stroud. But he's just going to be so highly owned. And again, it might shock you to hear, Matt, I'm actually not going to play a lot of Kyler Murray. I can avoid it. I like the 1 week. I thought he looked good, but I don't want to be there if he's chalk immediately after one good game. People are just too excited for Kyler. It's not me.
No, I get that. Listen, I'm high. We talked about this last week. I'm higher on Kyler than you are. I still think there's going to be plenty of rust and growing pain throughout the season, especially for a team that has no playoff aspirations. So I'm with you here. Like last week, fine taking a shot on him, low ownership. I don't want to go there as chalk.
Yeah, same thing here. Other guys at QB that we could highlight. I know we talked a little bit about Jordan Love. I would plan a minor flag for him under 5% ownership. Tua, we know Tyreek is chalk. We know people are going to force in some Achane or some Mostert, depending on which side of the aisle they're landing on. I think Tua at 7,700, another player that could have big upside, but definitely probably want more than one pass catcher there, I would think. So maybe Hill and Waddle, or at least Hill and a running back to get there. Could be a thin outcome, but I still think playing the team with the highest implied total on the slate and its QB makes sense. Fields, I know, will be a player I get some of. Jared Goff as well will be another. I know we're just kind of naming QBs, but I want to make sure that we actually say these guys' names. And Will Levis at 5,200, I'm probably not going to go back there very much, but if there is success on the Jacksonville side, maybe there will be some on the Tennessee side. So I would say that is my personal DTR. Then Matt, any QBs you want to stump for here to give people one more shot at some unique stacks here before we close out the show?
I'm going to go with two guys, one at the high end, one at the low end. So DTR already spoke about his weapons a little bit. I think he could offer huge upside at 4,500. And then on the other end of the spectrum, a guy that we didn't mention that is getting absolutely no love, actually projected for around the same ownership as DTR, and that's Josh Allen. Not a great spot on paper. You know, if I were making one lineup, probably not the guy that I would build around, but this is the guy that's leading all quarterbacks in fantasy points per game. He's arguably the best fantasy quarterback out there. You've got the squeaky wheel a little bit with the offensive coordinator fired. I think he's worth, again, if you're multi-entering, I think he's worth getting over the field on.
Yeah, Joe Brady is certainly a guy that I had a lot of hope for coming in after what he did at LSU. Maybe it's the Matt Rule of it in Carolina that kept him from reaching the heights he could as a game caller, and also a guy that schematically looked really great in college and didn't look great in the pros. So we'll see what can happen out there. But I agree that Josh Allen, tough with the total going against the Jets, but Josh Allen, certainly we know, said he was personally affected by getting Ken Dorsey to lose his job, basically being the reason why Ken Dorsey got fired. So definitely some game theory logic there, or some news logic, even if there isn't a strong DFS projection on him. Anything else you want to say here, Matt, before we close it out and do the final plugs and yield? Of course, the deeper dive coming up next with the great Loughy and Ben Rasa. We're going to take you guys game by game and dig deep on all of it.
No, I thought it was a great show. I'm a little bit concerned that we're on the exact same page on everything, but such is life.
Such is life here. Of course, make sure to follow Matt at Fantasy Tips Matt. Follow me at Chris Spags. And of course, stay tuned. Coming up next, Loughy and Ben coming up on this one, and they're going to do a great job as they always do. I'll have it on. You guys have it on. Smash the like button before we go, guys. 2,000 people watching, and 2,000 of you are going to have a great time coming up watching the rest of the stream. So we will see you guys again soon. Enjoy your days, and of course, good luck. Bye.
We are back for another edition, a huge edition of the Stochastic Hall of Fame, coming at you hot, fresh off $1 million winner for one of our subs. And man, that is awesome. All you got to do to get involved. Now, he might not need a free sub anytime soon, but you want to get a free sub, $200 value, whether it's NBA, Sims package, everything, NFL, everything, up to $200 for the month. All you got to do, and to get inducted right here in the Stochastic Hall of Fame every single week, download the Stochastic profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar and tweet your wins to us at Stochastic HOF. You finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, you got a free month. Any Stochastic package you want, up to $200. And of course, induction right here in the Hall of Fame. Let's get started. First up, Short Gamer TV. Wow. Or what a Sunday. Wow. Shout out to the Stochastic team and the Sims. Couldn't have done it without them. 1 million. Short Gamer TV took down the Millie yesterday. Obviously a very sharp dude, but utilizing the Stochastic tools, the Sims, all of it comes full circle. It's a beautiful thing. Shout out to Short Gamer TV. That has to be the greatest feeling in the world. $1 million win to kick off the week. Peter Hanley's back on the board. What's up, Peter? Got to get that free month and get to play a lot of NFL tomorrow. $13,000. Look at that three-way chop in the NBA Showdown fadeaway, followed by Maxwell Miller. Got second in the 65K NFL Spike on FanDuel yesterday. Thanks to all of you for helping me become a better DFS player. $3,000 win, second place for Maxwell. And Michael Yamada, multiple mini-mag. I love seeing these because remember, Doesn't matter if you're entering 25-cent, 5-cent contest. Doesn't matter what you win. As long as you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, no matter the contest, you're in. Free month and up here. Minimax takedowns on DraftKings and a 3-way chop for first on Owner's Box. We've been seeing a lot of Owner's Box wins pop up lately. Thankful for the NBA Sims tool as well as the amazing content. Shout out to Michael for 4 takedowns there. Braden, think I'm finally figuring out how to get the word out, Stochastic. Finished second in the Minimax last Sunday at Owner's Box. Again, the tools, especially the Sims, are making a big difference for me this year. Congrats, Braden. And Michael Phillips, Stinger 22, $3,000 win. Sims tool already paying dividends. You love to see it. How about Kevin Cutler? Biggest win so far for me. Thanks to Stochastic and the usual suspects. Haven't even started working with the Sims yet either. Watch out. Let's see that name in lights again. $5,000 for Kevin Cutler yesterday. We keep going. Big ones this week. Brett Shoup, little late posting this one. Another hit due to the awesome Live Before Lock videos. The data is real, my friends. $5K for Brett as well. And Mike Marks, Stochastic Hall of Fame, 3 fire emojis, $250. Second place in the 5K Minimax with Sean Geezy following up 2 in a row. Second out of 36K entries in the 15K Mini. Shout out to the crew as always. Then he had another one. He's up here a lot. Sean's up here a lot. Another Minimax win. Shout out to Stochastic crew for the best tools in the game. $500 takedown there. We go to AJJ or AJ245, one or the other. Just shouting out the guys at Stochastic again. Best tools and best knowledge in the game. It's helped me become a better DFS player. $300 second in the 7.5K Minimax for AJ. With Johnsy, how about this? Took down the Warriors versus Nuggets showdown, $15 stake. Thank you, Stochastic, for the tips. First place out of 11,700 entries. Some chops there, but we're throwing it up anyway because that's a nice $1,700 win. And we round this one out with Trappist Monk. Thanks to Stochastic for the great show on Saturday featuring the sharp NHL minds of Slim Cliffy and Josh. Their insight and advice helped me build some nice lineups, one of which took down the 2K quarter jukebox. Appreciate all you guys putting these in, and congrats to everybody. You've now been inducted in the Hall of Fame. Welcome back if you've been here before. Go collect those free subs. Download the avatar if you don't have it. Use it wherever it is you play. We'll see you back here next week with some more winners.
Famous last words, but I actually really like the slate. My builds came together nicely.
So you have no shot.
Oh no, I'm drawing stone dead. Stone dead.
I don't say that because I don't love you. I say that because
it's true.
Because it's true. Dude, anytime I go into a slate, like I think I've cracked the code.
Ugh.
Just I'm texting you by 1:30.
If we're lucky. It's one of those though, man. I tell you, like, so on The Sims this morning, I'm just like, yes, it worked. Like, not $100 short. I have $100 left over. I'm so happy. We'll say.
No, you should have done what I did with The Sims last week and went, no.
Reject. I did that last week. I rejected them and I was punished.
Dude, people are winning millions. And I'm like, no, I know better. I mean, I think I have it figured out.
Get the Texans out of here. Yeah, not great.
Dak Prescott in the cap. Nah. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Stochastic.com NFL Deeper Dive. Feels great to be back. This will be my last deeper dive for at least the next week. So let's make it worthwhile. It's going to be fun. I can't wait personally to do this show today. Having a newborn.
I was gonna say, what are you talking about? Yeah, okay, show.
While I get to put my AirPod in and listen to you guys and feel left out. Not so much, but The baby's coming. Things are changing.
Congratulations.
Quick. Thanks, man. That'll be number 2, and that'll be it's over.
Mm-hmm. Game over.
I'll catch the snip right away. Yeah.
Yeah, smart.
Which is scary. My brother-in-law like almost fainted when he was doing it. I think he's just being a pansy about it. But that's
you have to report back.
That's a scary thing. My wife's like, "What's the big deal? What's the big deal? What are you talking about? What's the big deal?"
Easy for her to say, obviously.
Yeah. I looked at her, 9 months pregnant. I said, "Look at you. What's the big deal?" You know, I would never do that.
No, you wouldn't.
That'd be a big mistake. But yeah, thanks guys. Appreciate all of you. Yeah, number 2, and that's it. But I don't want my kid to be an only child like Ben. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't want that. Let this be a life lesson.
Happy to have you guys with us. I will say I'm stoked to come in here, and we already got 2,000 people with us. It's those daggone Europe games.
Yeah, Frankfurt, London. There's not like I say there's only 99% sure. There's not like some game in like Croatia today that I don't know about, right? There's just no game. We're good, right?
I think there might be one in Burundi, Ben.
Oh yeah, of course, right in the streets. They should expand to every continent.
Do you think you would ever have like an NFL game in Eritrea?
No, I don't think they're down. They're not down for the cause there, sadly. One day.
Like a North Korean NFL game?
That would also be unlikely, would be the word that comes to mind.
Well, glad you guys are here. Hit that thumb. Look. Can we make a big push? Can we make I mean, I feel good about this. I think 1,000 is just already happening. I'm going to come in with a positive mind. Just straight optimism today, dude. 1,000 likes.
I'm going to call for 2,000. 2,000 likes. No, we're just going to do it today. Today's the day. The show's just going catastrophic, ballistic. I believe in the people. There's only 2,000 people in here. So literally we need every person to hit the like. Every single person listening to this, just do me a favor and hit the like button right now. We'll get it out of the way. Then we'll have more time to talk about some of these money-making stacks.
We'll take 1 single second out of your day. It is Sunday, which means it's time to atone for our sins and hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, all of that stuff. The sinner's in the sin bin today. Like Phil still said, the sin bin atone. That's right, brother. Hit that thumbs up. Get us there. Ben says it, 2,000. Let's go. At the very least, we got to crush 1,000 here on a Sunday morning for week 11. Then we got Thanksgiving football. So we're here. Like it's here already, man. It is here already. But first, let's get through Sunday tomorrow. By the way, Monday Night Football tomorrow, Eagles, Chiefs. A lot going on leading up until Thanksgiving. Hugo with this member for 31 months. Free super chat. Congrats, Loughy. What could go wrong? Yeah, man. Yeah, me being the dad of 2 kids is what could go wrong. I can barely take care of myself. But we'll get there. We'll play it by ear and see what happens. Anyway, we got 11 games, dude. And as always, for real, appreciate you guys being here instead of anywhere else with us on a Sunday morning. Without you guys, we're not doing this. So, yeah, means a lot. 600 likes, we're getting there. All right, so 11 games. Actually, Ben, not as low totals as we've seen on a lot of these. Like Cleveland, Pittsburgh is 33. Obviously, that's low. But how many games have we? I feel like we did 3 or 4 slates in a row where at least half of the games were sub 40.
It's been that way. And it hasn't even just been like a string of outrageous weather. It's just been a string of outrageously bad quarterbacks. And I think some of that's been relieved. Some of those guys have stabilized and turned out to be just standard bad, not historically bad. But man, it is refreshing to see a lot of 40 plus on the totals on the sidebar.
Yeah, look, I don't know how much of it. We went from having bad backup quarterbacks, and now we have Jake Browning, right, for the rest of the year. Obviously not on this slate, but I'm just throwing out another quarterback situation where you take a top 5 and he's gone. You have Dorian Thompson-Robinson. It's not getting any better. It's not getting any better, man. So, yeah.
I mean, it's for some of these teams. We'll get into it. I'll save my thoughts on some of these teams about. Yeah,
let's do it.
Let's dive into it.
We got some, by the way, some great offers we'll talk about today, whether it's Odd Shopper or getting a really strong discount off all of our Sims tools that just took down $1 million for Short Gamer TV, $100,000 for another one of our Sims users in the play action, which I didn't even know you could win that. I thought that was just like fake. I didn't even, I didn't know you could win that. I'm serious, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, talk about, you mentioned Eritrea. You got to beat the whole country in population. Like, there's like 700,000 people in that tournament.
It's 500,000. Another guy took down 10K. We'll talk about the Sims still today, but today is the last day. 20% off all of our NFL pack or NBA. Sims Max, Sims Data. If you wanted to go in with the lower one, it's the same thing. It's just a contest generator. Generates fewer lineups. Maybe your single entry or whatever, 20 max, something like that. Smaller field contest more than anything. But weekly, monthly, all of our packages, no add-ons necessary. You do not need add-ons. You don't need an optimizer. There's nothing like, oh, you got this, but now you need this. Every single tool that we have, including the Sims and the contest generator that, like I said, just took down 1 million for Short Gamer TV, 100K for another user. I saw it in Discord with the play action, 20% off. Today is the last day. Link is in the description and it's in chat if you're looking to get in on that. Let's kick this one off, dude. First game, Chicago and Detroit. Justin Fields is back after a relatively long hiatus there, getting to see old Shepherd University stud Tyson Bagent. 48-point total, though. Detroit coming off a nice win in LA. Close fought, high-scoring game. But also, look, it's Jared Goff at home inside of the dome. We've seen the type of damage that team can do there with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think, it's been quiet for Sam Laporta. I'm calling it now. Big Sam Laporta game today. Big Sam Laporta game incoming, Ben. I know David Montgomery's got this one marked on his calendar. Wouldn't exactly call it a revenge game by any metric, but it is against his former team. We'll start with Chicago, though, because now that Khalil Herbert's activated from the IR and he's expected to play, and Donta Foreman is expected to play, that whole backfield is healthy now. It has been a backfield that we've been able to target, at least from a volume perspective with Foreman. That to me seems unlikely to be the case this week, going up especially against a pretty good run defense for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, definitely not. And then you add in Fields, who we know at times can take a ton of rushing production in his own right. So it's not a good spot for them. It's not a good spot for Chicago in general. It's better than playing outside, of course, but I respect the Lions defense. They should be trailing. They should be throwing. I just don't know. Fields to me is always someone you have to at least consider, particularly in a tournament build, just because he can do things that most quarterbacks can't do. But I'd be lying if I said he was near the top of my list. And honestly, Chicago is one of the teams I have little to no interest in when I look at the whole slate.
Oh, including the passing game. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not really. It's just opportunity cost. Like, we can dive into it and we'll talk about Kmet and some of these guys. But you mentioned there are already even one game in. There might be guys in the same game where I'm like, all right, I know they're not exactly the same, but I want to find the money for Laporta before I click Kmet. Yeah,
I get that for sure. I just know that you're kind of one of those guys that when it comes to Justin Fields is always kind of willing to bite the bullet there in the event that you lose, because you're saying, hey, this guy has the ceiling, right? Like that Washington game, Justin Fields went nuclear alongside DJ Moore, right? And the game before that against Denver. But it was the first 3 games of the season where people were like, nope, I'm out on Justin Fields. You kept playing him. And we saw what happened. So I wasn't sure if you'd have a little bit more interest there in a guy like Fields coming back from that thumb injury, only because it is a 48-point total. Now, they are 8-point dogs, so, a lot of that total's going to the Lions. But I at least have I think it's at least worth talking about Justin Fields in this offense now that he's back, because say what you want about him, like, oh, he's a bust, he's not good. People are either fully on board with Fields or fully off, right? There's really no middle ground with him. He's still 1,000 times better, particularly as a fantasy option, than Tyson Bagent. Like, sure, admirable stand-in for Justin Fields, but it was still a D2 player. Now you've got Fields back, and he does have some weapons in this offense. Hell, Darnell Mooney's essentially minimum salary. So I'm not full fading this Chicago team. I think if they do go behind early, even if it's like a run back here, we've been playing a lot of stacks. Sorry, I'm going in all different directions here, but bear with me. We played a lot of different stacks, and we've seen, like last week, the Millie Maker winning lineup in the 555 and the Spy winning lineup, the 100K to first, was not, there were no run backs. It was just the Dallas stack I think there was actually a secondary stack there, and wasn't it Singletary and Noah Brown?
And the Texans defense, which was an interesting wrinkle. But yeah. So we've seen that all year. We do the podcast on Tuesdays, and we've talked about that kind of, not where you don't want to run back, but you certainly don't need to force one in.
But this game, I have no problem with it. That's what I'm getting at. I don't have an issue. What about, we've seen double tight ends winning a decent amount too. What about Laporta, Kmet type lineups?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is where, we're going to talk about Trey McBride. We're going to talk about Evan. There's just a lot of guys that I want in a similar price range where that build, I'm not sure that it's Kmet for me. But listen, Justin Fields, you mentioned there's pretty much two distinct camps. I'm all the way in on Justin Fields in life. I'm a big fan. I just kind of thought, to be honest, he would be a little cheaper having missed a handful of weeks. I was hoping to get him more in like the Kyler, Trevor Lawrence price point, and I would probably be singing kind of a different tune here. It's not that I'm ruling him out, but I'll be lying. He's behind a lot of quarterbacks for me.
That's fair. I get it. DJ Moore's 5,600. Cole Kmet's 4,100. Darnell Mooney, I think, is like 3,100 or something. 3,300. What I will say is that they are not priced for Justin Fields' return.
That's fair.
That's the way I would put it. I have no problem running back with some of those guys, or even one-offing some Chicago guys. Obviously, on the other side, I like Detroit a lot. I like Jared Goff. Oddly, it's funny, but Chicago's kind of been a pass funnel defense this season. Last year you could do whatever you wanted on them. This season, there have been a lot of pass funnel type games for them, which is funny because their offense has stunk in most of those games. You wouldn't think that'd be the case, but it has been in large part. I love Sam Laporta. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I like Jared Goff this week. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on the backfield, just because you're not exactly getting discounts on Jahmyr Gibbs or David Montgomery. I think both of them are still viable, but that's a tough spot. And there's a lot of ways this could go wrong on both sides. But I do like the passing attack for the Detroit Lions. The only thing is, if you're going Goff, St. Brown, and Laporta, it's not exactly a cheap two-man stack at all.
No, it's definitely not a cheap two-man stack, and in some ways, that's where DJ Moore probably factors in more and more for me. The Lions, it's a tricky team to break down, and in some ways, it's the easiest team to break down because it's just like all their weapons are in play. Yeah, that's really the answer. And when there's enough touchdowns to go around, anyone can get a couple, and they're going to get there. The problem is, as you mentioned, if you don't get those touchdowns, you're priced where it's going to be really difficult to make value and really be an integral part, particularly in large field tournaments. So like I have no issues with going to Gibbs, going to Montgomery, going to St. Brown, going to the stack, any of those. But I also think that if you don't happen to run, pretty good, you could be just having a pretty standard game here. I think St. Brown's my favorite. He seems to always get there. 10 targets plus seems almost like the floor in some regards. Don't like the backfield, but again, it's not for lack of talent or lack of good spot. I just prefer other options.
Jordan, do me a favor real quick and go to I'm looking at our exposures you haven't pulled up. You did a Sims run. Good amount of St. Brown, Goff, 13% Laporta, over the field on him. Do me a favor, go to stack exposure. I want to see what stack exposure looks like on the Detroit Lions today, because my guess is, yeah, okay. So that we have a lot of Jared Goff stacks, Ben. Look at that. 9% one-man stacks, 10% two-man stacks, and then 3% QB +3. That's a good amount of Goff today. A lot.
Yeah. And I get it. Because the nice thing about the Lions, there are multiple permutations of your stack, and I think they're all very reasonable. It's not like, oh, I have to just do this one way. Not at all.
Well, would you be opposed to going running back pass catcher without QB for Detroit?
It's right on the cusp. And when I say right on the cusp, I mean salary-wise. Like you're talking almost 16K if it's Gibbs and St. Brown. That's a little heavy for me. Laporta and Gibbs.
That's what I was thinking.
Is probably, or Montgomery is a little more reasonable for me.
But you're not fully opposed to like a Laporta Gibbs or Laporta Montgomery.
No, like I said, I hate to just sound like a broken record. I'm really not opposed to any way you want to get exposure to the Lions, including just having like a one-off or at that. It's just a very, very high potent offense with so many different weapons.
Without question. Yeah. One of the higher implied totals on the slate. No surprise there whatsoever. I like this game a lot. I'm not the only one. Obviously, it has a 48-point total. You're going to have ownership there. They have a 28-point implied total. It's second on the day, behind only the Miami Dolphins. So, yeah, I'm on board with doing anything in this game. The only thing now I'm still trying to figure out, like, what do I want to do with Justin Fields? Does Justin Fields playing from behind actually be the guy that you want to end up being the guy that you want in a single stack formation or something with DJ Moore or Cole Kmet? Because I think it's entirely possible.
I want to see real quick. I'm just on OddsShopper. I want to look at his prop 1 second real quick. So, yeah, I mean, you're talking about an over-under of passing yards at 200 basically on the dot.
What about rushing yards?
So he has a prop because he's Justin Fields. That's total passing plus rushing out there, and it's 255.5.
Okay.
Just to paint a picture again, I always use again, I use OddsShopper obviously, but like just finding the market real quick just to gauge, okay, what do the books think about this guy? You know, am I picturing 200, 300 yards passing? Seems like 200 is basically where they project.
All right, that's fair. And he could run for 80 and a touchdown.
Yes, he could.
That's what you need from Justin Fields in most cases. Dallas and Carolina, Cowboys laying 10.5 against the Panthers, 42.5-point total. Rico Dowdle's questionable. Maybe that'll give you more Tony. I don't know, man. Hayden Hurst is out for Carolina. Ben's big on Tommy Tremble today. But
of course.
Yeah,
Tommy Tay.
But with Dallas, we saw last week the Dak stacks with Lamb. Pretty much you play anybody from Dallas, you would win last week, except old Tony Pollard. Old Tony just letting us down again, man. 6,600. And I hate to tell you guys, he's not going unowned. You know, he's pulling 13. By the way, this is right where we said he would be. The number we put on Tuesday's First Look show, we said we thought around 13% in large field before we had ownership. And that's what we got him projected at. We have to start here. What are you doing with Tony Pollard today? It's been a disastrous train wreck of a season outside of the first couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah. It's been not good. Talked about this on Tuesday. We're going to talk about it right now. It's been incredibly frustrating. I still think that it's pretty clear he factors in. Is he in a kill spot? Well, obviously he's proven that even when it seems like he's in a kill spot, not so much. And I worry about what happens if they get up again, because like last week, there's a lot of things that I can forgive. Like, okay, you don't score, kind of annoying, whatever. He had no targets. That's really concerning. He's got to have some targets because, yeah, falling in the end zone a couple times will fix everything, but you can't count on that. So what am I doing with Tony Pollard when I land in that range? Yeah, I am considering him. I think he's fine. But at the same time, I think we've seen enough now to know that Tony Pollard definitely has some red flags in this offense. And I'm not sure that that's just going to absolve or relieve itself based on nothing here.
Man, it's funny. I love our chat because you'll get so many differing perspectives. And in this instance, I don't blame any of these differing outlooks. Like you have John Damon Wall saying, I gave up on Pollard. Jeff L said Pollard is the Chikings of goblins. Yeah.
That's correct.
Some of you know what that means. Joel says Hulk smashing Pollard. He has to get here today. David Wells said he's just not it. I can't go back to Pollard. What I mean by this is, how do you? Lance said, "I will die on the Pollard hill." Well, you have an avatar that is the Dallas Cowboys, Lance. But yes, I here's what I'm saying. I don't blame people for going, I can't do it anymore. I'm years off of my life, or he's taking years off my life. And then I also don't blame people for going, like, this team dropping 30, 40 points against bad teams, and he just has to get there eventually. There's not really a right answer outside of kind of what you said. If you're in that range, you get there, you kind of just have to do it.
Well, that's where it's like, it's been a Kafka-esque situation for him where you look, everything is going wrong. And then you look at the scores, they're winning by 30 points. And it's like, is that a positive for him? Is that a negative? What do we want game script wise? Because again, they're double digit favorites. It's a little more competitive than the Giants, I admit. But there's a lot of ways it mirrors what we saw last week.
It does. The only difference is last week he was even more popular and more expensive.
Yeah. But, you know, again, that's where obviously it always helps with the range of outcomes and your paths. But he could be 9,000 or 4,000. If he has a game like last week, you're dead. It doesn't really matter where he's priced.
It's a great point. He could have been minimum salary last week. And yeah. I mean, surely it gets you other expensive guys.
Of course.
I went and I looked at Greg and I do the Sims strategy show. Did I tell you this? We do it every Friday, right? And we run the Sims and we look through the top lineups. So we did it this Friday and I'm like, let me go back. I want to go back and watch some of the show and find like what were our top simmed lineups? Like what did the sim rank as the top lineups? So I go look, and of course, we're all idiots. None of us played this. Nobody watching played this. I didn't play it. Greg didn't play it. The third highest ranked lineup on the sim was 243.3. Would have finished 7th in the big millie. Would have finished first in the small field millie. Would have finished first in like almost every single entry contest, and it had a 4 from Alexander Madison.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, you can see that too, and obviously, depending on what tournament you're playing and whatnot, you can overcome some of those. But I think it's pretty clear you're rostering Tony Pollard. You
want more than 5.
Exactly. Well, that's step 1. We need more than 5. I can guarantee you that. But I don't think there's many ways where it's a price dependent play, if that makes sense. Like he's either going to tap into a ceiling where you're like, I thank God he would have got there at $8,000, or once again, Tony Pollard is rendered useless.
And we haven't had a ceiling game all year. Maybe we did. Maybe 22 points is a ceiling in week 1. I don't know. How are you approaching the passing game? Dallas stacks have crushed the last 2 weeks. They're 10.5-point favorites.
So I think one good news, and I haven't dug in fully, but when I ran my Sims this morning, I wasn't encouraged to take as much of the Cowboy stack as recent weeks where I rejected it and got punished. So I feel good about that because once again, I'm not super high on the Dallas stack. CD Lamb is priced through the roof. He's an elite player. He can get there at any price point, but I didn't find myself trying to make room for him. And that's scary. It really is. So again, good team. We've seen Dak, even in blowouts, rack up yards. We just have to look at last week. But the Cowboys didn't grade out that well for me this week.
Yeah, the other issue is that you have Keenan Allen, it looks like he's going to be fine. No restrictions there. Plus, Jalen, even Jalen Guyton's not expected to play. Like they have nobody left.
Everett's gone.
Gerald Everett, yeah. Palmer, Everett, Williams, Guyton. We'll get to your boy Quentin Johnston in a little bit. we'll get just keep save it. Let me properly tease that. We'll get there. But we have CD Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyreek Hill, Stephon. I mean, that's a tough spot against the Jets. Totally disagree with Sauce Gardner's tweet yesterday. Ketchup on eggs is not insane. It is delicious. Scrambled or on an omelet. Anything else unnecessary, but you're wrong about that. Still, he's a good corner. There are a lot of really good wide receivers. You're going to have to get something right this week. You laid it out great in our podcast exclusive, only found on our podcast platforms, but where you were talking about the whole, like, you can't get that 27 from Jamar Chase on these type of slates like last week and come out alive when you've got CeeDee Lamb and St. Brown and Keenan Allen all going for massive games. Do you think it's wise to just kind of mix these guys in, or are you taking a legitimate stand on the top tier receivers?
I mean, I certainly think it's a little difficult to, more power to you if you're like, I have one in mind and I'm just honing in on him. They're all so talented that any given if Tyreek caught an 80-yard touchdown and went nuclear today, it certainly wouldn't surprise me. And I could say the same about a lot of them. I think for me, it's more about the build in the sense of how much money can I devote to top tier wide receivers? Do I have 18 grand to get 2 of them? Do I have 10 grand to pick my favorite one? Or do I not have any money because I went and got McCaffrey and I paid up elsewhere? I think those are really the 3 tiers for me. Most of my lineups that I have built have one of those guys, whether it's a St. Brown, an Allen, a Hill, Lamb in theory, but he's on the outside looking in for me.
Are you getting anything from the Panthers side?
No.
No, me neither. I don't think I have anything for this week. And now 7,500 for Thielen makes it even more difficult. We just rattled off all of those insanely good receivers. I didn't even mention, Devontae Adams potentially in a negative game script playing from behind. We didn't even mention Cooper Kupp yet. Right? The list goes on and on and on. I think as our friend Adam Scher would say, Thielen sure feels like a casualty of the slate now that he's priced reasonably, or probably overpriced at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I had been to varying degrees of success. It was getting better lately. I had been shorting Thielen pretty aggressively lately, and it's paid off actually. But yeah, he's not going to be. I can't imagine he's the same levels our tools are identifying. This is a bad spot.
So next game up is a really interesting one, because we're talking Raiders, Miami Dolphins, right? Raiders 14-point dogs. I bet I bet the Dolphins at -12. And the reason I did for this, Ben, was the Dolphins have shit on bad teams this year, and they've lost to good teams. If you want to look at this is really amazing. Lost outright to the Chiefs, to the Eagles, to the Bills. Okay. They beat the Chargers in week 1. That was a close-fought game, high-scoring game. We knew it would be. But then look at the games they've covered. They covered against the Chargers. They covered against New England easily. They covered against Denver, obviously, by 50 points. They covered the 13-point spread against the Giants. They covered a 14-point spread against Carolina. They covered a 7.5-point spread against New England. I didn't know that went down to 7.5. I was grabbing it at 9.5, but they won by 14. They've not just beaten bad teams, they've beaten up on bad teams, and they've covered really big numbers. So I'm not surprised it moved to 14. Now, there's a lot of other people out there going, nah, man, Antonio Pierce has changed the culture of this Raiders team. Maybe he has, but listen, if that's the case, I will 100% agree with you after today's game, depending on the results. They don't even need to win. They just need to keep it competitive, okay? Because since he has taken over at head coach, they have faced the New York Giants and the New York Jets, okay? Tommy DeVito and Zach Wilson, the most lifeless offenses in professional football. So, Ben, all I'm saying, you can talk to me about that after they go into Miami and make a ball game of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Both those games were at home as well.
Yeah,
so
yeah, I got so many comments on one of my videos on the Odd Shopper channel, like, man, how can you besmirch the name of Pierce? It's like, I'm not. I'm just telling you they've played shitty teams at home.
Yeah. And listen, for the record, I bet the Jets in the second game. I had no opinion that first one. Not as strong a take. I like the Jets in that spot, and they did not get it done. I will say the jump from what they were dealing with, I was not a fan of the Raiders coach for
we both said it all
reasons.
Season long. He was terrible. Josh McDaniels was terrible.
Terrible. This is a totally different situation. Miami, you just laid it out. Nobody is saying that their problem is that they can't beat teams down. Their problem is when they get to teams that can match them talent-wise, they seem to not be able to have the same effectiveness. I'm not sure that the Raiders fit that mold, particularly down there. So listen, it's pretty clear that Miami's one of the teams implied total-wise you're going to want to try to get some exposure to. I guess the question that I want to pass right back to you is, how do you, is it stacks of Tua? Because it's really expensive. His elite weapons are in fact priced like elite weapons.
It's funny. Greg and I were running Sims on the Friday Sim Strategy show, and we were getting a decent amount of Tua with Waddle and Hill stacks. Granted, you have to make some concessions there. There's no doubt about it. But they didn't look that bad. Now, granted, some of those had Michael Wilson in there, and he's not expected to play today. So we'll have to see. Now, Jordan has it pulled up. Jordan, go to stack exposure. Let's see for ourselves, Ben. Let's see if we're getting Tua double stacks.
Yeah, that's tough. And I get it. There's plenty of 3K wide receiver builds, and there's mid-range running backs.
We're not getting a lot. Yeah, no, I hear you. And we're not getting a lot now. I think that's because a couple of the cheap receivers are not expected to play. Jordan, go to lineups. And then once you do that, you'll go to the right side all the way over where the actual lineups are, okay? And click on those 3 dots. And then filter by Tua. Filter by contains Tua. Lineups is fine. Lineups are fine. So lineup contains Tua. We're going to, can you do it, please? Thank you. So let's see. QB plus 2 is Tyreek Hill and Waddle, DJ Moore, McBride. So yeah, it's like Darrell Henderson and Ty Conklin in there. Right? Cedric Wilson in a Tua. That might not be honestly, that may not be the craziest idea to throw one of your dirt cheap punts as just a stray pass catcher from Miami in large field if you're trying to go QB plus 3. Do you know what I'm saying?
No. What are you saying?
I'm saying that if you were going Tua, Hill, and Waddle, it might not be the worst decision to just take a minimum salary receiver from Miami and make it a QB plus 3 and hope that they go for 50 on the same team.
So you're saying like a Cedric Wilson or someone?
Yeah, one of the lineups that we have in here, scroll up, Jordan, is Cedric Wilson as the third part of that stack. And it's 165 simmed ROI.
I get it, because in a way you almost need to prop Tua up artificially outside Waddle and Hill. I get it, because he's not going to run. There's no chance he's barring something ridiculous. The tricky part for me, and we're going to get there with Arizona and the Chargers, there are basically min-price wide receivers that I just objectively like on the slate. And that's where it gets
I get it.
A little tricky.
Yeah, I get it. I'm just saying if they explode offense, and we've seen them do it, like this team could go for 50 and they don't take their foot off the gas. If that happens and Cedric Wilson has like a 3 for 50 and a touchdown and he's tied to Tua, this is one of those instances where I go, all right, so wait, you're telling me that Wilson allows me to get Hill and Waddle, but it also, if they explode, gives me that attachment because he's tethered to Tua and this whole stack.
Yeah. I mean, the Dolphins have a college football mentality. And what I mean by that is like, there are so many touchdowns to go around. The opportunity cost isn't as great as some other teams when you keep rostering multiple pieces like that.
Yeah, I got you. But I don't fully agree because they still have because we still know that the target share heavily concentrates towards Tyreek Hill first.
Yeah, but it's more of like, for a quarterback and 3 receivers to get there like that, you legitimately have to hope for like 5 or 6 touchdowns, I think.
Yes and no. I mean, yes and no, because Cedric Wilson's so cheap that I don't know if you actually need more, like 4 could probably get you there.
I don't know.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I'm just throwing out ways if you wanted to stack Tua to do it, because it's not easy.
No, it's not easy. I agree with that. And then the tricky part about this is like, oh yeah, don't forget A-Chain and Mostert are just lurking to just absolutely go crazy in their own right.
That's the worst part about all of it.
Yeah.
Yep. Where they had like 8 touchdowns between their running backs in that Denver game. Are you playing A-Chain or Mostert?
Kind of equate them to the Lions backfield. If you told me this is where I want to go, they have the advantages, good game script, high total. Yep, I get it. You have to decipher between the two. If I had to pick, it would be Mostert, but at the same time, you have to decipher between them and like Pollard, ETN, some of these other guys in other roles. And for me, I'm more going outside the Miami backfield than targeting them directly.
All right. I'm still going to try and make some Tua stacks work, but yeah, I'm going to hope for the stacks and hope that the backfield doesn't do it this week. But you know what? That's just a prayer to the football gods. There's no saying one way or another. Like if they want to score points, they can do it on the ground or through the air against bad football teams. And that's just the way it is. I will say on the other side, I don't hate Josh Jacobs because who knows if this game stays close or not, but Aiden O'Connell, when playing from behind, has not hesitated to go to Josh Jacobs in the passing game. Since Pierce took over, they have leaned insanely heavily on Josh Jacobs on the ground. I think he is. I honestly think Josh Jacobs is game script proof. I think the price point is fine. I don't even hate Josh Jacobs being the run back in like, a Tua plus Hill single stack or so. I don't hate that at all this week because I think he's going to be involved and on the field 80+% of snaps one way or another, whether they're tied, whether they're up, which is unlikely, or whether they're down by 17.
Yeah, I get it. That's really what you have to try to decipher is, okay, if the Raiders win, we know, I'd say beyond a shadow of a doubt, this guy's going for 20 plus carries. They will go Pierce has shown 26 and 27 carries. That's an unlikely scenario though. So when they lose, if they're trailing, how many of those carries are deleted and do they translate into targets? Because if they translate into targets, now this guy is game screw proof and you actually probably hope it plays to the spread because I'd rather have 18 carries and 8 targets than 26 carries and no targets. So if you think that's what Josh Jacobs' role is going to be, and I have no reason to discount that, he grades out pretty damn nice. You see right there, it's not a huge exposure in the Sims, but I wouldn't mind a shot or two with him this week.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Favorite way to play this game before we move on. For me, I think I've told you how I'm playing this.
It would be a one-off, not a Miami stack, but just like getting one of the Miami target at a various price point.
How much Devontae Adams do you think you have?
Probably almost none.
Yeah, it's tough. Plus, their secondary's healthy for Miami.
Again, great player. So many guys up there.
Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Cleveland defense, man. They're good. Things got ugly early on last week. Also, Deshaun Watson, that team got put in a hole by their offense, but then they had the pick 6. They stood on their heads in the second half of that game, got a huge win against Baltimore. Cost Deshaun Watson his season, but yeah, I saw that. I thought we kind of answered it. Do you want to answer it real quick?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we did have a couple of super chats. First one, just appreciate it. One of the longtime members here. Just keep up the good work. We will try, my friend. Appreciate that. And we had a question about, given the spread and efficiency of the 2 running backs, do you think A-Chain plus Raheem are viable? I think that's a little much, don't you?
Yeah, you still have Tyreek Hill and Waddle, and like there's still. It'd be different if they were just like a straight run first off. You're saying like in the same lineup.
That's how I'm interpreting.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. I think they're both viable, by themselves for sure. 30-point total today, highest on the slate. I don't want to play them. I don't want to pay that much to have them together. But anyway, the only thing that interests me with Pittsburgh, because listen, man, Kenny Pickett's not very good. That team finds ways to win. It's pretty remarkable. They find ways to win in a tough division. But Pat Freiermuth is minimum salary and he's expected to play. That's my only question to you. Like, do you take shots on a minimum salary Pat Freiermuth? They priced him wrong.
Definitely priced wrong. I think that it's one of those situations. I'm not saying, okay, I'm going to play Freiermuth and now I'm going to build my team. I'm going to build my team. And then if it's like, I love this team and I need someone at that price point, boom, no problem.
Right. You're not prioritizing, but if you go, man, this is a great looking team. I have 2,500, yeah. Then Pat Freiermuth fits.
But it's not the other way around at all.
No, he's getting 5% right now in our ownership projections. That seems about right to me. He's minimum salary. 5.5% seems about right.
Yep. I have no problem with them.
I will say though, and maybe you have some differing opinions here. Like Deontay Johnson's good. He's a great possession guy. He's going to get opportunities. And despite that massive touchdown drought that we saw leading up until a couple of weeks ago, he is still someone that Kenny Pickett looks to in the red zone. But still, this is tough for me. I mean, my favorite play from this entire game is, and I know they're not particularly cheap. My favorite play, I think by a lot, because I have zero faith whatsoever in Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I love what we saw in the preseason. That dude was so lost in the regular. I mean, embarrassingly bad against, I think, the Ravens. But Pittsburgh's defense isn't just a pushover. You can make the argument for Jerome Ford. He's getting around 10%. I get it. They might just lean heavily on him. And if they do, he could get you there. Steelers defense for me, though. I have no problem paying $3,500 for them.
I have no problem with either defense. I know everyone is talking about the drop-off, and I get it. But the Browns defense is no joke. And Kenny Pickett.
I like them both, too.
Yeah, like they're at home. I'm not alone in this. I've seen a lot of this, and that's a little scary, especially coming off yesterday where the whole world was on Oregon State with me. I bet Cleveland. I do think they're going to win the game at home. I like the spot for them, but it's not a good DFS game. The total stands out, not in a good way.
This is lower than your typical preseason total.
Yeah, this is bad. Bad game environment.
It's not good at all. You know also, what is good? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to mention this because for people who watch on Tuesday, naturally, Amari Cooper, who I really like this week, I have come way off him because of the situation, of course.
You're saying Amari Cooper, who you really like, not this week, who you really like.
I liked him on Tuesday. He was one of my favorite targets, and I've come off that because of Watson.
Got you. Anyway, let's keep it rolling here. We got some great games to get to. One more thing, guys. I know many of you are on Owner's Box because many of you have been taking down tournaments over there recently. 38% filled, Ben. 100K kickoff, 20K up top, super flex contest. We don't even have to talk about defenses over there. $500 first match deposit bonus. 38% filled. The overlay's been ridiculous. That's just in their main contest. The other ones are 42, 44, 38, 50% filled. 20K up top. Link in the description and in chat, by the way. Turn your ad blocker off. It'll take, if you have one, it'll take you right there. You still have an hour and you still have what, 2 hours and 12 minutes? And it's 38% filled. It's not going to fill. 20K up top. Drew D took it down the other week, our boy. A few other guys have taken down these showdown slates recently. If you're not on Owner's Box yet, up to $500 first match deposit bonus. I just can't stress enough, though. I can't stress enough the dead money that you get in some of these contests. I can't. I can't stress enough how impactful that is. If you're not there yet, the link's down there in the description and in chat. I got 2,900 filled out of 7,800, Ben, in the main kickoff contest.
Yeah, again, the value speaks for itself. You're just playing against less people, but the prize pool remains the same. So it's a great opportunity. You also can explore, we were talking about run backs. You can run back Justin Fields there, which I think is going to be a fascinating build. Definitely going to explore that.
Will you run back some run first quarterbacks in the super flex spots?
That's what I mean. You could run back with Justin Fields. I love that idea.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Anyway, if you're not there yet, at the very least, check it out. Check it out. Get in on the overlay. Link in the description and chat. Like I said, also, you don't need a promo code if you're trying to get that first match deposit bonus. It might ask. You don't need it. The link will take you there. That's all you need. Owner's Box, 38% right now, man. Yeah, it's at 3,000 out of 7,700, 77. So if you're not there, good time to do so for week 11 for sure. I'd imagine Thanksgiving slate's going to have some overlay as well. All right, let's keep it moving here. We've got the we got what, 4 games down. Arizona and Houston. There are some spots I really like here, man. Just you've got injuries. First of all, DeMarcado out. Not that matters much because once you got Connor back, he was going to be the main guy, just a clear bell cow in that backfield. I said it last week a lot that my whole thought process on this was if Kyler Murray returns, when he does, he'll be 100%. Not saying he won't be rusty, but he'll be 100%. Because there's no reason to bring him back on an otherwise lost season where they're not trying to win games. Well, you know what? He didn't rush for 100 yards, but he had a couple beautiful scrambles. Like his legs were fine in that game. And I saw no concerns whatsoever from Kyler Murray. This game's at 5.5 points. I kind of like the Cardinals side of this one, but Marquise Brown played 100% of snaps last week. Wilson was out there for 89%. He's unlikely to play. Rondell Moore, 65%. Zach Pascal, who would have seen some of those opportunities, he is out as well. So now you're talking like what? Greg Dortch? Who's the other guy? Andre, did they just brought up? They just brought somebody. It's
Basilia?
Yes. Yeah.
Believe me, I didn't just think of that. I'm looking at the thing and I barely got it right. I don't know who that is.
Marquise Brown, though, Rondell Moore, Trey McBride. Hey, man, high total. Houston's playing well, but their defense hasn't exactly just done that the defense has allowed some big game, like to Baker Mayfield recently. Joe Burrow and company made some mistakes, but found ways to put points on the board. If I'm going off the impression, and this has been my thought process since last week, that Kyler Murray's healthy, he might be wildly undersized and can't see over the line, but ultimately big upgrade from what they had before. I don't mind Arizona at all here, dude.
This is probably, besides the Cleveland situation, my biggest change from earlier in the week. The Sims and you, everyone is convinced. I am officially with you here on Arizona.
Well, let's fade them then.
Yeah, well, this is where I said, like, you build with Arizona. Ooh, is it easy? What great builds. They look amazing.
You know, in our real quick, in our top stack tool, just to back up what you were saying there, because this is very relevant. We have the top stack tool, which gives you like the top stack probability, and all of that stuff. I lost it. I wanted to give you the average salary, the average stack salary
So
per team. Arizona is less than 5,400 average salary on an Arizona stack this week.
So valuable for the one-offs that we talked about, and Kyler obviously can move, good game environment. So I get it. He grades that really well, and I've really increased my exposure there. He's a key piece of it today. So I get it, and it's just a great game. We'll get to Singletary. We had a super chat on Singletary. We'll get there in a second, because the other side of the game too. I mean, Houston every week factors in.
Yeah, man. There's a lot here. Somebody's Trip said Connor is cheeks though. I mean, look, Connor's not the most efficient back in the world, but he's $5,700 in a relatively high total game. Not a crazy spread. Murray back under center means this offense should function. I don't hate James Conner, really. I think he's just going to get the large majority of work. Last game was his first game back. I think he just gets worked in more this week than he was last week after being on the IR.
Kind of hope he doesn't. I do agree, though. I just really would prefer Kyler and the offense to generate most of this through the air and not have it be a James Conner game.
Sure. Here's how I'll put it, though. I think McBride, Conner, Marquise Brown, Rondell Moore, Kyler Murray, I think all of them are in play.
They are.
Yeah. And then on the Houston side, we saw Devin Singletary win people tournaments last week, obviously accompanied by Dak Prescott and others, but Singletary will be the guy today with no Dameon Pierce. They're 5.5-point home favorites. Tank Dell, Noah Brown's not expected to play. I don't know if he's officially ruled out yet. I think they said they wanted to get him through warmups. Nico Collins is healthy, but I mean, Tank Dell is still sub 6K. Dalton Schultz is 5K. This whole game to me, this whole game, I really, really like this game.
It's hard not to. You have price points up and down the salary range that really make sense at every position. You've got tight ends in this game that make a lot of sense. You have mid-range receivers. You have dirt cheap receiver. You have quarterbacks. You have Connor. You have Singletary, pay down running backs. What's not to like? It's a really good game environment. He's competing with the likes of some of the guys we already talked about, Ford, and we'll get to some of them else. I think it's fine to divvy it up. Like, to me, I don't have Singletary vastly ahead of a guy like Jerome Ford. I would prefer Singletary over Ford. But yeah, I mean, this is a good spot for him. And 30 carries last week. Where did that come from?
Yeah, I wasn't ready for it. I'll tell you that much.
No, I was in the city, and it was just another reason why I don't go down there. It's just demolition to hear that he had 30 carries in that game. I missed that completely.
Did you hit the super chat of the guys that have been with you guys since 2018?
Briefly, but yeah, shout him out again.
Yeah, no, he just said, been lurking. Love y'all, man. Help keep me sane. Username formerly CM. Yeah, appreciate you, dude. Appreciate that. Thanks for being with us. For those of you guys who've been with us, 5 years? That's 2018. March is when we started. You and I came over from the old fan Vice in August 2018.
That's true. I remember
Yeah.
It was on my birthday.
Was it?
It was. And I was at Del Mar Racetrack.
When's your birthday?
August 22nd.
Okay. Einsteinian, what's up, brother? Morning, fellas. Would it be reasonable to allocate some of my Singletary exposure to Ford? Well, you kind of just answered that one.
Yeah. We were just talking about that, actually. I think that's fine. Don't think you need to go crazy. Yeah.
I think it's fine. My guess is that if Stefanski actually made the decision to start Dorian Thompson-Robinson, they have to have some better game plan than they did last time DTR started. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
Toma, what is your thought process on whether to go one-man stacks, man plus RB? I assume that's just one man plus RB, or two-man stacks. Honestly, for me, it's entirely dependent on the team and the game. Like I'm not just and the slate, yes, but I'm not just running out like a running back plus wide receiver without a quarterback because we've seen it work before. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to do that with certain teams, whether it's salary restrictions, whether it's just the way the team functions. There are certain spots where I'm just not interested in doing that. Like I don't really want to do that with a Tony Pollard and a CeeDee Lamb or something like that. You know, there's certain teams I just don't want to do. Other teams I think it's fine. Single stacks, yeah. Whether it's too expensive to go QB +2, whether it's a super concentrated offense. There's just so many different ways that you could argue for and against those based on the slate and based on the team or the game.
It is totally, and that's where I really think it's important not to like limit yourself of hard and fat, like, oh, I don't do this. Well, sometimes you have, like, that's what the slate calls for. And even with individual players, I mean, I'm fiddling around with builds right now. Just to bring it back very quickly, with Justin Fields, and you like him a lot more than I do, but you know, I have some builds on my screen right now. I might have to go to him in some of these just because of the way it's looking. And I just think you want to be open-minded for what actually makes sense for the given salary constraints based on the news and the information and the tools that we have.
Devin Singletary does feel like the one guy on this slate, though, that you could be really happy you didn't have him at the end of the day.
I mean, we saw that just a couple weeks ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
He was super popular and he had 26 yards rushing.
Yeah. If he's really going to be owned by like a quarter of the field, that I think there are enough kind of cheapish running backs to where I wouldn't hate getting under the field on Singletary, but I understand why he's popular. It's against Arizona. They're home. They're almost touchdown favorites. But man, that's scary. I prefer Tank Dell here. The one that I wanted to ask you about before we move on was Nico Collins, because he's at that weird price point where everyone's just going to go, it's like, okay, Singletary gets me exposure to this offense. Tank Dell, $800 cheaper. He's been awesome. Gets me the exposure I want, and he's been great. Nico Collins, 6,700 is 7% owned.
And I would imagine the large majority of that is with Stroud. So I think the most interesting way to play Nico Collins is the one-off, because everyone is going to stack up Houston. You know, you're going to be peppering those guys. Houston's going to be a super popular one-off with Singletary and with Tank Dell, two of the best plays on the slate. I don't imagine most people are like, all right, I have one opportunity to get a Houston guy outside a different stack. Let me go to Nico Collins, the most expensive of all of them. And I think that's a pretty cool way to build this week.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. It's going to be a lot of that exposure. A lot of that ownership is going to come in on CJ Stroud stacks because people don't want to pay almost 7K for a guy like that when Tank Dell has been crushing, you know, but let's not forget Noah Brown not expected to play. Nico Collins feels like the odd man out on a team that has a high total. We'll see. We'll see. And he's, you know, and he missed last week too. So it's easy to kind of just forget about some of the big games that he had. And he hadn't really been producing big games in the few weeks before he got hurt. Yeah.
Telling you.
Very interesting, man. All right. Good stuff. Last question on this one, because it's a big game. I know you're all in on, for the most part, the Arizona side. What's your favorite overall way to play it then?
It's turned into just a straight Kyler Murray stack +2.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I'm not saying I'm jamming Kyler, but he's up there for most important players in the slate for me now.
I agree. What about run backs? And yes, to your point though, earlier, it is such a cheap stack.
So cheap.
And it's also not a cheap stack where it's like the Ritter stacks or the Dobbs stacks of the past, you know, some of these really cheap stacks that either work or don't work. It's a guy in Kyler Murray who has won tournaments for people. So yeah, it's a cheap stack. And taking Michael Wilson out of the mix makes a difference too. As far as run backs go, are you going to try and plug? I think you have to plug run backs into these type of lineups.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with that because I really respect Houston and it's a close competitive game. So it's price point dependent. I just talked about, I think you can run back Nico Collins. The majority of people are going to run back Tank Dell or Singletary, and I think that makes perfect sense. There's no issue with any of that.
Giants and Washington. Giants 9.5-point dogs. That's held under 10.
Division.
Held on. Well, you mentioned earlier in the week, you're like, I'm good on that. I told you I might throw a little piece on, might lay a little bit, not minus 9.5. No way I'd hit that at 10 or higher, but it's held at 9.5. So yeah, as bad as this Giants team is, single digit spread, I still want nothing with the Giants this week.
No.
The only argument I could make is that Saquon Barkley, if the Giants defense finds a way to hold up, Barkley has 40 opportunities and gets there on pure volume alone. But he's not priced for Tommy DeVito. He's not priced for a terrible offense. He should be probably 6,300 at this point just because of how bad this offense is.
Yeah, I'm just not messing around with the Giants. It's a full slate. If it was Thanksgiving or something, sure, but it's not.
Jordan, do we have any exposure to the Giants? Did you pull that? Let me see if you pulled that up. I want to see in the Sims tool if we have any exposure to the Giants. Would be interesting if we had nothing. By the way, mentioned it at the top of the show, but last week was an exciting week for all of us here because the Sims tool was new this season. And we had one of our users take down $1 million with the Sims. Another one won the play action for 100K with the Sims and a whole lot more. So to commemorate them, this is the last day, but it's 20% off all of our packages. Look, you any of these packages, everything, there's no add-ons necessary, nothing. 20% off, link in the description and chat. You want the week, you want the month, however you want to play it, everything, the entirety of the package, 20% off. Today is the last day. Yeah, do we have any, Jordan, do we have any Giants exposure? We do? What are we getting? All right, so 8% Barkley out of 150 lineups, and then 1% Giants. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's fine. Again, in a portfolio that big, I get it. They're not anywhere close to my lineups. You know, as more of like a 3, a 5, a 10 entry type max situation for those type of tournaments.
What about the Commanders backfield? Brian Robinson with Antonio Gibson not expected to play.
Yeah, so last week, there's always like weird outlier things. One of them certainly when I clicked into that box score and I'm like, wait, what? First of all, I'm like, oh, Bijan finally did something. No, that's Brian Robinson.
And he did it all through the air.
Yeah, well, I'm like, oh, 6 for 119. What is going on here? So it was a weird situation because he only had 8 carries, but this should be a more, I'd say, streamlined game script. Like they're at home. They should lean on the run, maybe picks up some targets. That would be great for him. He's another back that I think you're saying, is it Singletary, is it Ford, or is it Robinson?
Yeah.
I have him in the pool. I think he's fine.
I think let me see just where ownership is coming in on all of these guys. Singletary, Robinson. Singletary, we have at 25.5% in the ownership projections. Robinson at around 14.
Yep.
We have Ford around 10. I think I'd probably put Robinson 1.
He's someone I definitely like him. I also just a quick shout out to Odd Chopper again. If you're looking for betting content, go check out Odd Chopper. Everything there. Anytime touchdown prop for a guy like Robinson, I think is in play today. You shop that line, you find discrepancies. I think that grades out pretty damn well. I expect him to find the end zone today.
Okay. I just don't know how the Giants stay on the field. And with that in mind, like even if the Commanders are successful through the air, because I like Terry McLaurin today. I think I don't hate the passing game. I don't envision myself with a lot of stacks, but Terry McLaurin's at what, 10%, 5,800. Dotson's at 2%, 5,100. I don't mind getting a little bit of those guys in my lineups at all. But with Robinson, you just have to think that they've got to lean heavily on it. They don't have to. You could just see maybe they do the same thing Dak did last week. And the only guy that doesn't do shit is Tony Pollard or Brian Robinson, and they just decimate them through the air. But at that specific price point, 9.5 point. I mean, the Commanders is 9.5 point favorites, 5,800. And again, just the underlying idea that Tommy DeVito is your quarterback, how do they sustain drives? You'd think the volume has to be there. And really all I can play for here is the volume.
Yeah. And when you talk about volume, it's kind of a blanket statement. That's why it's tricky to just be like, oh, I'm playing him for the volume, because it's like, yeah, I get it. It gives you chances and opportunities, but there's such low quality chances, particularly at who you're talking about. If you're going to the Giants side, much better on the Washington side.
By the way, man, almost 900 likes. We have over 3,600 people watching
this. And we're just going to see in one swoop, 1,100 people at once are just going to go, oh, I didn't. Okay, let me just press this button. And it's just going to go from 900 to 2,000 in one update. I still believe we're going to cash the 1 in a million, 2,000 likes for a show.
Where did this optimism come from?
Because, well, it's gonna get dark later after these lineups don't come through. I just really like my build. Woke up refreshed. You know, got a bunch of hate tweets for Oregon State losing. I'm just in the zone. You know how it is.
Dude, it's gonna be like 2:00 in the afternoon. We're gonna hit 2,000 on the dot, and you're just gonna come back into the stream and hit the thumbs down to get us to 1999.
Sounds about right.
Just as a spiteful action towards your own self at this point, you know, just a punishment.
Yeah, no, I've been known to do things like that.
But take 1 single second. I hit that thumbs up for us, guys.
Hey, see, we're already over 1,000. It's gonna happen.
1,500, I think, is viable. But dude, we have like 25.
That's not
minutes.
viable. It's 2,000 or bust.
Okay, so it's Tony Pollard basically.
Yeah, this is the decimal like situation. It's all or nothing for us. It's a Tony Pollard. You're right.
How are you playing the rest of the Commanders today?
McLaurin is McLaurin. If you want to go a different direction, you know, I still believe that him and Dotson on the outside are fine. I'm not getting to the, maybe you are, I'm not really getting to the Howell stack just because I think there's other pay down quarterbacks. And then you look at a guy, even like Curtis Samuel, who's been banged up and it looks like he's good to go. My biggest problem is how many other 3K wide receivers are we going to mention during this show?
It's a great point. By the way, I was on Odd Shopper and it's gone now. I went to grab it while you were talking. We had a massively high rated Justin Fields prop, over 8.5 rushing attempts.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Oh, I loved it. And I went to grab it. It was on Caesars. I went to grab it. And by the time I got there, they pulled it or they adjusted it. That's the thing with market-based betting, as amazing it is as it is. You got to be quick sometimes.
It's a blessing and a curse. You got to be quick, but there's always more. Like the market's
I'm not saying you can't find good. I'm saying like the best ones where it's like, holy shit, that's bad. Yeah. You gotta get there fast.
You gotta move.
I got a couple others that we'll get to, by the way. Some really good props. For those of you that are into the whole prop thing, sometimes betting can make up for a real bad day in DFS. Because in DFS, you can not, I'm not saying say zero out, but you can have some bad weeks. Betting has propped up some bad DFS weeks for me, for sure, dude. Just using the Odd Shopper tool, getting in on that every week.
It also helps where I have there are days where I look at my lineups right before 1 o'clock. I'm like, I wanted to get more exposure to this specific player and I couldn't, but I'm going to bet the over on his prop, knowing that if he really goes crazy, okay, I get some monetary value from that. And if he doesn't, my lineups are in a little bet. It's not just a pure hedge. It's just another way to get your dollars down in advantageous positions.
For sure. Or if like you have him in just the wrong lineups and those lineups don't do well
every week. So.
Right. But you're still winning on the props is what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Tennessee, Kansas City. Will Levis. I mean, last week was
Jacksonville.
What did I say?
You said Kansas City.
That's an odd one.
Yeah, I know.
Huh.
I don't know where you're going with that. That's okay.
Tennessee, Jacksonville. Will Levis last week, not great. Not great. 6.5 point dog. This is held at 6.5. I kind of thought that Jacksonville was gonna at least hit 7. I really did. But Mike Vrabel is a dog. You know how that works. Jacksonville coming off a dreadful performance against San Francisco, dude. Ooh, that was bad. Earlier in the week, we were actually getting a lot of Trevor Lawrence in the Sims tool, 3-mans too, because they're not expensive. Ridley's been bad lately. Kirk's like 6,100 or whatever it is. He's below 6K. Evan Ingram's not expensive. Tennessee, despite not allowing a ton of passing touchdowns, they're still a team that you want to target through the air. Jacksonville coming off a bad loss at home. I do kind of like the Jags this week. You liked ETN when we talked. I like the passing game more. What are you doing with both sides of this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee, is always going to have a couple interesting pieces, whether you want to roll the dice on a big boom bust with Derrick Henry. It hasn't been good. I have no indication that it's suddenly going to turn, but I still believe he's got that upside. I'm more interested in the Jacksonville side. I have some Lawrence stacks. I have ETN. I have some Jags defense. I peppered Jacksonville within my lineups. I think there's a lot of ways you can go. Played them last week, and it can't go any worse than that. But I actually think there's a good buy low spot on Jacksonville.
Yeah, it actually can't get any worse than
that. No, it actually can't get worse. I can assure you. As someone that had those stacks, it can't go worse than that.
That was not hyperbole by any stretch of the imagination.
Nope. No, that was a true. I was on the train, just really taking it all in, saying it can't get lower than this for looking at these lineups. So it's going to be better this week for the Jags.
We just had our Jags exposure up there on the 150 star favorited lineups, and I'm not surprised. Like a good amount of Jacksonville Trevor Lawrence stacks, but most of them are QB +2 and QB +3. When you have the pass catchers as inexpensive as they are, it just makes more sense to have the doubles and some of the triples than it does the singles. You know what I mean?
100%.
Plus this team, I generally, and I'm glad I'm seeing this exposure because it kind of confirms my biases. I generally stay away from single stacks with Jacksonville because they spread the ball out too much.
It's not concentrated, a lot of good weapons. And it is, as Chad is pointing out, of course, it's an infinitely better matchup.
Oh my God, yeah. Than last week? Yeah. Well, you just took some shots knowing that, like, if that hits, no one's playing that.
And the Niners are amazing, but they hadn't exactly been invincible in recent weeks. So, yeah,
they came back to life, to say the least.
They're so good at times.
What are you doing with the Titans?
Not much. Again, I think you can sprinkle if you want to take some shots in a large field with like Derrick Henry or a Hopkins. Don't have Levis. Not going to spend a ton of time on them.
Me neither. I know Derrick Henry's history against the Jaguars is eye-popping, but it's a different Derrick Henry. It's a different Tennessee Titans, and it's a different Jacksonville Jaguars. I really just, honestly, Ben, I just don't know how much I want to read into his past production against Jacksonville, despite how good it's been.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, he's a great player, and I still think he has that gear, but it's very difficult to know if that's going to be once a year, 3 times a year, and if it's going to be this week at all.
Chargers and Green Bay. Real quick, with DeAndre Hopkins. Just last week was a big disappointment. He was relatively popular. You'd think that he would have produced more, especially with them playing from behind. It never materialized. Thoughts on going back to Hopkins this week?
Kind of indifferent. I think the price point is more than reasonable. If I land there, I'm okay, but no, it's not my preferred. He would be my preferred run back if I wanted one for my Jag stacks, but I don't think you need one.
Chargers and Green Bay. All right, so I figure some of your values coming from here. Keenan Allen's expected to play and not to have any limitations, but obviously Mike Williams and Palmer are on the IR, but now Jalen Guyton's doubtful. They just brought him back, and Gerald Everett's out as well. I mean, this team, dude, they're thinning out. They are really thinning out. Surely you have Justin Herbert and Eckler and Keenan Allen. You still have your top guys outside of Mike Williams. But how do we play? I mean, let's start with Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler and work our way down to some of these tertiary guys that we probably would never have been talking about otherwise.
Yeah, it's a dangerous game in a good way. You've got Eckler and Keenan Allen. Not going to push back on anyone paying the money for them. If I had to pay for one, it would be Keenan Allen. Just kind of prefer him, but I get it. I think that's too rich to have both of them. I'll get to that right now. I'm not going to do that. I get how good they are. You consolidate a lot, but for me, that's not how I wanted to build. And then the Chargers, it's not just 2 guys, in my opinion. There's 2 alphas, but they have other players that I think make a lot of sense in this spot.
How heavy are you going to be on these guys?
So because of Arizona, not super heavy where I think you need to jam them, but Parham and Quentin Johnson, who everybody's waiting for, including me, showed a little minor talk about nowhere to go but up. finally had a touchdown. He still only had 4 targets. I still think that this guy has it and he's going to be okay. I'm not writing him off by any stretch. And this is a good spot for him. So I have both of them in lineups. I think you can do a lot. You can mix and match. You know what you're getting into, but they're good price points for me to target.
Absolutely. We had Raul asked, how about Kirk at wide receiver? No, yeah, I like Jacksonville pass catchers. I think you can pick your poison there for sure. Between the 3 for me. I think I have less interest in Travis Etienne than you do, but I still don't mind him. He's just a big volume guy. And, you know, after what we saw early in the season from Tank Bigsby getting some goal line work and worked in a little bit, it's Travis Etienne's backfield. You know, it has been. So
and last
it has
week,
been. Yeah.
Doesn't mean anything. Like he was phased out of the game.
Quickly. Yeah, quickly. Oh, you're saying what? Last week against the Niners?
That's what I mean. Like that's not an indication anything's wrong.
Means nothing whatsoever. I mean, look, if one game was a representation of everyone's value going forward, there'd be very few teams you could play at this point.
Oh, yeah, it'd be over.
Yeah. So if you were to let me kind of break this down in a way that in simpler terms that makes more sense for the 3,800 people watching with us. Shout out to you guys. Thank God, get these Europe games out of here, you know?
Is that? They heard there was a stream that was going to hit 2,000 likes, and they were like, "I gotta see what's going on this stream." So appreciate.
Let me ask you this: Keenan Allen, how are you ranking him among not wide receivers because that's whatever among the other high-priced wide receivers? That's where it gets difficult.
That is where it gets difficult. These are, I truly believe, coin flips, and I think the Sims kind of confirmed that all these guys are peppering in and out. I prefer St. Brown. Just kind of a gut feel, I guess you could call it. Right. But I have him, Keenan Allen, and Tyreek. Of the big time guys, those are the 1, 2, and 3 for me.
Okay. And then Austin Eckler, as he compares to the other running backs up there.
The difference is it's not the same because Austin Eckler is $1,400 more expensive than ETN, and he's $700 cheaper than McCaffrey. Yeah. There are no pivots.
He's on an island.
He's an island price. So it didn't really fit the build as much. I went and got McCaffrey a little before I got Eckler.
Okay, and then last thing here. This is why you tune into the deeper dive, friends. We try and get granular for you, make it so it's not just, well, there's nothing worse than every show where it's in shows. This isn't even anyone specific, but you know it's out there where it's just every game, you just list the name of every player and say that they're viable. And then at the end of the show, you're sitting there going, fuck did I just watch? Like, they just told me to play everybody.
And then they victory lap it.
Well, that, yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, I'm sure there are goblins out there that do that, but.
That is the best. Yeah. Yeah. Here we talked about this guy, said he could be a good play today. He's not bad. It's just everyone else. How do you prioritize then Quentin Johnston and Donald Parham among the cheap wide receiver? Really, forget about cheap wide receivers and tight ends separate because there is a flex spot. I'm talking cheap pass catchers, punt options down there. How do you prioritize these guys?
Yeah, I think part of it is stack dependent. These are going to be more one-offs just because I didn't get to Herbert. But they're there. I'm very comfortable. Parham, again, he's a different position, so it's a little easier. Quentin Johnston's not Rondell Moore in terms of price, so it's a little different. You're talking about him versus like JSN more than anyone else, but I really would like some exposure to them because if Eckler doesn't break the slate and Keenan Allen does, it's hard to imagine somebody on this Chargers team isn't busy. And if it's not the elite guys, these guys have even a higher chance to get there.
Green Bay, I'll go back to Aaron Jones. I'll go back to the Aaron Jones well, Ben. I have no problem with it. Look, it's not really a matter of opinion. He's good. And I know the last couple of weeks, you haven't seen a lot of efficiency on the ground. The Chargers just got tagged for 200 rushing yards last week, though. You know, between Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, it's not apples to apples. I'm fully aware of that, right? They have a better offensive line. They have a fully functioning offense and a good quarterback in Detroit. I get it all. But Aaron Jones is an explosive playmaker. He can do a lot through the air. He's just good. And while Dylan might, siphon opportunities, I think Aaron Jones still has the 20 touch upside. We saw 19 looks last week, but in his first game back after, in his first game back, I'm saying fully healthy, because we knew those previous weeks that they were just like kind of bring him along slowly. In his first game back, where Matt LaFleur said it's all systems go, he had 26 looks and 24 touches. I think there's still upside for a lot of that. It's 6,200 at home against the Chargers run defense that I think does have some weaknesses. I have no problems getting to a good amount of Aaron Jones. I like him quite a bit today. And I think, one of those 2 touchdown games pops off, you're going to really hope that you have Aaron Jones today.
Yeah, I have some exposure to him. No problem. This is this feels like the Packers have issues, but there's a 3-point spread and a decent total. This is a competitive, good game.
Hold on a second. I mean, how many times have you and me said this? That games where it seems like the Chargers should just be big favorites or should blow them out, they allow teams to stay competitive.
Of course. That's what the Chargers do. That's the Chargers. Like, this game's going to overtime. We know that. It's going to overtime. It doesn't really matter how we get there. They will be playing.
Goes to overtime. Brandon Staley goes for it on his own 25 on 4th down, runs an insane play. They don't get there.
Yeah.
Packers miss the 35-yard field goal. Game ends in a tie.
Yeah, that sums it up pretty nicely.
Hey, in all seriousness, though, what are you doing with the? I'm basically just Aaron Jones today.
Yeah, more and more with pay down wide receivers emerging, I think that the necessity to get to a Reed or a Dobbs, it becomes less important. It doesn't mean you can just throw them away. Even Christian Watson, I still think he's a talented player, but these are large field tournament plays. I don't have love in the pool. That's about all I got. Aaron Jones, my favorite Packer.
Okay. Carl said, as a Chargers fan, stop.
I respect that. Chargers fans are good people, but man.
Yeah, but he knows we're not wrong. Tampa Bay, look, hey, the Chargers are always fun to watch. It's just brutal the amount of games you guys should win that don't.
They're just wasting. Like Herbert. Derwin James is like the most underrated. I'm a huge Derwin James guy. I just wish they were better.
Yeah. But respect, Carl. Plus, Chargers have some great plays today. This game for me, it's Jones and then it's Allen. I'll dip my toes into the Quentin Johnston and Parham well with you, Ben. I'll do it.
Live a little.
I'll dip my toes into those waters. Why not? Tampa Bay and San Francisco. Do you have it? Are you going back to Rachaad White, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Cade Otton? 12-point dogs today in San Francisco. This is truly a tough spot for Tampa Bay, man.
It really is a tough spot. Again, this is why the slate is so important. I think on a slate starved with value, Rachaad White's volume would really help him here. Singletary, Ford, Robinson, volume's there for those guys, and they're in better matchups. So it pushes White out of a core play for me and someone that I'm really interested in. And San Francisco's just a machine at times. We saw last week. I don't have much to say about the box.
I'm off of Tampa. I mean, look, if you're playing a ton of lineups, if you're max, you're going to get probably a little bit of Rachaad White. You know what I mean? Maybe a little bit of Mike Evans. He's still great, but it's a tough team to want to get heavy exposure to. And as you pointed out, just a lot of good low-priced running backs. I shouldn't say good. A lot of low-priced running backs in good high-volume spots to where White just doesn't appear as appealing as he would, where he's one of the only 2 or 3 guys that you can get who might have 20 looks.
Exactly. It's all about the slate as a whole. And because of those reasons, not sure how. That's a tough call to make right now.
I mean, would you rather have Rachaad White at 6K or Aaron Jones at 62 at home against the Chargers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of those. I would bet that Rachaad White beats Aaron Jones the majority of the time, but when he does, it's by like 2 points, and when Aaron Jones beats him, it's by 20 points. There's no ceiling to me with White.
Honestly, I'll tell you this much: there are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 guys that are within $300 of him, whether you go down to 57 or up to 63. Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, James Cook, Brian Robinson, and James Conner. I honestly think I'd rather have everyone but James Cook in that price range ahead of Rachaad White today.
Yeah. And I get it.
Including Derrick Henry at 6,300. And for what it's worth, I think Derrick Henry at 6,300 is perfectly fine. I have no issues with that. I just don't love him. McCaffrey's a great play today. It's just, he's really expensive. If you do that, you're going to be foregoing. Doesn't mean you can't play one top receiver, but you're definitely sacrificing stuff elsewhere. There's no doubt about it. But he is in a good spot as a 12-point home favorite.
That opportunity cost is always big when you allocate that type of salary, but you're also saying like, okay, raw points wise, he can do stuff that it doesn't really matter. And there's plenty of value. It's not difficult to play McCaffrey. It's difficult to play him and still get to the St. Brown range. And that's more important, I think.
All right. What else are you doing in San Francisco?
Nothing. Listen, again, Kittle to Debo to Ayuk to Purdy. They got weapons all over the place. They're just kind of in no man's land on this slate for me. If I was building a million teams, sure, they're a big favorite at home, but I don't really love the spot for them. The Sims didn't give me a ton of them, and I'm fine with that.
This next game, I feel like I've switched up my thinking a little bit from earlier in the week. Earlier in the week, first of all, from a DFS standpoint, maybe not. I think Buffalo could come in and just beat the brakes off of them. I know Josh Allen has struggled against the Jets. Honestly, I bet the Jets a lot of games and unders on Josh Allen when he's facing them. He's struggled against this defense. He really has, But one thing that you and I have learned, and kind of the hard way for both of us over the past month or so, is that no matter how good the Jets offense is, if their defense is, if their offense can't generate anything, it's a war of attrition. And eventually they just end up giving up just enough points not to cover, just enough points for it to be a disgusting game, and just enough points to look like the Jets defense isn't elite, even though they are, but they're just constantly on the field.
Under a ton of pressure, it makes it very, very difficult. Buffalo, I mean, I know the confidence isn't sky high. I think on the betting market, they'll probably be a pretty good teaser piece if people are crossing. I don't have a lot to say about the Jets, though. Wilson and Breece Hall do their part. Garrett Wilson, not Zach. And it's still an uphill battle in Buffalo, even though Buffalo's got serious issues in their own right.
The only reason I don't hate Garrett Wilson is because he's sub 10% owned, and he's a double-digit target guy every week. I mean, yeah, there's a 30% target share guy. Buffalo's secondary is banged up. I think the Jets offense could still sputter, and Garrett Wilson could finish. If he had a 7 for 120 and a touchdown at 6,400, I'd be happy with it. That's in the cards today. That's in play.
It's definitely in play. It's just, again,
the offense sucks.
The offense sucks, and the touchdown equity is just not really there.
So I do like Buffalo. And by the way, I talk about, Ken, what a scapegoat. That's.
Yeah, he shouldn't have called 12 men on the field on a field goal as if that's his call to make. But
yeah, or Gabe Davis shouldn't have dropped that. Gabe Davis shouldn't have dropped that easy ball. James Cook shouldn't have fumbled early in. How many could we go over where to be blamed on the offensive coordinator is asinine? But that's just the way it is these days. You fire your offensive coordinator before you make wholesale changes,
That's legitimately what happens.
But just zero faith in the Jets off. I don't love the Bills offense today, though. The truth is, if we're not going to blame Ken Dorsey, then it's, is it just endemic to this whole offense? And if
they got issues.
But if that's the case, then do we really want to load up on them against the Jets?
I don't. The Jets have a lot of serious issues. They're still a really good defense, though. They're doing the best they can. And I definitely think that you have to respect that. Now, it's always a delicate balance. Not going to be as popular as Buffalo at home would normally be because the Jets are on the other side. I still think that's not my favorite spot. Like Diggs, of all those receivers at the top, I would really assume that Diggs will not be the most popular. And I think kind of looking at our ownership and whatnot, that kind of confirms that.
My favorite spot from this game, it's probably Garrett Wilson and then Kincaid after that, just one-offs.
That's fine. I have a little Jets defense, and it's not because I want to. They fell into some lineups.
Pulling up Odd Shopper here. Oh, wow. Highest ranked, highest graded in the Odd Shopper rating, and one of the highest EV plays is actually a Brian Robinson receiving yards prop over right now at 15.5.
Good.
Yeah. It's on PointsBet, though. They don't really allow people to bet on PointsBet. That's the problem.
But sometimes with a bet that has a lot of value, when you're on Odd Shopper, again, can always see the tutorials. If you click to see what other books are having this prop, it could be more than one book that grades it out as profitable. You know what I mean? I do that sometimes. It's like, oh shit, I can't.
I hit the drop down on every single one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. By the way, guys, we've been talking about prop betting and all of this stuff, and not just betting, but everything from the parlay tool to the fantasy optimizers, prize picks, underdog, sleeper, everything, right? All of our market-based premium betting tools plus EV tool. I mean, it is the way to bet, quite frankly, market-based betting. You're taking a sharp book and you're finding all of the books, or, one for this, one for that. And you're finding the discrepancies in the bad lines, in the bad odds, and you're picking them off one by one. Tried and true, proven approach. The pro bettors are using this approach. We use it every single day. If you wanted to check it out and you're like, yeah, but I'm not huge into sports betting right now, or, I haven't gotten into the mix yet. I'm not on enough sports books, because you want to be on a bunch of books when you're doing this to not only get the best promos, but more importantly, to make sure you're getting the best odds. We have, I think, probably the best promo we have going out of anything we're doing right now with BetMGM right now, Ben.
It's huge because it's just something for everyone. That's the way I've been describing it. I had a lot of questions about it because you're getting kind of the best of both worlds. You're getting access to OddsSharper Premium. You're getting in the Discord for a couple months, and you can tell them all the details. And you're also getting, of course, the benefits of what BetMGM is offering. So great time of my favorite time of the year is coming up. Thanksgiving, great college football, great NFL, great NBA, NHL. Like, if there was ever a time to get busy and get active with the bankroll, it's right now.
Well, yeah. And with OddsSharper Premium, we have golf, tennis, EPL, UFC, NHL, college football, college basketball, NBA, NFL, baseball, and it's everything. Plus EV bets, market-based for everything, plus the parlay builder. Sign up on BetMGM. Links in the description and in chat. Minimum $10 deposit. That's it. Place a $10 bet on anything. Win or lose after that settles, BetMGM is going to hit you up. You're getting 2 free months of the Premium Insider Access Discord. That's Ben's picks. That's Eric's. It's all of our guys, all of the picks, plus 1 free month, entire free month, $99 value to OddsSharper Premium, the tool that we've got up on the screen. Every single thing included on this. If you haven't been there yet, guys, you will love it. The entire month is 100% free, plus 2 free months of the Premium Insider Access Discord. And at BetMGM, up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. That's huge. Just a massive deal we've got going. We usually only talk about it on the OddsSharper side, but like Ben said, with a million sports happening right now, with us betting every day ourselves and bringing this up, figured no better time to do it than now. Link in the description and in chat. I don't know if you need to turn an ad block off. You can tell me, but one way or another, awesome deal. Check these tools out. Get them for free. Minimum deposit, $10. Must be 21 years or older to gamble. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Is it 18 or 21 on BetMGM?
21.
21. Yeah, 21. All right. Ready to close this out with Seattle and the Rams? We'll turn it over to Eric and Gajewski.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm interested to see how we get 800 likes in 90 seconds. This is going to be fascinating.
We have almost 4,000. So if nothing else, shout out to the people for hanging with us on Sunday.
This is a damn good effort.
I told you we weren't getting. I mean, you were absurd.
You know what?
1,400 is viable.
Sometimes you got to believe.
But I didn't. This isn't Christmas. We're not talking Santa here. We're talking real life. 1,400? No, 15. Fuck it. 1,500. We need.
It's gonna go to 2,000, and I'm gonna just jump off the balcony here. Victory in that bank.
There's 200 people out of the 4,000 watching that are kind enough to take a second out of the day and say, you know what? I'll get these guys there. I'm gonna do it. We'll get to 1,500. I'll lower the bar a little bit. Screw it.
Fascinating sweat. Go ahead.
Seattle. Tyler Lockett's got that hammy. Are you worried at all about that? Because in the event that you were, he's expected to play. But in the event that you're like, he's going to play, but I'm a little worried, DK Metcalf would be pretty phenomenal option against the Rams today. 46.5 point total is very high.
Yeah, I think that it looks like he's trending to play. It's Tyler Lockett. He's a veteran. He's done this before. But it does, I think, make maybe JSN a little more unknown. I think Metcalf is fine no matter what. And this is a good game to target. I have some Geno, and you can pepper these receivers. Kenneth Walker, we talked about it. If you held on and believed, kind of got bailed out on a big-time play, but the volume increased. So Seattle's a good team to target today in a competitive game against the Rams.
We weren't wrong about Kenneth Walker. I mean,
no.
forget about snap counts there because they can be super misleading when it comes to running backs. You know what I mean? He had 19 carries and his one reception went for 64-yard touchdown. So he got bailed out by the big catch and run, like you said, but he had almost 20 carries on the ground as well. I think I'll go back to Metcalf, Ben. I think that's, I'm going to keep doing it. It hasn't exactly panned out for me in a big way. Last week, he didn't kill you, but you needed the other top tier receivers. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't that Metcalf was terrible. It's just he needed to be amazing. But his targets, man, the last 4 games outside of that Baltimore one, which really doesn't even count, 10, 14, and 12. He's sub 7K on the road in a tight spread. I still think DK Metcalf's a nice option today.
I have no issues with it. It's DK Metcalf, elite receiver, and maybe the target share consolidates a little more based on what we talked about. So, yeah, price is right as well.
All right. Anything else for the Seattle Seahawks here that you want to talk about?
Not really.
All right. I wasn't sure if you're getting the $4,300 JSN.
So again, I think Lockett muddies those waters. So does Quentin Johnston. JSN, I think is fine for Geno stacks, but he's not my favorite option on the slate by any stretch.
Let's wrap it up with the Rams. Then we got Eric and Matt. So Matthew Stafford's back. You know, the problem is even when he was healthy this year and Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp were putting up huge games, none of them were big Matthew Stafford games.
No, it's been tough.
So what are we doing with the pass catchers? And what are we doing with the backfield with Kyren Williams still on the IR?
Yeah, I mean, again, there are so many of those backs in that mid-range that I think you at least have to consider it. When you look at this Rams backfield, where do we have him? Henderson at 8.5% right now. I get it. But this is a team I'm pretty indifferent to. I'm not stacking them. If you want to go to Kupp or someone like that and be different, more power to you. Not as secure as some of the other elite receivers, but I still think ceiling is intact for them. So it would really be limited to a one-off with one of the Rams' main playmakers.
Danny asks, he's not a member here, but we'll do it anyway because I feel like being nice. You can join, by the way, down below since Chris Williams isn't here to just spam gift thousands of memberships. Or who's the other one? Is it Jorge that always? Who's the other one that always gifts a ton of memberships?
Yeah, Jorge.
Jorge, yeah. Since they're not here to do their thing, you can always do that down below. Get the free super chats each month, the custom emojis, the sweet badges, all that good stuff. So favorite under 36 receiver with Guyton out.
Rondell Moore.
Okay. Should we be looking at some cheap tight ends in the same conversation though?
Well, Parham.
Yeah, I'm just saying if it's a flex spot, I don't think we should just look receivers there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can do that.
Final thoughts on the Rams before we get out of here? I don't really have much on the Rams today.
No. I don't either, to be honest.
Cooper Kupp at 8,100. I think 13% is actually more owned than I thought he'd be. That's the only downside. I thought he'd be lower owned than that with all the other top tier receivers.
So did I, to be honest. Yeah, I leave it at that. I didn't have a ton of exposure to him to begin with, but that's not. I would love if he was like 6%. It'd be a lot more enticing.
Well, for a second there, we hit 4,000 concurrent. So it's been a good morning. I hope it's a good afternoon for all of you and ourselves.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Follow Ben at JazzRaz DFS. Do it. Follow me at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D. And we love Jordan Klein, as always, for producing this one. If you guys aren't rocking the avatar yet, just go to stochastic.com/avatar. Use it wherever it is you play. DraftKings, FanDuel, Owner's Box. Owner's Box still what? 49% filled, less than 50 with an hour and 20 minutes to go. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, no matter where you're playing, no matter what the stakes are. It could be a 5-cent entry. Doesn't matter. You get a free month of any subscription if you want it. Stochastic, up to $200 value. And my friends, inducted into the Stochastic Hall of Fame. We had a huge one last week. Stochastic.com/avatar. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Tweet those wins to us. It's Stochastic HOF. and include all your favorite people so we can see them as well. Get that free month, get in the Hall of Fame. Matt and Eric coming up next. Goodbye, friends.
Thank you, Loughy. What's going on, everybody? Happy Sunday. Good to have week 11 underway. I'm Eric Lindquist. You can follow me over at X at Eric Lindquist. Let's just get right to it, shall we? We got our guy, Matt _Gajewski. That's what you're going to find him over on Twitter at as well. How you doing, my dude?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I'm splendid. I really have nothing else to add other than, like, I'm terrified of everything that I'm looking at in my lineups in every way, shape, and form. We got producer Jordan Klein here for another hour and 18 minutes before he goes back to bed until one. No, never mind. The Dolphins are on. He's going to be watching football. There's no way that he's not watching football, right? Right. Yeah. Anyway, slam that like button there. Guys did an awesome job here before we started this show, but we always start off with actives and actives, then we go position by position. But do you see any inactives that really matter? The only one that mattered to me was Zay Jones being active.
Rico Dowdle mattered a little bit to me just with the Tony Pollard stuff and him drawing pretty good ownership today. We've seen them use Rico Dowdle a little bit of late, and there's a chance that rises just because Pollard's been so bad. And then, of course, the Zay Jones one is huge. I think that affects Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, and Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram likely being the chalkiest piece of that bunch. But yeah, he's huge. He was like the wide receiver 2 when he was previously active earlier this season.
Yeah, he was kind of that guy last season. Obviously, there was no Calvin Ridley, so that's a discernible difference. But for me, I definitely find Trevor Lawrence to be in an upgraded situation while you have to downgrade his pass catchers. Makes it kind of an interesting mix. I do have some interesting Ingram, Zay Jones type stacks going now. And again, the Sims tool is going to be doing a lot of work for us here on this program. We're going to go through the lineup generator as well, which is kind of the better price point for a lot of you guys to be able to start off and see what the Sims tool has to offer because it's curating those lineups for you. We'll start running those around the wide receiver portion, but I'm excited for this slate. We've got just about 75 minutes to chat. Let's get to it. Starting at the quarterback position like we always do. And of course, at the top tier, Josh Allen is in the difficult spot against the Jets. He's a turnover machine. People want to talk about that nonstop, but I guess it's Josh Allen who still is kind of going to provide utility with his legs at the goal line, things of that nature. Tua Tagovailoa, not really all that popular because of all of the mid-range options that we have. And then Justin Herbert, who's my highest owned target of these top tier guys above 7,500. Any of them really making your lineups here in a major way?
Not in a major way. I think Josh Allen's probably the most interesting, just the ceiling he has both with his legs and through the air. You obviously have the OC change, which we don't exactly know how that's going to affect him at this point. I'm usually of the ilk that it's pretty hard to change a lot in your offense mid-season after you've been operating in one system for the entire season to this point. And then you also have the fact that, Joe Brady's been with the program, so it's not like seismic changes. He's definitely had an input at this point, but I think it's a pretty tough day for some of these really owned quarterbacks. I like Herbert. It's a bit of a tough spot. I think the Green Bay defense is pretty good. They also have some guys that have been battling injuries. So, opportunity cost. I'm personally trying to play a lot of the expensive studs at the skill position players. So this expensive tier is not something I'm highly exposed to. The player I have the most of is actually Tua, if you want to include him in this group.
Okay. Yeah. Tua's, I thought I would be getting to more of Tua. For best ball, he's been an absolute beast for me. Very much appreciated, sir. But staying healthy, kind of an important thing for best ball as well. Tua Tagovailoa, I just think this game could get really out of hand. You get Devon Achane back in there. I have no clue what to make of it. I'm going to just kind of scatter the board with Miami, whether that's Hill, Achane, Mostert. Nobody's getting crazy ownership of any kind there where I have to be crazy worried about what's going to happen in those spots. And plus the Sims tool loving us a little bit of Tyreek Hill here as a contrarian piece. But I tell you what, there's just one stack that I'm going to be jamming way more than the field. If you saw Thursday's program, things have not changed since then. But now we move our way down to Dak Prescott, who's been an absolute beast of late. I'm never that high on Dak Prescott. We'll see what happens playoff time. Not that that matters from a DFS perspective. But CJ Stroud there at 7K, Justin Fields 6,900, this 6,500 to 7,500 range. Jared Goff, of course, Justin Fields in that same game environment. How are you feeling about them? Because again, this is a spot where I think they're going to gain quite a bit of popularity, and I'm still going quite a bit cheaper in a majority of my lineups.
I think this is a pretty strong range. There's definitely some guys I have some interest in. And I think it starts for me with Justin Fields coming back against Detroit, who just got absolutely demolished by Justin Herbert last week. Fields has an interesting profile as well. He can win in multiple ways on the ground, which he was doing more of prior to the thumb injury. And then, of course, through the air, and the Detroit secondary certainly doesn't scare you. Also, Chicago's O-line is pretty good, improving. This is the first time all year they will have their projected starting 5 offensive linemen out for the start of the game. We'll see if they can make it through, because at least one of these starters has been injured all season long. And they've been pretty good with these guys in and out. So now, as healthy as they can be, I think the offense actually matches up pretty well against a Detroit defense, which is built entirely through their pass rush. They've had some injuries on the back end, and they haven't been able to stop anybody through the air. So this does set up pretty well for Fields. Otherwise, I think this is a range where I'm sprinkling players, a lot of interest in Goff on the other side of that game environment. You certainly shouldn't be scared of the Chicago defense. And Amon-Ra's up there to stack him with. Laporta will be contrarian. And then Stroud, he's a bit more expensive than these two. But, I mean, the guy's been on a tear. You definitely don't fear Arizona's defense. It's just kind of like you're going to walk into some ownership with Stroud. You have to navigate it carefully. But, I mean, none of his pass catchers are expensive. That game has a good total. It should get up and down. So those are the 3 I'm looking to primarily at the expense of Dak Prescott. We'll see if he burns me again. But where are you at in this range?
Primarily getting to Jared Goff, primarily getting to a little bit of Justin Fields as well. I think Justin Fields is a really interesting play as far as single stacking him, double stacking him. You get an underpriced DJ Moore for the situation. Cole Kmet, the tight end is just outrageous here this week. I find it to be very difficult to get away from playing at least some Trey McBride. Evan Ingram's kind of fascinating, a little less fascinating with Zay Jones back, but because he's cheap, I'm playing those doubles, trying to make that work with some expensive skill position players. But Cole Kmet now pulling the 4th most ownership at the tight end position, but still, it is a far cry from what we're going to see coming in for Trey McBride. So I do find that single to be a little bit interesting. It's just a question of like, when are we going to get unleashed Justin Fields 2022 running version of Justin Fields? I don't know if that happens between now and then. Obviously, the Bears aren't going anywhere fast. They have 2 what would be top 3 picks here at the moment. That's pretty exciting to see. So probably just kind of trying to develop him as a passer, see if he's going to be your long-term solution in Chicago. But I mean, he's talented. He's 6,900. He's sub 7K, and he does have the ability from time to time to go absolutely berserk with the wheels. Has 211 rushing attempt games so far this season. Only found the box once, a little bit different than the end of last season. So I will be getting to a little bit of him as well. But my entire day today is going to be revolving around what happens with the Los Angeles Rams, because I have so much Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp that it is insane. And let me give you a couple of the reasons why, and then I'll let you kind of throw this in, Matt Gajewski, but he's pulling 2.7% ownership, Matthew Stafford is. And I totally get it. He hasn't had over 21 fantasy points in a game yet, but this is a Seattle secondary. He will be at home. He will not have Kyron Williams out there, who had been vulturing some of those goal line touches. And Darrell Henderson, I'm going to be over the field on him on a pretty significant basis as well. But we now get Kupp and Nacua priced for the opportunity that they had with Brett Ripien on the road in Green Bay. No, thank you. I love the Matt Stafford double. I have so much of it. It is just ridiculous throughout my lineup. 6,400, 4 tournaments. Also has one-offs. Kupp, Nacua showing up nonstop in the Sims tool, and that has me extra excited. How do you feel about a 2.7% owned Matthew Stafford in this range, who is just, I mean, I'm so dead.
I like him too. I'm going to come in over the field. Probably not as heavy as you. It sounds like you're pretty overweight to him. But I think if you even come in with 5%, you might be looking at doubling the field with these stacks. The only problem you run into is it's really expensive. So you're going to find yourself punting quite a bit. Just a contextual thing with this slate. We have a lot of punts. So I don't think you're walking into a construction where you're necessarily holding hands with everyone in the field, because we have actually a dearth of options. So I think you can do that. And Stafford's price kind of keeps it somewhat in check. It's really just the Nacua and Kupp prices you're worried about, and the opportunity cost you have with playing them both, because that means you're not playing like a Tyreek Hill or a Waddle. So I actually don't love that for large field tournaments. Like the Rams probably have to score 50 points or something for them all to hit like a monstrous ceiling and you to win like the millie. But if you're playing small field stuff, I think that's perfectly live.
Okay. 6,400. Nakua 7,100. You have Cooper Kupp 8,100. And for me, it's just like, I think the volume can go up from a passing perspective without Kyron out there. And now Matthew Stafford is, off the injury report with the thumb. Off the injury report doesn't mean a whole lot after the Burrow thing to me, but still, it is still a plus. Everything kind of is coming up roses for me in that regard. So I got to say,
think about it this way. Like, you do Stafford to Nakua and Kupp. Like, if Nakua hits like a nuclear ceiling, Kupp can still have a good game, but he probably doesn't hit a nuclear ceiling. What if Tyreek, Amon-Ra, or CeeDee Lamb hit a nuclear ceiling? You're dead. In the millie, in the small field, you might not be, but in the millie, you're dead because you have that 1-for-1 opportunity cost right at the other position, or right at the same position, at the same price. Similar price.
For me, I look at the range. Kupp is $700 less than St. Brown. He is $900 less than Allen. He is $1,000 less than Diggs in a tough spot, of course. $1,100 from Lamb, $1,200 from Hill. There are weeks that we had no problem going that direction. If it were like a 14-15 game slate, I'm probably with you. On an 11 game slate where there's a lot of like 5K mid-range wide receiver value, Arizona, Houston is just laden with value all over the place. We will obviously get to them talking running back, wide receiver. I'm probably with you where I'd be a little bit more concerned, but I think there's a lot of situations where 20 from Kupp and 25 from St. Brown probably still survives and probably works out in an optimal basis as well. But again, it's going to be a lot of one-offs scattered. I have some singles of Stafford. I have a ton of that double. And as you said, like I think a lot of that is in like the $33 5 max, stuff like that I love playing, that I've been playing more and more as I've developed my DFS game, as I've used the tools to help me realize, hey, my ROI is higher in these contests. I'm going to focus on those. And yeah, that's going to be primarily where I'm utilizing a lot of those doubles. So that is a great discernment there. I will have quite a few Nakua singles, it looks like, are coming in a little bit higher for me than the Kupp ones, just from the Sims tools. So wanted to throw that out there as well. Let's go to the cheapies, and Kyler Murray has to be the discussion piece to begin with. If you're playing cash here today, I think it's probably a pay down spot to Purdy or to Kyler Murray in some capacity. I prefer Kyler Murray in cash if you're going to be going that direction. Who would your cash game quarterback be for today?
It would be Kyler.
Okay, I'm glad we're on the same board there. It was not ideal to see Cooper Toon coming in and taking a goal line carry away from Kyler Murray, and James Conner comes in and just QB sneaks it at the 1. That was frustrating, but you still got the rushing touchdown from Kyler. You still saw him active in that department, and of course, he is a massive upgrade with all of the skill position players, specifically Marquise Brown, James Conner. Good to have them back for him. But 6,100, Kyler Murray, I'm over the field in large field tournaments as well. I don't know if there's a ton else to say because everybody on his team is way too cheap for their opportunity in Houston here. But 6,100, I like him. Sam Howell, I think, might get a little bit forgotten, even though we have quite a bit of ownership coming his direction, like him for tournaments. Pretty easy double or triples to be thrown together there with Logan Thomas and the two guys that he has there in McLaurin and Dotson. But who are you getting to here underneath Matt Stafford, we should say?
Underneath Matt Stafford. So still getting to a fair amount of Kyler. I will be pretty even with the field, I'm guessing, if not a little below. That's just a large field play in cash and small field stuff. I think Kyler's really hard to get away from. He's the best quarterback play on the slate, in my opinion. It's not just the price, it's the skill position players. With Michael Wilson out, everyone's too cheap. Like you said, the prices if Toon is playing. And now you have an avenue with Kyler to multiple paths to a ceiling, really. On the ground, through the air. Matchup is not difficult per se against Houston. They've actually sort of outperformed expectations, at least compared to mine on defense. But they're still in all kinds of shootouts constantly. You have a very willing dance partner in CJ Stroud on the other side. You can play Kyler in so many different ways. I think even if you walk into the ownership, as long as you think about this like a little bit and don't just if you're using like an optimizer or something, just like don't straight up use the optimal lineup or something with Kyler, then I think you're fine. The Sims tool will help you out with that a lot. It takes an ownership into consideration. So you're still getting a ton of Kyler really across all sorts of lineup sets and field sizes. So I have no problem using him. And I agree with you. It's a really strong range. I like Sam Howell quite a bit. He's one of my most owned quarterbacks in this range. I think there's a chance he goes under-owned. And it's really just the matchup of a dream against New York, who is a pitiful defense. They provide no resistance on offense. And I'm not really even worried about severe positive game script. Eric Bieniemy continues to treat this team like the Kansas City Chiefs, dropping back Sam Howell 45, 50 times a game. And now you have less sack risks. Like New York doesn't have a pass rush. They don't have a secondary either. There should be really good volume for Howell. He's also mobile, not like Kyler, but he's probably going to get you somewhere between 15 to 20 rushing yards. And then once you get beyond that, I mean, I think Goff is a pretty good pivot. We already talked about Stafford at length. Trevor Lawrence just got a boost. And then if you're willing to go a little cheaper, Brock Purdy projects really well now that he has a fully healthy cast of skill position players facing that pass funnel Tampa Bay defense. So this is where a lot of my ownership is residing. And my two favorites are still going to be Howell and Murray if you force me to rank them.
All right, here we go. So underneath Brock Purdy, 5,800, there is only one quarterback I have exposure to. Can you guess who it is?
Jordan Love.
No.
Geno Smith. Oh, Geno Smith's above him.
Nope.
Dude, I don't know, man.
Dorian Thompson-Robinson is 4,500. He played absolutely abysmal against Baltimore. He now has a terrible playing Baltimore defense and then Pittsburgh defense for your first two starts in the NFL has to just suck. I mean, that cannot be an enjoyable experience, but he's 4,500. Amari Cooper, watching him against San Francisco is just like, oh yeah, I should probably have some DTR who did run a little bit at UCLA. I mean, probably the quarterback, the rookie quarterback that I've seen play the most football in my lifetime just because he's a UCLA cat. But like Dorian Thompson-Robinson played awesome in the preseason. These are just abysmal spots. This total is so egregious that there aren't even really words for it. 33 and a half. Enjoyable football experience, NFL. Great product. But DTR, it's a price thing. And I'm just going to play him singles with Cooper. And if Cooper goes for 25 and I have Dorian Thompson-Robinson maybe rush one in out of the middle of nowhere, there might be some kind of an opportunity to flip the build there. But again, I have 3% of him. So I'm just having a discussion with myself. Is DTR somebody that you're contemplating? Anybody else under 6K that you got in play?
I was thinking about him a little earlier in the day, and then I kind of just wrote him off, but my thoughts were similar to yours. He's actually a really good runner. So that's in the cards. But to me, it's just the total super low. I don't know if you need to get there a large field play, in my opinion, but yeah, I don't hate him. He's not Tommy DeVito.
I'm not saying go play him in your main stuff. He's no Tommy DeVito. We will put it that way. He is going to be better long-term than Tommy DeVito. Confirmed. Just throwing it out there. Preseason's over. I'm so aware. Again, he has 4,500. If he was not 4,500, I don't think that I would have any. I'm pretty positive I would have zero if you were 5K more than likely.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's completely fine. He's really just an unknown at this point. How much do we really know about him?
Let me ask you this. Would you rather play Bryce Young or Dorian Thompson-Robinson?
I have to think about it, which probably says a lot. I don't know.
I
think Bryce Young
is frustrating.
I think Bryce Young has been really the victim of just an anemic situation with terrible pass catchers, but it's at least a thought in your mind. So, I mean, that's worth something.
Yeah. Again, it's 4,500. I'm just trying to make it a thing, trying to have a discussion, talking to the
I'm not
wind.
saying it's a bad play.
Yeah, it's kind of a bad play. It's kind of a bad play. I'm happy to throw it out there. It's not a bad play. Getting free stuff when you use the Stochastic avatar for the Hall of Fame. It's good stuff. You go to Stochastic, HOF, my friends, stochastic.com/avatar. Go get yourself the lovely avatar that we have sitting there. When you finish in the top 3 of a contest with over 5K contestants, you're going to get yourself 1 month of any Sims package that we have available on the site. That can be up to a $200 value. Ridiculous stuff that we have going there. Yeah, free month of a Stochastic package just by checking out the avatar. And I don't know, when you look at the top of GPPs, especially in the NBA streets with my friend Greg Ehrenberg, holy mother of God, is he on the heater of all heaters? Fun to be along for the ride on it. I'll get there eventually, but telling you, Stochastic HOF is where it is at. You tweet everything that you got there when you finish in the top 3 of the 5K and get yourself that $200 value. Awesome stuff there. Cool. Great. Grand. No yelling on the bus. Anything else you want to talk about here, Matt Gajewski at quarterback?
I don't think so. I think we hit on most of the guys I'm playing. Again, I'm kind of living in that gross 5.5K, mostly in the 6K range. The only guy I have below Purdy with any sort of frequency is Jordan Love, and it's not much frequency at all, just mainly a game environment thing against a pretty bad Chargers defense.
I like his running back like I do every single week, and then I get disappointed by his running back like I am every single week. But we're going to do it again this week, so that's going to be an enjoyable experience. To the running back we go. Christian McCaffrey, he's good at football. Do you want to play him?
I do want to play him, but he's tricky. I think this is a game where it sets up largely for the pass. But I mean, this offense is so good. Anytime you get a trip to a goal line, they prioritize scoring him down there. You no longer have the touchdown streak that they clearly cared about for some reason. And I don't know if that affects things and changes their play calling at all, but they had been really trying to get Christian McCaffrey touchdowns to extend that streak. I'm more living in this mid-price range at running back too. It's kind of like mid-price QBs, mid-price running backs, and then jamming the stud receivers has been my approach so far. But I'm not coming in with 0 on McCaffrey for sure. I anticipate being a little bit below the field and just a little bit at that.
Michael Hawks, $5. I am single entry again this week, and I can't seem to get away from Jordan Love stacks. Help me. Play somebody else if you don't want to play Jordan Love. I think my biggest issue with Jordan Love is some of the access to his super ceiling has been unavailable because Christian Watson has been elusive to him. Aaron Rodgers could confirm, make Christian Watson a deep threat. Haven't really seen that here whatsoever. He had a 37-yard catch against the Rams. That's his longest of the season in any game, and that's not really going to get it done in a GPP here. Yeah, the Chargers, Derwin James out there roaming the desert. I don't feel very good about Jordan Love here today, but Matt said he had a little bit, so I'll let you give the case. Should he be moving away from him in single entry?
Depends how big your field size is. I don't care if it's single entry, 3 max, or 150. It depends how many people you're playing against, not the size of your entry amounts. So if this is something like a milli maker, I'd have a lot more interest in Love. He has a really good floor. I mean, he's had some tough matchups recently. He really never gets below 14. What I'm concerned about is the access point to his ceiling. The floor is pretty good because he runs a decent amount for a quarterback, and then he hasn't been able to connect through the efficiency to Watson, which you already broke down. I don't think this matchup is difficult by any means. I think it could get up and down a little more than the total. So I don't hate using Jordan Love. And now all of his pass catchers are really cheap. I would probably try to stick with like a Musgrave or probably a Christian Watson, maybe a Dobbs if you're getting really contrarian. But I think you can jam chalk around it. And then it's probably going to be a lot of stud chalk because that stack doesn't cost you anything.
Agreed. All right. Well, maybe I'll get a little bit here. I'll take a look here at the Sims and see what my top Jordan Love lineups were and maybe add those to something. I'll add them maybe like to the $3 and have ourselves an enjoyable little time. But gosh, this is back to the running back position. It is so loaded, and there's so many guys that I want to play. And 2 of them are in the same game, and they're both insanely popular now. Devin Singletary, James Conner. You do not have to avoid chalk. Let me repeat it one more time. You do not have to avoid chalk. You have to worry about the other pieces around it. And that's what the Sims tool and the lineup generator can help you do. But even still, they are showing up in the lineup generator and the Sims tool here today because they are confirmed good plays in a great game environment and kind of bell cow backs in their situation. James Conner around 65% of snaps last time out. That has room to grow. Devin Singletary, basically a one-man backfield there, 30 touches. My dear sweet Lord, what in the world? Devin Singletary, I have a little bit more of than James Conner, but I am obsessed with them both. How are you handling 2 very chalky mid-range pieces on this slate?
I'm actually not as interested in James Conner, and I think it's just some of the alternatives on this slate. With Kyler back, he's going to cannibalize some rushing. Maybe this is like a Lamar Jackson situation where it's enough where maybe you just prefer the other guys in this range, which is tentatively my approach. And I mean, as far as Devin Singletary goes, the only real concern I think you have is the pass game work, but I don't think that's a huge issue. Honestly, I think it's kind of just a sampling size thing. Like he just hasn't been the lead back for most of the year with Dameon Pierce active. Now we have a very small 2-game sample. Devin Singletary was already playing a lot more towards the end of that Dameon Pierce regime, I guess, before the injury. So I just have less concerns with him overall. So if you force me to pick between these 2 guys, it's still Devin Singletary for me in this range over James Conner. And then I honestly kind of prefer Brian Robinson over James Conner as well.
Okay. Brian Robinson, yeah, he's kind of jumped up to the top of the board. We did get the news Antonio Gibson is inactive, so that's very, very important to the context of this slate. Phenomenal spot here going up against the Giants, 24 total, which is a little bit surprising there for Washington. Expected to just, go completely nuts against this inept football team. But I kind of skipped down because I do think Singletary, I do prefer a slightly bit ahead of James Conner, although I prefer James Conner's odds over on OddsShopper. Looking across the industry and the sports betting community, just want to throw it out there. First touchdown score, plus 900 James Conner. That's called value. That's a pretty good spot there when you compare it to some of the other first touchdown. Not a market I tend to dabble in either. So want to throw out that that's a pretty good spot. But God, why do I have Tony Pollard in my lineups? Please talk me out of Tony Pollard. Please. I beg you, please.
I really can't. I mean, they're playing Carolina. You don't even have Rico Dowdle to steal work away today. The guy's been incredibly unlucky. He finished like short of the goal line twice last week. He's dropped passes in the goal line, had penalties negate touchdowns. I don't know if there's a guy who's run worse outside of maybe Calvin Ridley drawing DPIs every play. But I mean, the opportunity's been there for Pollard. The matchups continue to get better somehow. There's going to be no resistance today. Last week, all of the touchdowns and production went to CD Lamb. I mean, there's a chance it goes right back to Pollard. He's not as popular as he was on some of those other slates, and I think it's just because we have more alternatives. So I'm very willing to go back.
Yeah, Dowdle is active for this one. So there.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, that was the mistake by me.
You're all good. Nope. I wanted to just make sure that we rectified it. So if anybody thought that wasn't the case, that we would just fix that. Deuce Vaughn's out. If anybody cared. Deuce Vaughn, Kansas State legend. But anyway, we are continuing on our merry way here. I have too much Tony Pollard. I am going to regret it. I know it, but this is where it gets so fun, Matt. There are so many tournament plays. Our guy, Aaron Jones, is 14%. I guess he's gotten steamed up a little bit as the week has gone on. I think Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, you kind of want to find yourself some exposure there in some capacity. I think it's going to be close to 50-50. Maybe it does tip towards Gibbs more often than not, but it's still an uncomfortable feeling considering their price points. Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane, exact same thing there, where I have no idea how to go about projecting these snaps, but I know that I want to play somebody there in tournaments and try to have some exposure there. I mean, some of these split backfields are just out of control. So in this 6-7K range, who are the tournament plays that you're landing on the most?
It's kind of a tough range. Honestly, I think the guys you mentioned make the most sense. I have no problem using Achane at this price point. He was at this price point before he got injured, and people were just like jamming the hell out of him. He was like 30% owned on his final game. Vegas doesn't offer much resistance in terms of defense. He's my favorite GPP play, not named Pollard in this range. Otherwise, to speak on a few guys, Walker, he's a little more expensive. I do have some interest against the Rams in that backfield. It should be a pretty good up and down game environment. Josh Jacobs has the workload, just not the efficiency. They're big underdogs against Miami, but I mean, they very much prioritize getting him to 100 yards. So I think he should be in your pool. I don't have as much interest in the Detroit guys, just with the better workloads you're going to see with a lot of the backs in this range. There was a report out of New York that Breece Hall is going to see less work as they try to evaluate like Abonaconda and stuff, which doesn't really make sense to me. There was another report this morning saying Aaron Rodgers was targeting a week 16 return as long as the Jets were in the playoff hunt or playoff race. So those two reports.
Stop it. I'm
all right.
I mean,
what do you want to say?
No,
I'll stop.
This is just Aaron Rodgers clout. That is all this is. Aaron Rodgers is saying this because Aaron Rodgers is obsessed with Aaron Rodgers and he wants to look like the Bionic Man. He was never coming back. Stop it. This is only thrown out now when the Jets have been in decline, saying, hey, if we're in contention, it'll be week 16. And then he'll be like, oh, well, we're not in contention. I can't play football. He is literally doing this to look cool.
I mean, it kind of makes sense.
It's just put on my tinfoil hat. Aaron Rodgers is full of shit. There you are. Done. Skull.
All right. What are we talking about next?
I don't know. That was an enjoyable experience for me. How about for you? Did you like it?
I don't really care about the narratives. So let's talk about the slate.
Oh, back to business. It's business time. Business. I put on my suit. Business. All right, here we go. Jerome Ford, 5,200. How do you feel about him?
I love him. I actually like him a lot as a play.
I had a feeling you would. Please talk to the people about why we're playing Jerome Ford.
Well, the negatives are basically just game environment stuff. With DTR in the center, the totals plummeted in the entire game. But the workload for him is pretty solid. The only real issue is they use Kareem Hunt around the goal line. So you haven't had as much touchdown equity for him, but I do not fear Pittsburgh. And if DTR can keep this offense even like remotely competent, you have just a huge leverage point. You look at the ownership difference between like a Singletary and a Jerome Ford at this price point. If Jerome Ford just falls in the end zone and Singletary doesn't, this could be like extreme leverage. And I don't think the workload is quite as different as people might think it is.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with the vaccine. I'm a Vikings fan, and Aaron Rodgers has just been a tool forever. I don't know.
Yeah, keep the politics out of here. We're talking about football.
Yeah, literally not talking politics at all. Just, I don't like a guy. It is what it is. He was never playing football this year. Stop it. Stop it. All right. So we love Jerome Ford. That makes me happy. I love Darrell Henderson. I think 5K for him. I think against Seattle, again, this is just one of those like, where else? Who else sees snaps here for the Rams? I know that Royce Freeman could come in and get some type of work, but I got to imagine I should just be playing Darrell Henderson and not think twice about it if 5K is kind of a contrarian piece here on this slate. And so we get into the 4K range. It is awfully dire compared to previous weeks. They have aggressively priced up the likes of Devin Singletary. Well, not aggressively, not nearly enough at 5,300, but still, there is nobody sub 5K that I really have any interest in whatsoever, other than maybe a shot on Royce Freeman on the afternoon slate. But like, this is such a bleak range here that is there anything that you find to be appealing whatsoever?
No, I'm not playing anyone in this range. And I do not want to play Darrell Henderson because of the Royce Freeman stuff.
All right, cool. Let's continue on our merry way then and talk a little. We got Owner's Box. It's phenomenal stuff, my friend. Owner's Box. This is a spot that you can get massive overlay right now. Jordan Klein, let's check in on the overlay here over at Owner's Box, please, because this is the site. They're the sponsor here of our program, but more so than that, they are the site that you want to be putting your money and your exposure right now, and here's why. When you get overlay, you get an opportunity to make more money. Do you want to make more money? I would like to make more money. So again, Owner's Box is the place to go do that right now because we have less than 60% full right now. Their main 100K to first 20K to first 100K main Sunday offering. Check out everything over at Owner's Box. We have tools curated just for it over here with the Sims tool. We'll work directly with Owner's Box for you. And that, my friends, is very, very useful. You also get up to a $250 first match deposit bonus. So you enter $250, you'll get $250 back in bonus credit for that deposit. You could do that for anything from the $10 up to the $250 for Owner's Box, as well as a $5 lightning entry lineup, a $5 contest ticket, so on and so forth. Plus, you get an awesome opportunity to play a site where you don't have to deal with defense. And I have a lot of defenses that I like this week for regular DFS, but it's way better to not even have to think about them or deal with them. So check out Owner's Box, my friends. It is a phenomenal site. Again, giving you great opportunities with overlay and contests. We have 46 minutes to lock there. Get yourself a couple of lineups over there. Sign up at the link that Jordan Klein is so astutely going to put into chat here, and then is also in the video description down below. Really good stuff, my friends. Thank you to Owner's Box, but thank you to them for overlay because that is a DFS player's best friend. Anywho, we are continuing on our merry way to the wide receiver position unless you have anything at running back.
I think we hit on most of it. If you have a question, of course, leave it in the comment section.
All right. We have Eckler 3 touchdowns today. Fingers crossed. That would be absolute shambles for me more than likely. But wide receiver and stacking. And oh my gosh, let's pull up the top stacks tool here, Jordan Klein, because I think this is going to encapsulate a lot of what we're looking at on today's slate. Miami, top stack, 14.5%. Detroit, 11.9%. And if Detroit goes for that ceiling game, like if you see Jared Goff go for that ceiling game as a top stack, I don't think there's any question in my mind that Amon-Ra St. Brown probably had a gigantic game, which leads me into this. We have Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, and Amon-Ra St. Brown above, 8,100 that Cooper Kupp's tag is at down there. He's on an island. You guys know by now, I have way more of him than anybody else. But amongst these 5 guys that you're paying an exorbitant price for, who do you prefer to get to the most in tournaments, Matt?
In tournaments right now, I have the most of Keenan Allen, but it's not by a wide margin. I would say it's pretty spread evenly, honestly. But Amon-Ra's second, then it goes CD, then Tyreek Hill. And Stephon Diggs is by far at the lowest mark in my lineups. But, I mean, we're splitting hairs, really. It comes down to just who's the most owned in this group. We can talk about their roles. They all have their little niche specialties, but they all see volume. They're all in good offenses for the most part. And the matchups aren't really scary outside of the Stephon Diggs matchup. Like Miami versus Vegas definitely doesn't scare you. Dallas, Carolina, as long as Dallas chooses to use CeeDee Lamb, he's going to eat. Keenan Allen, you do have the injury stuff, but reports this morning indicated he's going to be a full go. Then you've got Detroit against Chicago. So Amon-Ra just set up very nicely here. Using ownership as my real friend in this spot, and Keenan Allen's going to come in with the lowest ownership, largely due to the Q tag.
People are asking for Spicy Matt. We have Spicy Matt every single morning. He has to do shows with me. That's what punishment do you guys enough.
Spicy Matt.
Oh, Spicy Matt is my favorite version of Matt. It's like a jambalaya. It's beautiful, delicious, tastes nice on the tongue. Goes especially well with beer at Wrigley Field. That's for sure.
Did we have jambalaya?
No, we just had beer at Wrigley Field. It's great.
Yeah, I had too many.
We might have been overserved.
Yeah, the bartenders there were not kind to me. They overserved me.
Yeah, it's their fault. They did it.
That's a running joke with my friends. Anytime we accidentally have too many beers, blame it on the bartenders for overserving you. It's never your fault.
Yeah, they're supposed to cut you off. How dare they, do their job and have to deal with like us being annoying. And
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Shove it, guys. Anyway, yeah, that was a great breakdown there. Cooper Kupp, by now, I have tons of. But into the 7K range we go, where only Brandon Ayuk is pulling any kind of ownership there, double-digit ownership. Puka Nacua, 7,100. Give me all of that you got in a bag of potato chips. I should just go to this game is what I'm kind of like deciding in my head. Just go sweat it live.
You should, I might have you have the access, don't you?
Yeah, I should probably go.
I don't know how far you live, but if you don't live that far, you should go.
I should go. Puka Nacua. Give me Puka. He's going to smash. Oh, it's going to be so fun. But him, DK Metcalf, as well as the run back, and Nico Collins. I'm shocked Nico Collins only has 6.8% ownership. Are you?
Not really. I think it's just because he's so expensive, and Tank Dell has just monster target volume at a cheaper price tag. Like with Nico, you're debating him between DK Metcalf, Brandon Ayuk, like legitimate wide receiver ones on their teams. And I'm not even sure Nico Collins is the wide receiver one. With Tank Dell healthy, he flat out might just be in this offense. So I think that's largely what's doing it. But when you start talking about leverage, I'm not confident that that's the case. If Nico Collins is the number one moving forward with CJ Stroud at the helm, he's probably underpriced. So I think it depends on what you think the targets are going to be. I tend to fall in the camp that Tank Dell has emerged as their wide receiver one. So unless this is your leverage point in your lineups, I don't think it makes a lot of sense with some of the other guys in this range. I would prefer get into like a Debo or an Ayuk.
All right. That's good for me, mainly because I thought Nico was like an underutilized part of a double going up against Arizona here in this spot. Thought that he gave me some exposure to this game because the game is super chalky as is, and he's really the only non-chalky piece. Yes, he's 6,700. Yes, Tank Dell has tons of volume, but CJ Stroud confirmed way better than I expected. We've only seen really 2 mega ceiling games from him, but yeah, Tank Dell, he's definitely somebody that in cash, you click on him, you move along with your merry life, and you just don't think twice about it. But for tournaments, I thought getting to a little bit of Nico Collins, still something we'll see where I end up landing. And I think that's where I think we can jump over to the contest generator and see exactly what we have popping up here. So the contest generator, friends, the NFL lineup generator, a super cheap price point for you to be able to see what kind of lineups you will be getting with the Sims tool here. As Jordan Klein pulls that up here, again, you're allowed to build up to 20 lineups, save those, utilize them in the 20 max. You know what? I sub $20 to be able to jump in, sub $15. Yeah, it's $15 for a week to be able to try out the Sims tool. Or sorry, not the Sims tool, the lineup generator here. You can choose exactly which type of stacks you want. I want the two man with a run back, Jordan Klein. That would be awesome. We'll do some contrarian lineups with that. Really great stuff, just because I want to see the tournament exposure that we're getting to with some of these guys. But we can save up to 20 of these super, super quick. Want to see what kind of wide receivers we're getting here as we get to the Marquise Brown section, the Tank Dell section. These are guys that I think are just too good of plays to not be playing as one-offs, to be playing just in a large allotment of lineups. But as you can see at the top there, Devin Singletary pulling tons of ownership. Christian McCaffrey, 40% is pretty insane. And then Saquon Barkley jumping up to the top here as well. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Cooper Kupp. Again, I love that the Sims tool is giving me tons of Kupp, tons of Nacua, Tank Dell here. How are you handling Marquise Brown and Tank Dell specifically, who it looks like to me are primarily being involved in stacks here at our first run of 20?
I'm getting a lot of that myself. And I think this is going to be one of those situations where what is your field size is going to be exceedingly important, because this is the chalkiest environment on the whole slate, the chalkiest range, and it's not even really close. So to me, it's like, are you stacking Kyler? If you're stacking Kyler, then maybe you can use multiple guys from this range. Otherwise, one-offs could be in play. It really honestly just comes down to your construction and your field size, because I mean, to break it down from an on-field perspective, these are the best price-adjusted plays at the position. We briefly touched on Tank Dell. I mean, the guy's coming off like 14 and 11 targets, something ridiculous like that, double-digit in back-to-back games. Amazing matchup. CJ Stroud's his quarterback. Arizona's the opposing defense. Just absolutely amazing spot for him. Marquise Brown now gets the upgrade of having Kyler Murray under center. A lot of those uncatchable targets he's been receiving should turn catchable. The offense overall is going to score more points with a better signal caller under center. Really hard not to play him too. So honestly, it's just like you have to navigate this carefully. And it's not like those are the only two guys owned in this range either. You have McLaurin coming in with some, Dotson coming in with some. I think Sam Howell is largely driving that, dropping back 80 times a game, but they're not going to be unowned. DJ Moore's not going to be unowned now that we have Justin Fields back. Even like a Christian Kirk or a Calvin Ridley are probably going to come in with a little bit of ownership. I'm a little worried about these two now that Zay Jones is back. They could both be slightly overpriced, but they're still going to be owned a little bit. So really good range to play, guys. I'm picking off a lot of these receivers, just making sure I'm doing it carefully with the rest of my lineup.
Well said. Well said. And now, here's where it gets to be the bleak midwinter for me, because I have so many lower 4K guys and mid-range 3K guys that I am just playing way too much of. I am looking at Jackson Smith and Jigba in that Rams game as a run back. I'm looking at Quentin Johnston. Brandon Cooks coming off of his first ceiling game in a hot second, pulling absolutely no ownership. Tutu Atwell gets Matthew Stafford back there, 3,900. 4K Jaden Reed, who I think has kind of been the number one for this Packers team in recent weeks, and you get him at 4K flat. I don't know. I have way too much of these guys. Can you help me parse through who some of your favorites are?
Yeah, I'm a little worried about Jaden Reed. I think there's some fragility with his projection. He's splitting time with Dontavian Wicks. But he's played well enough to earn more snaps. This is probably just like a coaching decision. I don't honestly know why they're doing this, but yeah, he's one I'm a little scared of. I like Christian Watson quite a bit in this range. When you start looking at guys that actually have like a ceiling and good target shares, I think he makes a lot of sense. I'm right there with you on Smith and Jigba. We don't know how healthy Tyler Lockett is. The rhetoric on him is not great. He's playing through a hamstring, so you're at risk of re-injury. And then he's already like an efficient price-adjusted play. If Lockett were to go out or something like that, he would be amazing. I think Quentin Johnson is a pretty decent play. You don't have Guyton today. You already lost Palmer. You already lost Mike Williams. They just don't have anybody else. They also don't have Gerald Everett. You just don't have anybody to throw the ball to in LA outside of Quentin Johnston. Zay Jones is back. The health is a question, but I mean, he was the wide receiver too prior to injury. There's a great pivot spot, and the difference between this range and like that 5K range we just talked about is no one's playing most of these guys. You could even just increase if you're running like 150 or something, you could increase your exposure to say like somewhere between 2.5% and 5%. And as a whole, you're probably coming in way over the field on this group as a collective. And they're all pretty good plays and good offenses. It's just that the 5K range is so underpriced, you don't get a lot of these guys. It also offers you a different construction, which should help you be contrarian too.
I mean, just you're so magical when you say those things. Can we?
Is it because you agree, and then when we don't agree, it's not magical?
Pretty much. That it's either you are the man I want you to be, or you're not him at all. It truly is what it is. Rondale Moore, 3,300. My dear Lord, I have too much of him. Again, I feel like I bring him up on every show. You know what? He put up 9.3. I should be dancing in the streets last week. But again, there's extra opportunity. Michael Wilson, not going to be playing football. Wilson! It sucks, but it is what it is. Anybody else there to kind of mine out here in the lower threes? I will be keeping an eye, obviously, on Tyler Lockett. Jake Bobo would enter the conversation if he is out. Otherwise, no, thank you. Khalil, Shakira, we could probably get to a little bit there too. But yeah, this is just a disgusting dart throw range.
I agree. We have some ownership coming in on Robert Woods. I think it makes sense. He should be targeted more frequently now that you don't have Noah. Curtis Samuel, he's also in that offense that drops back 80 times a game facing New York. So he's somebody that projects decently well. I have a fair amount of him in my Sam Howell stacks. And then you go all the way down to Rondale Moore, who I think is my least favorite of this group. I think he's going to be the most owned. And I think he probably has the worst ceiling just because of his usage. They throw him the ball right at the line of scrimmage and then he falls down. No red zone role. Like James Conner's back. You probably don't see the carries you were seeing over the span where he was injured. Like, I think there's just a lot of downside with Rondale Moore when I'd rather play like real receivers at this price tag, like Curtis Samuel and Robert Woods. Even like a Josh Reynolds, I think is more interesting than Rondale Moore, which is kind of a hot take, but not playing zero, but I'm actively going to try to come in under the field on him.
Oh God, don't say that to me now. I have to go and revisit legitimately everything I'm doing. I'm playing 242 lineups on DraftKings today, and he is in 32% of them. Yeah, that's probably too much here, but we'll go to the Sims tool here at the end of the tight end position as we talk about defense. Again, I think there's some fascinating things that the Sims tool can do for you now that weren't necessarily even available a couple of weeks ago. And we'll talk through one thing in particular there when we talk about defense that I think is pretty fascinating, pretty darn fun. You can just do the typical things you do to look at the stack ROI and be able to tell exactly where we're going. But friends, smash the like button. I haven't asked for a while here, and some of you are really enjoying this show. Some of you are really not enjoying this show, but you know what? We're all here together. It's really fun. I'm enjoying myself, and I know Matt Gajewski is too, even if he looks like your neighborhood accountant. It is truly a blessing to be here with you on this Sunday morning, talking football with my friend Matt Gajewski and reliving good times at Wrigley Field in our brains. But here we are, tight end. It is wild how much ownership is coming in on Trey McBride, but he has had just an elite, beyond elite role here with the Arizona Cardinals. And now, no Zach Ertz. And now you get Kyler Murray back into the fray. And now you've seen not back to back, but two of his last three games, 24 plus DraftKings points. You're getting him at 4,400. I have a lot more two tight end builds this week than I think I do on standard weeks because Trey McBride exists and because that game environment is just too good to pass up. How are you handling Trey McBride, the chalkiest piece on the entire slate today?
Yeah, still playing a fair amount of him. He's just his target volume is so absurd. He's on the field every single play. Now is the quarterback upgrade. He legit might just be like the pass catcher number one in this offense over Marquise Brown. If you read the last 2 weeks as any indication, that's what it looks like to me. So, I mean, still severely underpriced. And to your point, getting a lot of two tight end as well. Not sure how I want to handle that necessarily. It's just a little bit of sticker shock, honestly. But it projects well, and that's because we have other tight ends that are looking pretty solid too. So as long as tight end's not your leverage point, I'm okay playing Trey McBride. Again, that whole offense is just severely underpriced in what looks like the best game of the week. But then you look at some other players in this range. I mean, you can play Cole Kmet. Justin Fields is back. I don't know if that's a positive or negative for him because efficiency should be better, but Tyson Bagent had eyes for no one except Cole Kmet. You have Evan Ingram in this game environment against Tennessee, who has no secondary. But now you have Zay Jones back. Don't know if the target volume is going to quite be there. Jake Ferguson's in that electric Dallas offense. Dalton Kincaid's a little more expensive in a tough matchup, but the ceiling's certainly there with him. Then you have Dalton Schultz in that electric matchup against Arizona with CJ Stroud under center. Even a contrarian Laporta, a bit more expensive, but you could get all the way up there. And if you're willing to go down, like Logan Thomas, Washington's going to drop back a million times. Luke Musgrave is an interesting contrarian play. You have some really cheap guys like Donald Parham, no Gerald Everett today, Michael Mayer against Miami, and then Stoneman Pat Freiermuth, who's back off the injury report, or I guess off injured reserve. There's a lot of tight end options that project better than these cheap receivers. So double tight end does make some sense. I still am worried about the ceiling you might be sacrificing because let's use we can use Trey McBride, for example. If you go up to 5,300, you can get Singletary. You go up a little bit more, you can get to Brian Robinson. So rather than play like double tight end, I'm loosely toying around with this idea, just punting off one of the wide receiver positions and then getting a better running back. But I don't know. I think it's a debate worth having.
You just broke down the entire position, didn't you? Like you talked about every single person at tight end. That was fantastic.
Well, you laid it up for me in the context of why you might be considering double tight end. And
I know. It's my own fault. Well, actually, it was fantastic. I was able to get all of my lineups uploaded and done here half an hour before the show is over. So, like, truly, the co-hostess with the mostest. I absolutely love you for it. But yeah, I mean, we'll break it down by range. I mean, it's just so hard to get to a Kittle. It's so hard to get to any of these guys on the upper end. Sam Laporta is very fascinating to me because, again, the Sims tool, and this is a great opportunity, I think, to jump over there, Jordan Klein, if you want to jump over and see what is showing up here with some of these 2 tight end builds. And then also, I just want you to see how these Goff stacks look, because that, for me, is kind of the thing that I'm going through and taking a look at right now. You can take a look at specific players. You can look in columns and see exactly what we're getting to here with it. But I was just filtering my lineups and seeing, hey, what am I getting for this specific player, and trying to see what my stacks kind of look like. And all of my Jared Goff stacks are almost independent of Sam Laporta, which I find to be a little bit strange at the moment. But I would just want to double check a couple of things here as we're working through this. And this is what the Sims tool can really do for you. It can help you refine your process, be able to find out exactly what's going on. There we go. All right. So I had something wrong on my end where I clicked on the projection and I muted it. I just put in our regular stochastic projection. Now he's showing up in all of my doubles. That makes way more sense. So when you're talking about accessing a ceiling to a guy like 5,800 Sam Laporta, we've had so many tight end slates lately where we've had these nuclear performances from Trey McBride, from, Cole Kmet on a couple of these slates, Jake Ferguson, even at 4,600, the pride of Rapid City, South Dakota. I feel as though Sam Laporta, just having him involved in your Jared Goff stacks and coming along for the ride, such a good idea here in that game environment. And you don't necessarily have to play Laporta as a one-off. And I really don't think it's probably a good idea to do, but I love him with Goff stacks. Talk to me specifically about Kittle and Laporta and why you still want to try to force some of them into those stacks.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at Kittle, he's a little bit harder just now that they're fully healthy. We saw the big touchdown last week, but having Ayuk and Debo back, all the players fully healthy, it really affects his projection, and especially his targets. If he doesn't hit a big play, I think he's hard to get to. Even with, the potential leverage you might gain, I'm not sure it's quite enough in terms of projection with Kittle. So he's not my favorite. Obviously, if you're running a Purdy stack, you'll probably end up with some of him. And then I think Laporta is a little bit better just because you save some salary. And outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's definitely the number 2 read. So you get a better target projection on Laporta, in my opinion, at a cheaper price. And I mean, Goff is just fine. So if that's the stack you run, I have a lot more interest in the Laporta side versus like the Kittle side.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. I think Laporta a much better play between the two of them. Getting Deebo Samuel back in, it's generally been a killer for George Kittle. He proved me wrong with 3 catches, 116 and a tutty last week. But again, that was one massive, massive play that ended up working out for him. And yeah, made me feel bad in hindsight, although I jammed Trey McBride, so I guess I shouldn't feel all that bad. But I think Sam Laporta is an awesome guy to bring along for the ride here in the stacks. And looking at the tight end position here that Jordan Klein has pulled up so lovely and eloquently, there's one guy that I want to ask you about because somebody did put in the chat exactly my thoughts about him normally. Donald Parham. Eric, he's touchdown dependent. He sure is. Unless he's playing more of a Gerald Everett role. Unless he just has to be on the field more, in which case I just think there's an increased opportunity for him to not be touchdown dependent, as well as when you get to the goal line, he still will be that guy that Herbert's looking for. So I really like Donald Parham at 5.6% ownership for tournaments there, 3,100. Talked about Okonkwo as well. If Will Levis develops, if he gets better here, Jacksonville, I'm not saying that they're going to have as bad of a game as they had against San Francisco last week. That was atrocious. But we are looking at Okonkwo, who I think is only going to play better and better as the season goes on here, if the improved quarterback play ends up being a thing from Levis as opposed to Tannehill. But I kind of like this lower 3K range more just in tournaments to get to some of these one-offs, just to be able to get to the skill position players at running back, the McCaffreys, and then the litany of guys at the wide receiver position. But how do you feel about specifically Parham here in this spot against Green Bay?
I think he's fine. And any of the risk that he has, I think, is kind of in his projection. He's probably not going to play 100% of the snaps, but you're definitely going to see an increase on 30. We've had this situation one other time. He was at about 60% of the snaps, roughly, give or take. Since then, they've cut Trey McKitty. They still have Stone Smart, who's a converted quarterback from college. I'm not sure why he's still on a roster, but he plays a decent amount. Otherwise, I believe Vinette is their third tight end who plays a specific role as a blocker. But he's in the high leverage situations. Being touchdown dependent is not a bad thing at tight end. Really, all of them are outside of a select few. And now projecting an increased role, even if it's not 100%, that should benefit Parham. So I think he's completely fine. He'll be contrarian. I have no issues using him.
Okay. I just wanted to fire him up a little bit here as well. We had a super chat. We have 4K people hanging out here the entire time. Smash that like button. Can we get over 2,000? That would be sick to see a 2K number in the bottom left-hand corner here of this program. Again, we're all having fun here, talking some football on a Sunday. We really appreciate you choosing us to hang out. And then also, hey, check out some free overlay over on Mr. Owner's Box. I mean, this is just ridiculous stuff that they have going. $250 first match deposit bonus, 65% full here right now for that main contest. So still plenty of time to jump in here with 23 minutes left in the program, but had this super chanting fan funding. There we go. Here it is. Sims gave me 0 fields in top 20. Is this okay? That's from James Magruder. Always in here hanging out with us. $1.99. Appreciate you, my guy. He said the Sims gave him 0 fields in the top 20. Is this okay? Yeah, in 20 lineups, you're not going to get a crazy diverse portfolio where you're going to get 2 of this guy, 2 of this guy. It might be a little bit more concentrated at the top of what you're looking at. At least it is for me most of the time that I'm putting in my NFL lineups. So if you want to get to some fields, you can go to the ROI boost, give it a little bit of love, take a look at what some of those lineups are, or filter them by fields and just heart 1 or 2 of those to get into a 20 max setting. What do you think about Justin Fields not showing up in the Sims tool, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's fine. It just sounds like it's a sampling thing. If you increase that, you're going to get more fields.
Exactly. Yeah. So don't worry about it too much. Again, the data is smarter than us. It is insane how smart this stuff is. And I am not going to be overriding it any way, shape, or form that I can help outside of the Matthew Stafford. We've given some love to Matthew Stafford, even though the one-offs were showing up in absolute metric ton for me there in Nakua and in Cup. But thank you so much for the super chat. We continue on. Anything else here at tight end? I have to say, I've never been happier for a main slate not seeing Taysom Hill at the frickin' tight end position, even though I know he pulls no ownership any week. It feels so nice to know that somebody will not be playing quarterback from the tight end position today.
Yeah, I completely get that. I usually struggle with what I do with Taysom Hill, so completely happy with not having him.
I do not like him, Sam. I do not like him whatsoever. Anyway, a lot of rage. Eric Unfiltered. How about that? Let's go to defense, shall we? And then we'll be able to take questions for about 20, 15 minutes. We flew through this one. We absolutely flew, but 11 game slate. Think there's some concentrated ownership in some spots. Maybe revisit some of our tournament plays that exist here with the help, of course, of the Sims tool and the data here at Stochastic. And today is the last day, by the way, of promo code Millie. Last week, we got our guy putting up, Short Gamer TV puts up a W in the 555 over on DraftKings for $1 million. It was phenomenal. We have promo code Millie today. Millie, 20% off using Millie as that promo code. Again, great stuff going on. Love seeing these W's again. That is a smash, absolute Hulk slam smash. Promo code Millie gets you a Stochastic Sims package for 20% off. If you've been thinking about it, if you've thought about dipping your toes into the waters here of the Sims package, this is a great way to get in a little bit cheaper and see how strong this data and how it can work for you to help you make some money. Again, in the NBA streets, Greg Ehrenberg has won about $160,000 starting off the season. He has a first on FanDuel to start it off for $10K, $100K in the NBA streets, as well as 2 seconds. Yeah, over $170,000 from the Sims tools, from the equipment here in less than 4 weeks of the NBA season. So if you guys want to check this out of the NFL streets as well, stuff like Short Gamer TV, being able to take down a Millie, now's a good time. Promo code Millie, get 20% off, my friends. But to defense we go, where there are way more options than I think there are on a typical slate. Cowboys are probably live on any slate ending in Y or day ending in Y, or I don't know, that joke didn't make sense. We have the Commanders defense, 3,600, pulling quite a bit of ownership. I have more interest in going Steelers, in going Jaguars for tournaments. I think there are so many great defenses, yet all of them tend to be above 3K. So it's kind of an interesting, it's going to probably force a lot of people into those mid-range wide receiver plays, to cheapy running backs. I mean, God, we're going to have to pay up at defense, I feel like, on this slate. Who's your favorite to get to?
It's the Commanders. They have a pretty vast projection gap between anybody else. Playing Tommy DeVito, I mean, I really don't know what else needs to be said. He sucks. He's the worst quarterback I've ever seen take the field in the NFL. Not exaggerating.
You called him the 12th best quarterback in the Big Ten last year.
That's not an exaggeration. I ran through the mental calculus at the Big Ten quarterbacks that played last year, which is not a good offensive conference. That guy stinks. He couldn't play for the New Jersey Generals.
It's not very
DeAndre
nice.
Johnson starting New Jersey. Dakota Prukop, backup New Jersey Generals quarterback is
Did
better.
you just make up a name?
That was the backup New Jersey Generals QB.
Okay. That was the most made up name I have ever heard in my life.
Dakota Prukop?
That literally sounds like a war general from the 1800s.
He's better than Tommy DeVito.
Okay, well, there's that.
Tommy DeVito stinks.
I think we have established that. Oh, I love you so much. It's just incredible. He's terrible. So yeah, Washington Commanders are great. Fire them up in bulk if you want to. Sims Tools got me getting quite a bit of Steelers. I'm very happy with that against Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Again, yeah, I talked about DTR being 4,500. That does not mean that the Steelers are not the infinitely better play, in my opinion. And the Jaguars against Tennessee, again, Levis had an amazing game right out of the gate. Goes up against Pittsburgh, lays an egg. Goes up, I don't remember who they played last week. Also, another egg. Feel as though we want to get to a little bit of Jaguars, although they are now the 4th highest owned defense. What's the cheapest you'd be willing to go fire up defense? Are you getting to Packers there, 2,300?
I think the Packers are okay. I also had that exact same thought last week with the Chargers, and that, I mean, sometimes you run into those situations where, you know, you face a team that's going to drop back a lot. Yeah, it could lead to sacks or interceptions, but then you play Detroit's defense against the Chargers and they put up 70 combined points or whatever it was, and you get negative points in your defense. So I wouldn't take a huge stand on something like that, but yeah, I liked it last week, got burned. I will be doing some of it again this week.
Yay, let's run it all back. That'll be an enjoyable experience for everybody involved. But
got slaughtered.
Absolutely. Yeah, last week was disturbing. And again, this is where I'm just mad at myself, where Dak Prescott was the guy that was showing up nonstop in the Sims tool. And I said, you know what? I know better.
Me, you, and Loughy did that. And maybe some others. Those are the only 3 I know for sure, but I talked with Loughy this week. He did it. I did it. Now I'm finding out you did it.
Pure, absolute pain. All I have is pain in my heart for whatever I was doing there. It was the dumbest stuff in the entire universe. But you know what? I've learned my lesson. It only took once, and now we won't be doing stuff like that ever again. But yeah, I really have nothing else to add at defense. Ken, you can just run into best available, but also you want to get exposure to some of these top defenses because they're just absolutely ridiculous on this specific slate. I don't know what else to say. It's just a slate where there are so many defenses that could break it, that are in phenomenal spots. I'm trying to do my best not to have like too spread out of exposure here at defense, but it's kind of just happening naturally.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's how it should. It's a very variant position. It's difficult to predict. A lot of it just comes down to, all right, they scored a touchdown this week. They were unowned. There you go. So it's, generally speaking, I'm trying to be spread. But I mean, when Tommy DeVito's in the slate, it's just really hard to ignore.
It's fair. It's very fair. It's also fair. Again, 1.7K people have now smashed the like button here. I want to get to 2K so badly, but we have some super chats. Appreciate all of you. My filler arc, $4.99, Curtis Samuels or Josh Reynolds or anyone in the 3,700 price range you recommend for a receiver. Yeah, we talked about it earlier. I like Rondale Moore a lot more than my friend over there, but I think Robert Woods is going to be the guy that I get the most exposure to here at 3,700. It's a game environment deal. No Noah Brown. Probably steps into the role he had at the beginning of the season there, Robert Woods does, but I think he's probably the main guy to get to at 3,700 or below. Do you have anybody else?
Yeah, you named him. I like Curtis Samuel as well.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. Thank you, Filler Arc. Steve Oshai, $5. Appreciate you. I'm completely fading Rams receivers today, even though they're getting some ownership. What say you? You are asking the wrong guy. I'm going down with that ship, and I will poke my eyes out and surrender. There will be no white flag upon my door. I'm in love and always will be with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Anyway, did you see Dido white flag coming during the course of this program? I didn't.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, good talk. Glad we had it. Just talk to me about Rams receivers for the people.
Yeah, I like him, man. I not quite as bullish as you, but I'm going to be over the field for sure.
Okay, that's chill. That's chill. Makes me happy to know you at least, care about my feelings, and you're going to cheer for me, right?
Always, buddy. I always want my friends to win. Even if I don't win, might as well be my friends or you guys who supporters. Hope you guys win too.
I'm really sick of Greg winning everything, though. I want that
Greg's
on the record.
Rich enough. He needs to share.
I'm on the record. I bought him lunch in New Jersey. This is absolute horseshit. But
He
here we
owes
are
you now, buddy. He owes you.
He does. Yeah. We're going to hey, you want to go to Sizzler? It would be great.
Sizzler.
My treat.
Sizzler.
From Happy Gilmore.
Oh. Another movie I've never seen. Eric, why does this surprise you at this point, buddy?
You've never seen Do you enjoy life, Matt Gajewski? What is it about you that just is so against good things?
What's it about?
Happy Gilmore is the tale of Happy Gilmore, a professional, a hockey player, an amateur hockey player who becomes a professional golfer. He then takes the tour by storm. He runs into a nice, lovely lady, meets Chubbs, who gives him the golf tutelage of a lifetime, accelerates the learning process. He hits it 450 yards on every tee box. He walks up to the approach. He does the crazy swings and does amazing things. And here's the thing. Happy Gilmore is truly the movie that I've probably seen the 100% most in my entire life. And the fact that you have not seen it makes me so sad and so upset that there aren't exactly words for it. And I could keep going over and over and over again, but I want you to watch Happy Gilmore take down Shooter McGavin for yourself. Can you do that for me this week, Matt Gajewski?
I don't know. It doesn't sound very realistic.
D-Buff, $4.99. Loughy never answered my question. All good. LOL. Sorry. Top 3 cash plays for DraftKings and FanDuel. Good luck, everyone. Matt, top 3 cash plays for DraftKings. I will pull up FanDuel here as we go. I did build some lineups over there a little bit earlier, but I will let you lead the way with DraftKings. Who are your first 3 guys in?
Tyler, McBride, and Singletary for me.
Yeah. I think for FanDuel, Justin Fields is a little too cheap over there, but I won't throw that one out there.
He's really good over there.
Yeah, I think he might end up being your cash game quarterback on FanDuel. I didn't end up playing cash over there. So it is what it is. But I think it's the same thing. Devin Singletary, Tank Dell, you have to play those 2 first in. Trey McBride. I think that game environment with those 3 specific players, those are first in. But we'll say, I would have to think long and hard. I think I would end up pulling the trigger on Justin Fields over Kyler Murray in cash. So I think that's like your main difference between playing FanDuel and DraftKings this week. But thank you so much for the super chats. Really, really appreciate you. Yeah, the price is wrong, bitch. Just wanted to say it because it's fun. That's from Happy Gilmore, but you wouldn't know that. And 2, remember, for 26 months, is Carr actually a pass funnel? Is Carolina actually a pass funnel of injuries to the secondary? What do you think about CeeDee Lamb, who's been like the absolute nuke of all nukes the last couple of weeks? How are you feeling about Carolina's secondary being a pass funnel?
I mean, they don't have Horn. They're down another starter. They're a funnel for everything, though. Dallas can do whatever they want. I don't know.
They can do literally all of the
things. They can do whatever they want. There is no resistance.
Absolutely none. I am finishing this up. I had to make one little tweak because I don't know. Somebody,
too.
My buddy just said Donovan Peoples-Jones is active. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. And he's like, well, what if he plays more? I'm like, he didn't play in Cleveland. I just started to have some FOMO. I'm going to have 0%. I'm just saying 0%, 0.
Cleveland.
Yeah. I'm like, bro,
you're not wrong.
Yeah.
It's just funny when you put it like that.
Yeah. It's funny
you're not wrong. He didn't play in Cleveland. That's not a good sign.
No, he's not even there. Not even there. Cool. Bob Barker died. It's out of control. Everything's out of control here on this program here today. 10 minutes to go. Smash the like button. Take a look over at Owner's Box yet again. Jordan Klein, please, as we check in on our overlay. I always got to check in on our overlay, and then we'll go position by position and recap our favorite guys to be getting to for tournaments, who are getting the most exposure to Matt, Gajewski, and myself. Then we'll get ourselves the heck up out of here and go watch some football on YouTube TV, because that is apparently the only place you can watch football is on YouTube TV now. It's in a monopoly. It's all right. What? We love YouTube. Yay. We're on YouTube right now, so it is what it is. We've got 73% full the main tournament. If you want, in the next 9 minutes, to put in any more lineups on any one site, I can guarantee you the best place is Owner's Box. Super flex, super cool. You get an opportunity for overlay, and you get yourself up to a $250 first match deposit bonus. So sign up at the link below. Sign up in chat. Let's go, friends. Quarterback. Who is your highest owned quarterback here for this week, Matt Gajewski?
Howell.
Stafford. Howell's your highest owned?
Yeah, not by a lot.
I love you so much. I
Pretty
love
spread.
that. Okay, running back.
It is Singletary.
Yep, Singletary as well. And then number 2 for me is James Conner. I know that I like him a little bit more than you. Wide receiver.
Wide receiver is Curtis Samuel. Jeez.
That's got to hurt when you said that out loud. Did you kind of like, was there like a feeling in your chest of pain, suffering?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Curtis Samuel out of the slot, though, against the Giants. This could be really good or really bad. And obviously there's some leverage off of a Rondale Moore and things of that nature. But for me, it's Marquise Brown. To the tight end position, it is Trey McBride, I'm assuming, for both of us. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then defense, my highest own is the Steelers against DTR.
Mine is the Commanders.
Favorite stack for tournaments?
I guess Howell to Curtis Samuel based on my exposures.
Yeah. I mean, that is a really good one. I mean, that's not what I expected you to say. Obviously, I think everybody knows that Stafford's my number one.
I mean, I'm running out of time.
I totally get it. Oh, I get it. Just trying to ease the tension, baby. Just trying to ease the tension. I want to throw out one. And again, I've never been the person to recommend every single play on a slate. I am pretty happy to let you know when I screw things up big time or when I'm higher or lower on guys. I think it's a little bit strange. I'm just going to throw it out there to finish up this show. Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs in an absolute gotta have it, must win kind of a spot. Don't you just feed Diggs like crazy in this spot?
Well, I mean, I thought they were going to feed him in the second half last week when they were losing, and then he finished with 4 targets. So I don't know what they're doing. Apparently they are not winning games.
Yeah, what they're doing is they're royally screwing the pooch right now with Josh Allen years.
Yeah, they stink. But
super chat. Somebody had a super chat there. Take AC James. There we go. $1.99. Curtis Samuel or Mooney for tournaments. I bet I know which Matt picks, and I picked the same one.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Mooney a lot. I think he's a decent GPP play, especially if you're using Fields, because you're going to see a lot of ownership on DJ Moore and Kmet. So in that range, I mean, if you need a punt option, I don't mind Darnell Mooney, but yeah, he wouldn't be my preferred one in a vacuum or something.
All right, we got DK Tears for my guy, Ace of Spades. Good to see you, my friend, in the NBA streets repeatedly for the NBA shows. Always right off the bat. Coming in at the tail end of the NFL show. That's a wild one. I will give you the run by the play-by-play here. CJ Stroud, tier 1 in our projections. Tier 2, Tyreek Hill. Tier 3, Cooper Kupp. Love to see it. Tier 4, Brandon Ayuk. Tier 5, Brock Purdy. Tier 6, Tony Pollard. Tier 7, Aaron Jones. And Tier 8, Devin Singletary. And I would also be looking at Tank Dell. They're pretty darn close. Thank you, Ace of Spades. Jeff Williams, $4.99. R Moore, so Rondale Moore or Parham for DK Cash. I already have Brown, Murray, and McBride. Here's the thing. There are a lot of people who are going to have a lot of Arizona Houston pieces. You should not be playing David Parham in DK Cash, period. End of story. You should be playing Trey McBride. He should be your only tight end. You should be not doing that. Don't do that. That's all I have. Matt Gajewski, anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. 2 tight end builds, they can show up in tournaments here. I would not be doing that in cash. Sometimes, once upon a time, you had to do that in cash games to save money, elevate your floor, get to the skill position players you want. Today, this day specifically, you can get to Tyreek Hill, you can get to Christian McCaffrey and DK Cash. It is not too difficult. There are so many cheap guys, Devin Singletary, Tank Dell, Rondale Moore himself, Marquise Brown, so many guys from that game that you can get to, and that is not going to be a problem. You're going to be overlapping a lot of that game, and that is just fine with me. We have all of 3 minutes and 40 seconds, so make sure you have your lineups in. That's very important. Make sure, again, can we get up over 2K? That would be insane to see those likes hit that kind of a number. That'd be the high point of the entire year. Would feel extra special, and the warm fuzzies inside. But are they trying to put this Edgar Kairez and Daniel Lacerda fight up again? Ugh. You're a UFC guy, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. They had the cancellation after the no contest, and now they're going to run it back at the end of February. And Kairez was just like dominating Lacerda that entire fight, but yet we're going to run back a terrible fight again. Cool.
I didn't get to watch. It's really hard for me to watch during college football Saturdays.
It's fair.
But I love watching UFC when I have the chance.
Yeah. It was
Holy
trash.
smokes.
What's happening?
No, I didn't check Twitter the entire show. I'm a moron.
What happened?
Just notifications.
Oh, okay. Well, it doesn't make you a moron. Don't talk to my friend Matt that way.
Nobody called me a moron. I just wish I had done a better job answering the people's questions.
Okay. Do you have any questions there that need answering that we can fire up on this program?
We answered favorite cash plays on FanDuel. Somebody, you got to see Happy Gilmore. That was the DM I got.
I mean, it's egregious that you have never seen that.
What's your favorite movie?
I'm saying that it's one of the movie classics, and then Billy Madison on the other side of it.
Billy Madison.
You've never seen Billy Madison either?
Dude, you could name just about any movie. I've seen Remember the Titans.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul. I think we end the program there. Guys, that does it here for us. Thank you, Jordan Klein, for your phenomenal producing skills, per usual. Smash that like button as we get ourselves the heck up out of here. Yeah, it is Bad Santa season as well. Very excited for that come next Friday, because, again, Thanksgiving happens before Christmas, people. Oh, angry Eric coming out. It's all right. Smash that like button, everybody. Enjoyable experience. Go follow Matt_Gajewski over on X. Matt, any final words for the people as we get out of here?
Thanks for hanging out with us today. Love doing this with you guys. Can't believe we're already this far into the season, but got a big week coming up. We'll have everything covered for Thanksgiving and the holidays. So stick around. It's going to be a fun one.
Holiday celebrate. It'll be great stuff. Go follow me at Eric Lindquist as well. I'm going to go research some NBA and get the heck up out of here and watch a little football. Yeah, let's go do that, friends. Best of luck today. See you next week.